At first glance, Jaryong seems like your typical 15-year-old student just trying to get by in a totally average high school. But what nobody knows is that he's already solo clearing dungeons, while all the rich, talented kids from the top academies are still in training. He's breaking the law and risking his life before they even step foot in their first dungeon, all to pay the mounting hospital bills for his sick father. And get this, his dad used to be the strongest warrior on the planet who trained him since he was a kid, but now he's retired and powerless in this savage new world. This whole apocalypse solo leveling nightmare kicked off one day when the sky just ripped open with portals. It let a flood of monsters pour through like they had an all-access pass to Earth. Later on, scientists finally pieced it together. They explained that it was all connected to another world somewhere else in the universe. It was a planet a lot like ours that just got blown to smithereens, and all its cosmic shrapnel came hurtling straight for us. The impact alone was enough to leave everyone shook, but that wasn't the end of it. Pieces of the other world actually started to fuse with our own. A gigantic tree taller than any skyscraper shot up from the ground, signaling the start of what everyone now calls the adhesion phenomenon. From that moment that the entire world was thrown into absolute chaos. Terrifying creatures began hunting humans, and about 17% of the Earth's surface was completely trashed and overrun. These places became massive danger zones where monsters showed zero mercy. For a while there, it really looked like humanity was cooked. Our conventional weapons were basically pea shooters against these otherworldly beasts, but then people started leveling up too, gaining insane new powers. With fresh skills and god-tier strength, it was humanity's turn for a comeback. We managed to push the monsters back into the portals they came from. Over the years, these strange tiers in reality became known as dungeons, and the humans with special abilities were called adventurers. And of course, a ton of schools and academies were created to train kids who had awakened their powers. But among all of them, the absolute cream of the crop is the Adolescent Training Facility in the Republic of Korea. It's legendary for producing the most elite top-tier adventurers. For the last 25 years, they've been sending out the best of the best, and that place is none other than the world-famous Soldier High School. Even normies know about this place, calling it a school full of specialized freaks who treat dungeon dives like a final exam. What's even crazier is that these students aren't even scared of dying, and they get official government permission to enter those hot zones. Their confidence is just on another level, which is probably why the school's waitlist is a mile long. Suddenly, the two friends hear a huge commotion, as a crowd of students, mostly girls, starts to form. They're all trying to catch a glimpse of some guy who is ridiculously good-looking. No cap, this dude is unreal, and the fact that he's half-elf just adds to his whole vibe. One of the guys is totally stunned, having no idea what kind of being he's even staring at. That's when his nerdy friend jumps in, saying the guy is pretty famous and has been on TV, shocked that his buddy hasn't heard of him. So he clarifies that this is Diav Choi, the son of a legendary adventurer and an elven mother. The hype around him is massive. Everyone thinks he's a prodigy who's going to easily break into the top 10 ranks by the time he graduates at just 17. Diab is just a first year at Soldier High, and he's already attempted to clear dungeons 14 times. Even with all that, his friend doesn't really get what the big deal is, since Diab isn't some celebrity or pop idol. While they're chatting, the nerdy kid turns to Jaryong. He asks him if he's working later, mentioning some karaoke bar where a girl named Lee Yoonji went with her friends. Jaryong, completely absorbed in his phone, shows zero interest in that stuff and just tells them to go have fun on their own. The normie friends try to convince Jaryong to hang out with them after their exam is over. But this guy, always on the grind, just shrugs it off and bounces again, giving them a weak promise to catch up next week. People might wonder why Jaryong is constantly hustling like this. The truth is, he's got a sick parent at home, and the medical bills are stacking up to the ceiling. So even when he's completely drained, his work is always calling him back. Meanwhile, Diav is right in the middle of a paparazzi frenzy when he notices Jaryong walking away. One of Diav's bodyguards leans in and asks him quietly if he's got some kind of issue with that kid. Diav just brushes it off, saying he's probably just seeing things. Jaryong, despite not being in the mood at all, drags his tired body to an old abandoned subway station. The broker Iman Jaiwan introduces a new client, but the second the client sees Jaryong, he absolutely flips his lid, screaming at Jaiwan for not sending his best guy for the mission. Jaiwan tells him calmly that Jaryong is the best he's got. Still, the client isn't buying it for a second and says he's not here to get played. He states flat out that he only works with top-tier talent, and in his opinion, Jaryong ain't it. This bald, loudmouth client demands someone else. He starts threatening Jaiwan with serious consequences if he doesn't get what he wants. That's when, out of nowhere, Jaryong slowly turns to face the big guy. Standing next to some loudmouth client, he asks if the guy is even an adventurer, cause honestly, He's starting to low-key feel bad for him. The guy just calls him an idiot for defending the bald dude clearly not impressed. That's when the heavy hitter chimes in, saying a broken arm or leg ought to be enough to put the brat in his place. This man is Lee Pilgu, a former silver rank adventurer who's walked out of dungeons a staggering 81 times. The broker quickly tells Jaryong to just swallow his pride and kneel. But before things get messy, Jaryong powers up and tells them flat out that begging ain't in his vocabulary. Meet Yugu Haryong, Don Kanghai's top dungeon smuggler, who's illegally bounced from dungeons 371 times. When you talk about the baddest of the bad, dungeon smugglers who can mess up the entire world are right at the top. It all kicks off when adventurers decide to break the oath they swore. After they've wiped out all the monsters, they start digging around for hidden treasures. Once they have secured the bag, they make a break for the exit. But that's where inspectors pop up to give everything a once-over. The reason is simple. Those treasures can hold some seriously insane power. If even a single one gets past them unchecked, it could land in the wrong hands and unleash a world of hurt. This is exactly why the Adventurers Association makes a point to inspect and register every single item first. Then they ship them out after slapping on taxes based on their value, which is a real kick in the teeth for adventurers. Imagine seeing your hard-earned loot get a huge chunk taken out by the government. Among them, you've got the rule breakers, the ones who find shady workarounds to game the system. These guys persuade adventurers who despise taxes to smuggle stuff out for them. If these pocketed items ever slip through the cracks, society pays a heavy price. That's why the association practically begs everyone to snitch on these sketchy people. So, as MJ1 lights up a smoke, Baldy shoots him a death glare, obviously pissed that he's letting. A couple of hot-headed adventurers throw down right in their hideout. Baldy makes it clear to the broker that Pilgu didn't get the boot because of his injuries, but for straight-up assaulting his own teammates. Apparently, the guy would snap the neck of anyone who even looked at him funny. On top of that, Baldy warns the broker not to expect this gorilla to pull any punches, because they might just be scraping the kid's remains off the floor later. While stretching, Jaryong couldn't care less about Pilgu's little hobby of beating on his own crew. He casually asks if the guy's a wanted criminal, knowing full well he's not one to talk. Pilgu, with a twisted smile, says the pathetic dude was just dragging him down, so he had to take out the trash. For a hot second, Jaryong is totally lost, not catching what this clown is on about. Then it clicks Pilgu's calling himself trash. The broker can't help but crack a smile at that one. Jaryong figures Pilgu's trash-tier personality is probably why he yeeted his own license. Mid-sentence, Pilgu loses his cool and launches a haymaker aimed right at his face. But Jaryong, cool as a cucumber, dodges it without even breaking a sweat and points out it's kinda rude to sucker punch someone. Oof, that's gotta hurt the big guy's pride. His rage goes absolutely nuclear as the gorilla charges. Jaryong decides it's time to clap back and lands a devastating kick right to his jaw. Baldy's own jaw hits the floor, watching his best guard get schooled by a teenager. The broker with a sly grin reminds Baldy that he wasn't kidding. He told him he was bringing his A-game, and that's Jaryong. Pilgu is still trying to reboot his brain after that hit. Jaryong, on the other hand, is just standing there. He no-cap expected this so-called big shot to be tougher, but the letdown is real. This scrub had no idea he seriously screwed up by writing off the smuggling teen as just some punk. What really makes Jaryong built different isn't just his nerve, but his cracked reflexes and the raw power he just unleashed. Pilgu, now totally rattled, can already tell this kid's strength is on a whole other level, creeping into pro-league territory. The broker just watches with a smirk, thinking the big guy finally gets it. His win rate just flatlined. It's just not his lucky day. Still, Baldy tries to act tough, pointing out that the kid might be good, but that was just one kick. The moment Baldy starts hyping up Pilgu, the broker immediately calls it the big guy was a tank. Baldy's a little stunned by how sharp the broker is. Meanwhile, Pilgu is all fired up and ready to teach this kid a real lesson, yelling that no cheap trick can change the fact that Jaryong is just smuggler trash. He then unleashes a wave of power about to show Jaryong what he's really made of. After the adhesion phenomenon, people started popping off with abilities that were way beyond normal human limits. So, everyone wound up with their own unique builds and talents, which unlocked a ton of different latent abilities. From that moment on, adventurers began training specifically for the skills they awakened, getting slotted into roles that fit him like the tank Pilgu, who immediately starts showing off flexing his bulk up. Iron skin and giant strength. Jae Young plays along, acting all wowed by Pilgu's sudden power-up. The tank's whole job is to shield their teammates from all the gnarly stuff inside a dungeon. They're the front line, period. These are the guys who go toe-to-toe with monsters to keep their squad safe, pushing their bodies to the absolute max. They're so tough they can literally shrug off bullets from standard firearms without even flinching. When a war breaks out, the top-tier tanks can just stand there and take missile fire like it's nothing, because they're basically walking fortresses. Jae-young is low-key, shocked to see what a real adventurer is capable of. Just as Pilgu is about to flatten him, our boy zips out of the way, leaving the big oaf absolutely stunned. The broker pops up out of nowhere, catching Baldy just before he hits the floor. Seeing these two about to throw down again, the broker can't help but wonder if these lunatics are seriously going to trash somebody else's property. Meanwhile, Jae-young locks eyes with Pilgu, hitting him with a look that says, "Playtime's over." First, he easily dodges a heavy punch from the big dude who smashes a clean hole right through the wall. This gorilla then has the nerve to ask why Jae-young isn't pulling his cheap tricks anymore, but our guy just fires back that he isn't dumb enough to walk into such a blatant trap. The broker watching from the sidelines is mentally calculating Pilgu's raw power, figuring it's about the same as getting hit by a mid-sized truck. A single blow from that guy would turn bones to dust, no cap. Just then, the broker yells at Jae-young to wrap this circus up, already warning him that any more damage to the building is coming straight out of his paycheck. The gorilla, still fuming, tells Jae-young that his little tricks won't work on a pro like him, but our MC is more than ready to prove him wrong. He rips the metal rod as if to say, "I'm just getting warmed up." That cocky move completely sets Pilgu off, and the madman goes charging right at Jae-young, looking to finish this fight for good. To the average person, tanks seem unstoppable thanks to their insane durability, but even they've got a massive Achilles heel. It turns out they're super vulnerable to anyone who can focus all their destructive power onto a single point. Damage dealers, for example, have zero problems punching right through defenses like that. So when Pilgu charges at Jae-young, our boy is already waiting, metal rod in hand, poised to deliver the final strike. One clean hit, and the so-called gorilla is spitting up blood. The bald dude looks like he's about to have a heart attack from the sheer shock of it all, while the broker just smirks like he knew this would happen all along. With blood trickling from his mouth, Pilgu groans and demands to know where Jae-young learned a move like that. But Jae-young just plays dumb, saying he must be mistaken. This makes Pilgu think he must have seen that technique somewhere before, maybe from his own father. Most adventurers are categorized into 4 basic ranks, depending on their power and experience: gemstone, copper, silver, and gold. Each tier comes with its own set of perks like dungeon access and tax breaks, but the top 100 adventurers, the rankers, are on a whole other level. They get special color-coded ranks that exist outside the standard system. Taking a quick trip down memory lane, we see a young Jae-young, who always saw his dad as the greatest adventurer ever, and not just because he was his father. He'd secretly watch his hulking old man training out in the fields. His dad's name was Yu Seong, and he was one of the legendary first-generation heroes, also known as the world's very first adventurers. For people who didn't live through the tragedies of that era, the stories of the first generation sound more like epic myths than actual history. In battles that erupted without any warning, those original adventurers suffered devastating losses, one after another, and Jae-young's father was there through it all. For them, it was a literal hellscape. On top of that, they were desperate for intel, but had almost no reliable information to help them deal with the unfolding chaos. No one had any idea what dungeons were really about, or what kind of monsters were lurking inside when they first appeared. Those early heroes had to fight creatures like the Gigamaloth. Sure, by today's standards, those monsters are probably a walk in the park. But back then, for a first generation that was completely unprepared, they were seen as terrifying, unknown catastrophes. In those days, Yu Seong fought fearlessly against those beasts, using nothing but a simple metal rod. This was a time before skills existed to help in a fight. No flashy powers, no special abilities. Just pure, unadulterated grit. The force of his battles was so insane that the rod's titanium, which was already prone to wear and tear, back when even basic gear was a total luxury that could just fall apart, you had to get by with nothing but pure grit. Yu Seong found himself facing down a monster all by himself, gripping a metal pipe like his life depended on it, because it absolutely did. He didn't flinch and poured every ounce of his power into one last swing, which was all it took to put the beast down. The Ojai adventurers were just built different. They had to figure everything out the hard way through brutal trial and error. They were constantly risking their necks, so you can imagine the shock when backup finally rolled up through the tunnel one day. They were completely speechless when they saw Yu Seong just chilling after single-handedly wrecking the monster. The survivors of those first brutal battles passed down their stories. They shared all their knowledge and insane achievements with the next generation, which is how they earned the title of heroes. Jae-young's old man Yu Seong got himself the nickname Dragon Slayer, after, you guessed it, he soloed a freaking dragon. The day he killed that thing, people completely lost their minds, and he skyrocketed to become Asia's top-ranked adventurer. Jaryong looked at his father with total admiration. He'd watch his dad train just completely starstruck. In his eyes, his old man was invincible. That is until the day he saw his hero cough up blood. Turns out it was poison. Seeing that happen completely crushed Jaryong's world. The kid was a total mess. Apparently during one of his dungeon dives, Yusong got hit with some nasty lethal poison. And like the absolute unit he was, he tried to just power through it, but eventually he ended up in the hospital. His body just couldn't take it anymore, and he started vomiting blood all the time. All those years of overworking and pushing himself through hell had finally caught up to him. After decades of living on the edge, his body was completely shot. To make it 1,000,000 times worse, the so-called teammates he trusted with his life saw his weakness as an opportunity, stabbing him in the back and stealing his fortune and achievement. That betrayal was a gut punch that sent him spiraling into a massive mental breakdown that lasted for ages. He was suffering both in his mind and in his body. Fast forward many years, and his son Jaryong stops by for a visit after school. By then, the world had mostly forgotten about the dragon slayer Yusong. His father's hair had turned completely white, and that powerful hero's aura was long gone. He was stuck battling an incurable poison and had lost every single thing he'd worked for. His life had taken a seriously heavy toll on him. He wasn't the hero he used to be. All that was left was a forgotten adventurer. That memory flash was nothing but pain for Jaryong. Back in the present, Jaryong lets go of the metal rod and just walks away, leaving Pilgu out cold on the floor. Baldy can't even believe what he's seeing. He's just watching Pilgu lose to some random kid completely shook. The broker, though, isn't impressed. He never thought Pilgu was all that great to begin with. As Jaryong walks out, he mutters just loud enough for everyone to hear that bragging about beating up your own teammate is a surefire sign that you're weak. And apparently that's one of the two main reasons why any decent adventurer decides to call it quits. Jaryong then casually explains this to Baldy. There are only two reasons a good adventurer ever retires. Either their body is too broken to keep up with the grind, or they wind up dead on a mission. He then tells Baldy to just fire him. If he's getting paid a cent over minimum wage, since anyone can act tough for a minute. That's when the broker smoothly slides into business mode. He announces that the pay for this particular job just doubled. Baldy starts to lose his temper, but the broker shuts him down quick, reminding the guy that he's the one who instigated this whole mess. This isn't some kind of charity. Realizing he's been cornered, Baldy gets in line and signs off on the order. Later, Jaryong is just chilling with a bottle of water when the broker suddenly drops a bombshell. He asks if Jaryong has ever heard of the Imperial Wasp. The name is enough to make our boy do a literal spit take, totally shocked. He asks if they're seriously expected to go up against that thing because no cap, that's a whole other level of insane. The Imperial Wasp is one of the most dangerous monsters in the entire world. It built its nest in Yeouido, which basically transformed the area into Korea's personal demon realm, known for having the highest difficulty rating. Even the highest ranked adventurers have an insanely difficult time trying to take down just one of these wasps. Jaryong knows this kind of mission is way above the pay grade of some low-level punk, especially since those things are just flying around with absolutely zero chill. But the broker hints that for a white rank adventurer, the game might change. This little tidbit comes from Baldy, who is at this very moment grinding his boot into Pilgyu's face. A massive raid apparently went down just yesterday, but it's been kept completely off the public radar. Turns out the government army and 7 white rank adventurers joined forces to create an elite attack squad. When asked, the broker confirms that these 7 are the absolute biggest names in Korea. Just having 2 of them in the same place is enough to make the media completely lose their minds. But more importantly, he reveals something massive. So, the attack squad might have bombed their main mission to wipe everyone out, but they at least managed to take down the Queen Bee. But this is where the story gets absolutely insane. One of the 7 straight up jacked the Imperial Wasp's royal jelly. And that's not even the half of it. They got some low-level dude in the squad to sneak it out. When press broker explains that the jelly is a super potent, nutritional supplement made to feed a newborn queen. But what's really bugging him is why any white rank adventurer would sink low enough to smuggle it out like some shady back alley dealer. This royal jelly has only been discovered a handful of times in history, and here's the kicker: if a human actually eats it, they can literally cheat death. That bit of info hits our boy Jae Young like a freight train. On a different note, one of the 4 adventurer classes is called Gemstone, which is a temporary license given out by the association. It basically lets someone waltz into any dungeon no matter the level. The paths into these dungeons are supposed to be locked down tight, or at least that's the official story the government and the Adventurers Association are selling. But Jae-won knows that's a whole load of crap. There's zero truth to any of it. Standing before a colossal door, etched with ancient spells, he channels his mana and just blasts it wide open. He warns Jae-young not to get sloppy, and end up getting himself killed in there, especially since this part of the job is going to be a major headache. Just then the kid yanks up his black mask, while Broker with zero chill casually blows smoke right in his face. Jae-young tells him to cut it out. It seems Chae-won caught him spacing out and had to snap him back to reality. Jae-young pushes aside thoughts about a drug that can revive the dead, deciding it's pointless to get hung up on it. Stuff like that always turns out to be exaggerated. Deep down, Jae-young gets that even if you had the best antidote in the world, it wouldn't be nearly enough to save his father. If something that broken actually existed, his dad would have never given up hope. Right then, the massive door groans open, and a blinding flash of light floods his vision. As he crosses the threshold, he takes in his new surroundings. After the adhesion event, dungeons started popping up all over the planet. Korea has two of the most infamous ones. The first is on Jeju Island, where a dungeon fused itself with the volcanic mountain range. The second is in Yeouido, once the Heart of Seoul, now known as the former Boramae. It's a D-ranked dungeon that merged with the Igar jungle. Using Yeouido as its epicenter, the dungeon expanded, completely swallowing the surrounding districts of Mapo Yongsan and Yeongdeung-po. Even to this day, a huge part of the area is totally unexplored, and countless adventurers are still getting themselves killed, trying to unlock its secrets. Apparently, one of their guys managed to trek all the way from Yeouido to Boramae, but right after he reached the meetup point, he went completely dark. Chae-won thinks the guy might have just dipped with the goods, but it's way more likely he got himself hurt or ran into some serious trouble. After all, Chae-won mentioned, his lackey stumbled into all sorts of crap while trying to get out. Anyway, Broker lays out the mission for Jae-young. If he stumbles upon the item their guy was carrying, he needs to grab it. In short, he wants the kid to keep his head in the game and not get sidetracked. Jae-young shoots Chae-won a smirk, asking if he really thinks he just run off. Broker doesn't think the kid's that dumb, but he still tells him to be on high alert. He also reminds the bonehead that royal jelly from an imperial wasp is insanely valuable. With that, our pro-smuggler dives into the adventure, hearing Chae-won's final warning that it's not just humans who are willing to risk it all for that prize. As he hits the ground, he expects the forest to reek of it too, but that's when he spots something that makes him freeze. Giant footprints are pressed deep into the earth. Now he's 100% certain that scent is going to attract all kinds of unwelcome attention. Meanwhile, deeper inside the forest, a girl is sprinting for her life, gasping for air, and desperately trying to find a place to hide. This girl is Jin Sae-ram, a first year at Warrior High, and she is currently having the most stressful day of her entire life. What was supposed to be a simple dungeon crawl for her midterm has completely gone sideways. Fate had other plans because now she's being hunted by a terrifying giant anomaly that is way too close for comfort. You're not supposed to run into this kind of monster in here. Even so, she's pulling out all the stops to avoid getting smoked. But there's something weird about the air. The test was supposed to be basic. Just collect as many coins as you can that were scattered across the dungeon before the timer ran out. Even though the exam was built to feel like an actual fight, in a low-rank dungeon, it should have been a cakewalk since the area was a well-known training spot for newbies. But her luck ran out real fast when this absolute unit of a titan appeared out of nowhere. So, our girl Saram rolls up to this spot thinking it's just going to be a chill grind session with a bunch of low IQ weak mobs. But nah, the second she locks eyes with this titan, her soul just about pieces out of her body. This absolute unit of a monster immediately starts charging her down. It's got zero chill and is dead set on turning her into a pancake, and Saram, totally freaking out, knows she's completely cornered. At this point, she's running on fumes, banking on a sliver of hope or some straight-up divine intervention. She's got no other cards to play. So, with no choice left, she yanks out her bow, ready to throw down, even though this Titan ape is a 3-star dungeon-level threat while still being a juvenile. The beast just glares and growls at her, so she leaps into the air and unloads a volley of arrows on the absolute monstrosity. But he just swats them away like they're annoying flies, which is low-key, terrifying her even more. Then out of nowhere, the Titan ape smashes its fist right into the earth. Saram barely dodges it and fires another arrow, even though she knows it's pointless. Her shots just don't have enough juice to get through its hide. On top of that, this thing doesn't even bother to dodge or block her attacks. It's just tanking her shots without a care in the world, but she keeps praying for that one lucky moment where it might slip up. Risking it all, she closes the distance and juices herself up with a fire enhancement. See, Saram's a magic ranger, a class that's all about enchanting her arrows with elemental magic. It's time for the big guns. She activates Flame Bombardment. This skill taps into a massive mana pool, and as her Hail Mary, she decides to go all in, charging up the most powerful explosion she possibly can. No cap, this move is powerful enough to one-shot any monster with a 3-star danger rank. But here's the kicker. She's got to actually hit the target. If this ape just sidesteps at all, that effort goes right down the drain. She's shook, completely baffled at how this thing can read her moves so easily. Now she's fresh out of tricks. The only play left is to book it and run for her life. But just as she decides to dip, the freak goes full throttle, charging right at her. It's about to flatten her into next week, when suddenly Jaryong drops into this chaotic scene, one of those fresh-faced bronze-class adventurers. These guys just got their licenses, and barely have clearance for low-ranked dungeons, so you can bet Saram's jaw hit the floor when some rando just appeared. He proceeds to slam a metal rod right into the Titan ape's jaw, and bam! The overgrown beast hits the deck. Jaryong's just chilling on a tree branch, but after seeing the Titan's ugly mug up close, he knows that little love tap wasn't nearly enough. As the Titan ape gets up and charges him again, Jaryong calmly preps some shady-looking gadget from his kit. Then he dives straight down. Saram's mind is completely blown. She can't believe this absolute madlad is actually going for a head-on attack. Like, does this dude seriously think he actually stands a chance against that thing? The Titan is winding up, ready to turn this guy's face into modern art, and Saram is 100% positive he's a goner. Yeah, this mystery guy is totally toast. But then Jaryong yells at Saram to shut her eyes just seconds before he and the Titan are about to collide. They're literally inches from impact when Jaryong's tool flashes blindingly in the ape's face, and he squeezes his own eyes shut. A massive burst of light erupts, engulfing the Titan and freezing it in place like a deer in headlights. Jaryong lands smoothly and starts complaining that he's almost out of juice for his stunning torch after using a whole charge on this big guy. Turns out the stunning torch is crafted from the scales of a flickering fish, a super rare creature found only in deep-sea dungeons. This thing has a cracked ability to paralyze anything it touches, and the materials to make it used to be dirt cheap. It was once the go-to gadget for adventurers everywhere, but the thing is, it was almost too good. Because a bunch of noobs misused it, a ton of adventurers ended up getting their own powers permanently fried. So, now the item is completely banned, you can't even make them anymore. Anyway, Saram walks up trying to get a word in with our mystery hero. He's got zero chill, and tells her to get her act together, reminding her she was seconds away from becoming monster food. Jaryong knows the unspoken rule: if another adventurer isn't paying attention in a dungeon, and isn't your direct target, you don't get involved. Other adventurers will just leave you to die, mostly because they're seen as nothing more than expendable pests. It's a dog-eat-dog world, kinda like how a broker once let it slip that the bounty on a smuggler is pretty sweet if they step out of line. One wrong move, and you're just another bug waiting to get squashed. He clocks Saram about to approach him, but Jaryong hits the gas and just vanishes in the blink of an eye. She's totally baffled he was right there. Before she can even process it, he's on her, pinning her to the ground and sizing her up. He's trying to figure out her angle. Saram stammers that she just wanted to thank him for saving her from certain doom. But Jaryong isn't buying her innocent act for a second. He thinks she's trying to pull a fast one. So, Saram decides to come clean. She drops the bomb she knows he's a smuggler, and that's precisely why she needs to hire him. This definitely throws him for a loop. But then his eyes lock onto a familiar logo on her shirt, and letting out a deep sigh, he realizes things just got a lot more complicated. He grumbles to himself that this is strike 2, and he sure as hell won't be overlooking a third. He couldn't give a damn about the wild tantrums of some spoiled brat. And let's be real, Jaryong is more than willing to send this high schooler on a one-way trip to the afterlife, if she ever dares to cross his path again. The bounty for smugglers sits at a cool 50 million and one, while the reward for poachers is a staggering 400,005,001. Jaryong looks like he's about to go nuclear, but then his gaze locks onto the Ankyl's blood, an incredibly rare and valuable tool. That stuff is basically impossible to buy, though he figures a crew of 5 smugglers like him might just be able to pool their cash for one. In a shocking twist, this girl calls it a down payment, and says she'll cover the rest if he tutors her for midterms. Jaryong is convinced this chick is absolutely unhinged, especially since he'd just written her off as another entitled rich kid. Now he's starting to think she's not just rich, she's obscenely wealthy, but also completely off her rocker. The girl insists none of that is his problem. The only thing that matters is the Ankyl's blood, a game changer that could flip his entire life upside down. Jaryong kind of had a feeling this was coming, and it hits him that he never had a legit reason to want her dead in the first place. Saram is totally lost, having no idea what he's going on about. Just as a terrifying shadow blankets them, he warns her that her time is running out. The Titan ape is about to smash them into paste. They both dive for cover just in the nick of time. Jae-young screams at her, saying he didn't give her a second chance, just so she could waste it like this. He yells at her to pull off that insane fire attack she used earlier. He orders her to cast the spell on the tip of his staff and throw it back, but that's when pure panic takes over. She suddenly remembers she's running on empty without even a spark of magic left. Jae-young roars at her to get it together and fast, because there's no way in hell he can keep the Titan's aggro on him with just his fists for much longer. Despite the insane pressure, Saram tries her best to pour every last drop of magic she has left into his staff. But it's barely a quarter of her usual output. She's dead certain it won't even scratch the monster's tough hide. Fear starts to set in, and for a split second she genuinely considers bailing and leaving the guy to become the Titan's personal punching bag. Still, she launches the magic-infused staff toward Jae-young, and while he snags it, he looks low-key disappointed. He can tell she only managed a 25% charge. That's Jae-young's cue to pump his own magic into the staff. And to kick things up a notch, every student at Warrior High School has heard the speech 1,000 times. Brute strength is useless against a monster. What really counts is timing and precision. Saram's jaw just drops as she watches it all happen. In less than a second, Jae-young carves a line straight across the Titan ape's face. The attack bursts into flames and the explosion shatters his goggles, but his wide grin screams total satisfaction. This is the power of Silver-class adventurers. These are vets who have returned from over 50 dungeons, proving they can take on monsters up to 3 stars. But even with that record, they aren't allowed into intermediate rank dungeons without getting special clearance. This is the rank where you'll find most adventurers. At twilight, a wave of students floods out of school, chatting and laughing. Then a young girl spots a man in a black suit leaning against a fancy car. Little Saram waves goodbye to her friends and slips quietly into the vehicle. Her friends watch from a distance, unable to fight off a pang of envy. After all, it really looks like she has everything she could ever ask for. And to be honest, that's not far from the truth. If her eyes land on something, you can bet it'll be hers in a flash. That's the kind of life you lead. When you're the daughter of the Jinseong Group, the 4th largest corporation in South Korea, this powerhouse family's successor ended up engaged to an elf from another dimension. Jin Saram was born from that very union. She was a girl who idolized adventurers and dreamed of becoming one more than anything else in the world. But her dreams were about to get a harsh reality check. Some big shot bluntly told her that her elf blood was too thin, so she should just forget it and live like a normal human. That same guy even pulled Saram's father aside, telling him to stop letting her chase a pipe dream and force her to face the real world. But her father, Jin Seong-yu, the head of Jinseong Group's Special Development Department, shut that down immediately. He made it known that he fully supported her dream and was cheering her on every step of the way. He argues that elven talent isn't a requirement to become an adventurer, so her background has absolutely nothing to do with Saram's ambitions. A blonde coach chimes in, agreeing that for a human she isn't terrible. But even so, Saram is still just a cut above average. He also makes it a point to say that Jin Seong's daughter isn't exactly from a typical family. It's true the girl doesn't know the meaning of the word quit, just like her sister. But he still can't put her in the same league as those monstrously powerful humans. Those humans who are just built different. With that being said, if Saram keeps up the grind, she could actually hit a respectable level. A level that would get a normal human a ton of praise and respect. Besides, she has plenty of advantages. Things that make up for her lack of natural talent, like her family's ridiculous wealth, their powerful name, and her bloodline. But he's convinced her efforts will amount to nothing. And if she gets special treatment, people will either get jealous or make fun of her, leaving her totally isolated. And honestly, he's pretty sure Saram just can't handle that kind of pressure. Real talent isn't something that just falls into your lap. Saram is just completely frozen witnessing Jae-hyung one-shot the massive Titan ape with a single clean strike. He just strolls away like it was nothing, leaving Saram standing there completely shook and unable to process what she just saw. She literally can't wrap her head around how a guy her age is already this cracked. Meanwhile, it suddenly hits Jae-hyung that the broker gave him a pair of goggles. He specifically told him not to break the expensive gear, and here he is shattering them in his very first real fight. Jae-hyung was sure they were some cheap knockoff you'd find at a dollar store, but the broker claims they can block facial recognition, change your voice, and even come loaded with over 4 magic spells. Bruh Jae-hyung is so over it, since his day has been a total train wreck. And just when he thinks things can't possibly get any worse, Saram comes up and asks if he's an upperclassman from her academy. That just tilts him even more, and now he's demanding she pay up for his help. Without even blinking, she hands over the blood necklace of the uncle. While he's inspecting it, Saram casually asks if he needs more cash, saying she's totally chill with him. not being enrolled in a fancy school, because she knows the tuition for the Adventurer Education Center is no joke. She even goes as far as offering to cover his expenses. But Jae-hyung just shuts that down immediately, telling her straight up that he's never stepped foot inside a school in his life. This just leaves Saram with one massive question: who the heck trained him? Jae-hyung's answer is blunt. He's self-taught. Saram's brain just blue screens. That answer is just too raw for her to even comprehend. Saram can't deal with his response flat out, refusing to believe some random guy could learn moves that sharp all on his own, with such flawless timing. She starts losing her cool, yelling like a total Karen, but Jae-hyung, who has zero chill, just slaps a tag on her forehead to shut her up, which obviously just makes her rage even harder. But then, she looks at the tag and realizes it's his ID card, Yoo Jae-hyung, from Donggang High School. He casually mentions that it's just a regular public school. Saram is absolutely floored, since this is definitely not the answer she was looking for. Jae-hyung then asks to see her ID in return. She hands it over, and he sees they're the exact same age. Her card says Jin Saram from the Elite Warrior High School. As he slips her student ID back into her pocket, she completely freaks out, but he just reminds her that she mentioned having a job for him. She demands to hold on to his ID as collateral, just to make sure he can't dip on her later. Then out of the blue, Jae-hyung tells her to come closer, and suddenly pulls her into a tight hug. She starts blushing like crazy, but for him, this is just how he seals a contract. No paperwork, just a little smuggler's handshake to confirm they're partners in crime now. He reminds her that an accomplice gets the exact same punishment as the person who committed the crime. That's when a cold chill runs down Saram's spine, and she realizes she's just gotten herself tangled up with someone way more dangerous than she ever imagined. Jae-hyung's predatory vampire-like grin is all the confirmation she needs. He knows it's way too late for her to slam the brakes, because from this point forward, this ride has no exit ramp. You see, the gold class is reserved for badasses who've either smoked a 4-star monster or pulled off some other major feat. They get access to lower-level dungeons and are considered the top 10% of all elites. After snagging a quick selfie with the dead Titan ape, Jae-hyung gets right back to business and starts talking numbers. He asks Saram what exactly she needs him to do. After a moment, she mumbles that the job is to collect coins. The mission is to find all the coins scattered across different locations, inside the testing center, all within a 6-hour time limit. On top of that, she needs to locate a specific coin box in one of those areas to prove she's a legit student. So far, she's only managed to find 1 coin and needs just 1 more to pass the test. That sounds easy enough to Jae-hyung, until she drops the location of the second coin, the old ruins of the Eugene Mall. That stops him dead in his tracks, because it's the exact same place he needs to go for his own mission. Saram instantly panics thinking about the terrifying Imperial Wasp, but Jae-hyung casually brushes it off. He's not after the wasp, just some of its royal jelly. He explains that it has a super strong scent that attracts monsters, which is probably what drew the Titan ape to their location. He still plans on going and asks if she knows where any other coins might be, but she's got no other leads. She figures all the other coins have probably been snatched up by the other teams by now. And that's when it finally clicks for Jae-hyung. He finally understands why she's out here running this mission all by herself, while everyone else is in groups. Jae-hyung says he's cool with that, but if some emergency pops off and he's stuck doing extra work, then the price is definitely going up. He quickly asks if Sarah's got the juice to sprint, and when she nods, he's gone in a flash, with the girl scrambling to keep pace. Meanwhile, our weirdo MC is low-key kicking himself for not asking for more cash. Then the rich girl hits him with a question, wondering if he's really 100% self-taught. He admits that's not the whole story. But right as he's about to spill some tea about his childhood, he clocks 2 monsters just casually vibing up ahead. He immediately tells her to get hyped, because they're about to throw down with claw raptors, a species native to the old Boromai Dong area, and these things are ranked as 2-star monsters. The second she puts her guard up, she realizes this dude gives off 0 professionally trained vibes. Turns out Yoo Jae-hyung's power comes from constantly putting his neck on the line, but there's a little asterisk next to that. When he was a kid, he spent his days glued to his father's every move, and from that, he managed to yoink 3 specific techniques. As Jae-hyung steps up to face the claw raptor, he settles into a stance. The first move is called Needle. It's a strike that demands every ounce of speed power and body weight to be funneled into one perfect stab at the enemy's weak spot. Just like that, Jae-hyung has a flashback to the Titan ape fight in Sarah's mindscape, where he slammed his metal rod right into the beast. He hit it with such surgical precision that it started hacking up blood. It looks like a basic move, but it's not something you can just pull off. You need legit experience, insane instincts, and raw talent, the kind of stuff even S-tier adventurers can't always manage. But our boy Yu, Jaryong absolutely no-diffed it. Meanwhile, Sarah's brain is working figuring that claw. Raptors almost always roll in packs of 5 or more. That's when Jaryong pipes up saying she's not the only one who's taken a beating because of that royal jelly, which means there are probably way more gnarly monsters just chilling around these ruins. With the high chance of bumping into something cracked, Jaryong decides they should take a quick breather before walking into the lion's den. Sarah's on board with that, but she immediately brings up the question she never got to finish from before. She asks him again if he ever had a personal trainer as a kid. Without even looking at her, he just says he watched someone train for a really long time. That answer hits her different, because she thought she was some master detective about to uncover a massive secret. But it turns out he just copied a few moves. She blurts out that she really doesn't like him leaving Jaryong completely lost, having no clue where that sudden burst of attitude came from. Just then, Sarah yeets something golden at him, and he catches it on pure reflex. It's a C-type stamina ampoule, which normally goes for about 1,000,000 won. She just tells him to drink it, since he's obviously running on fumes. Jaryong can't help but tease her, saying, "A gift like that definitely," says a thing or two about whether she actually likes him. She seems like a total tsundere, hiding her real feelings behind salty words, but instead of drinking it, he just slides it into his pocket, which leaves her totally shook. What's even crazier is he's planning on selling it later, like it's the most normal thing in the world. She completely goes off on him, asking if he has any idea how much that thing costs. That's when he breaks it down, saying, "On the black market it's an easy 1,000,000 won." Sarah just can't get a read on how this dude's brain works. Jaryong tells her they should get a move on, since she already downed hers, so there's no point in wasting time. From his perspective, this spoiled rich kid is just acting all kinds of weird on their trip to the Eugene Mall. Jaryong decides they need to switch up the game plan to play it safe. He makes it clear their objective is super simple. Grab what they came for and bounce without starting any beef or ending up as Monster Chow. He's dead serious about them following his rules. He needs Sarah to move when he says move, and to keep her cool no matter what kind of freaks are waiting inside. Even though he knows Sarah's had some kind of high-class training, he points out that his own strength is all about actual survival skills. That's why he needs her to just trust his lead. Meanwhile, Sarah can't shake this weird, spooky feeling. Just 6 months ago, she was a complete nobody at school, and now she's on her first ever dungeon run with someone watching her back. As they finally set foot in the Eugene Mall, their eyes lock onto something that makes their brains nearly short-circuit. When Sarah asks what the hell they're looking at, even Jaryong has to admit he has absolutely no idea. It's a goddamn massacre with monster parts splattered all over the mall floor, like it was an absolute slaughterhouse. Inside the tomb-like silence of the Eugene Mall, it's suddenly clear that humans are way tougher than anyone gives them credit for. They're the kind of species that with enough grit can stare down pretty much anything the world throws at them. Still, the absolute carnage inside is starting to mess with both Jaryong and Sairam's heads. And the sheer size of the monster corpse sprawled across the floor has Sairam standing there, her jaw basically on the ground. This is a disaster nobody could have seen coming, and it's completely thrown their original plan out the window. Now anything could happen. Jaryong is pretty sure these monsters aren't even from this area. And they're the type that could give even pro-adventurers a hard time. Sairam is low-key freaking out. She's wondering what kind of fresh nightmare could be lurking deeper inside to have caused all this chaos. Suddenly, Jaryong snaps at her to keep it together, because whatever's in here is seriously bad news. He figures she must have sensed something was off from the start, but the real shock is just how much of a train wreck it turned out to be. Then just like that, she catches a flicker of movement, and Jaryong's guard shoots up instantly. Out of the shadows, a slasher lip, a 5-star ranked monster, erupts onto the scene like a jump scare. Being the smooth operator he is, Jaryong swings his metal staff to take it down, but the disgusting creature leaps into the air. It wraps its freakishly long tongue around his weapon, and in one slick move, the slasher lip yoinks the staff right out of his hands and goes in for the slam. But Jaryong is already midair, aiming a rock-solid kick right at the monster's face, while Sairam hangs back. She's waiting for his signal. After he kicks the trash monster, Sairam admits to Jaryong that the thing is terrifying, especially with how hard it is to kill. That's when Jaryong spills the tea, explaining he kept it alive on purpose. It was all part of the plan. He says that if some unlucky soul wanders in here, this thing acts as a living tripwire. Turns out the slasher lip's whole gimmick is screaming. It alerts all its buddies if it's about to get clapped. Still in shock, Sairam demands to know who it could be screaming for. Then out of nowhere, a guy appears and casually claims, "It's probably reacting to me." He says the whole cleanup job wore him out, so this whole bloody mess was his doing. Sairam is floored to see another adventurer, but something about this guy immediately puts Jaryong on high alert. The new guy, on the other hand, thinks it's weird seeing two kids acting like they're in a smuggling deal in a place like this. Then his eyes lock onto the symbol on Sairam's shirt, and he jumps down without a moment's hesitation. He asks if they're students from Warrior High School. When they say yes, the dude mutters that it's a real shame. He says they're about to die in this dump. For Sairam, things just went from 0 to 100 real quick. Jaryong immediately tells her, this guy isn't a regular adventurer. He's a straight-up villain. He warns her not to waste her breath, chatting with someone who clearly showed up to kill them and steal the royal jelly. Jaryong makes it crystal clear. This guy has nothing to do with his client and then demands to know what gives him the right to mess with other people's stuff. The villain just shrugs it off, saying consequences only matter if you actually get caught. Besides, his luck has been on a hot streak ever since he heard about his buddy's little smuggling gig for a high-value item. Apparently, this psycho originally planned to ambush his own partner, but totally failed to finish the job. All he knew was that the guy escaped, but in a stroke of bad luck for his old partner, he ended up right here. Since his comrade chose this exact location as one of the smuggling spots, that's when it all clicks for Jaryong. The reason he lost contact wasn't because of the Sky Wasp's poison, but because of this twisted bastard. Even without a single punch thrown, Jaryong can feel it in his gut. This guy is a whole different breed of dangerous, promising to end them right here and now. But he swears he'll make it quick, which somehow makes it even creepier. There's no denying it, this dude is on another level entirely. He's nothing like Pilgu. Jaryong tells Sairam to find the coins and get out safely while he buys her some time. He also reassures her that there's no more danger lurking around since this lunatic has already wiped out pretty much everything in the area. As the psycho gets inches from Jaryong, our boy coldly says her being here won't change a thing as their weapons clash. He then yells at her to get moving, because she needs to stay alive for him to get his payment. As Sairam books it, the madman says, that was a dumb move, claiming that sticking together would have given them a better chance. But Jaryong calls total bull on that and powers up ready to go head-to-head with this villain. After reading his opponent's sword patterns, Jaryong smoothly leaps into the air and smashes his foot right into the guy's face. The villain never even saw it coming. The bastard is completely stunned, totally caught off guard, that this kid tricked him into using his special gear. He genuinely wasn't ready for this kid to be packing some serious firepower, putting him leagues above the average pro. That surprise snaps him into focus. He's gotta get serious now, especially if he wants to take down the girl from Warrior High School. He makes it crystal clear to Jae-hyung that this fight won't take long right before he morphs into something absolutely terrifying. This dude is Yang Do-jeon, a gold-class adventurer. Back at the hideout, the water's finally boiled, and the broker is just casually slurping on some cup noodles. He tells Baldy to take a seat because Pilgu isn't waking up anytime soon. Baldy is absolutely fuming. He's going off about how this gorilla-sized dude couldn't even pull his own weight after all the cash he invested in him. He is so done with this bum who talked a big game bragging about being a former adventurer and had the audacity to strut around like he owned the place. The broker just tells him to chill out, explaining that Pilgu lost because he was supposed to lose. Even though he's kinda useless, Jae-won chimes in, pointing out that everyone forgets adventurers aren't actually trained for PvP. To be fair, Pilgu's entire skill set was probably just hunting monsters and exploring dungeons, not throwing down in a one-on-one. Besides, the guy he fought was a total stranger, so losing to some random smuggler isn't that big of a deal. Baldy fires back that adventurers totally fight each other. The broker confirms it, explaining that the higher up the ladder they climb, the more valuable the hunting grounds become. That means the odds of a brawl breaking out skyrocket. Even partners who've had each other's backs for ages can get hit by a wave of greed and end up literally stabbing each other in the back. Baldy can't believe they'd actually murder each other, but the broker tells him it's the stone-cold truth. Inside a dungeon, there are 0 rules. Anything goes. The broker also lets slip that they can just blame it on a monster. No one's gonna ask for an alibi. That's why the higher an adventurer's rank, the more they gotta train for these kinds of throwdowns. Pilgu's class just wasn't high enough to handle this guy, which is why it ended so badly for him. Jumping a teammate might sound super dramatic, but seeing how easily that gorilla got taken down just proves it was a minor scuffle outside a dungeon. That kind of fight doesn't involve rocking full gear like armor or weapons made for killing monsters. Sure, it's not always a game changer, but if Pilgu had been fully geared up, he at least could have put up a real fight. When they ask him, Jae-won explains that for an adventurer, their equipment makes up about half of their total combat strength. Meanwhile, back at Eugene Mall, Jae-hyung is sweating buckets because Do-jeon didn't even flinch at his attack. His kick landed square on, and it's seriously freaking him out. Not only that, but Do-jeon's blade has some next-level defense, while the psycho just tells Jae-hyung to keep his eyes on the prize. In a blur, he rushes forward trying to slice Jae-hyung's head clean off, but the metal rod parries the high-tier blade just in the nick of time. Then with a brutal kick to the gut, he sends Jae-hyung flying backwards. As our boy scrambles to get back on his feet, Do-jeon is on him in an instant, taunting him to start fighting for real. That's when Jae-hyung has a sudden realization. This isn't gonna work. Do-jeon is rocking a shade jacket, which is an A+ rank piece of armor that drains the user's blood to jack up their physical stats and create a crazy strong defense against impacts. This madman Do-jeon has a straight-up berserker fighting style. And while Jae-hyung thinks he might spot a few openings, he knows that if he messes up a single counter, it's game over for him. As they stare each other down, Do-jeon pulls a slick move, catching Jae-hyung completely off guard, and lands a solid punch right to his stomach. Even so, the psycho gives him some props for lasting this long. Jae-hyung just shrugs it off, takes off the jacket he was starting to like, and casually asks, if today is some kind of special event or something. Bro, that line hits Do-jeon harder than any physical attack could have, especially since he had pegged Jae-hyung as just some run-of-the-mill tough guy. Jae-hyung admits that Do-jeon's psycho vibe was scary at first, but now that he's seen what this dude is really made of against a high schooler with zero gear, it's low-key a major letdown. He even calls him out, saying someone of his level shouldn't need a bunch of fancy equipment just to handle a teenager. Now, that was a sick burn. Jae-hyung also reminds him that Do-jeon is the one who's desperate to take him down and get to his sister. But that's just not happening on his watch. The longer he can stall, the more agitated Yang Do-jeon gets. And Jae-hyung knows exactly how to use that mounting pressure to his own advantage. As their insane battle rages on, Jae-hyung starts to understand the second technique just by watching his opponent's moves. He realizes his own power isn't enough to pull it off, but if he can turn his enemy's force against them, he could unleash a devastating blow. It's something he could never do alone. We're talking about a super risky move, one he hasn't even come close to mastering yet. It's a technique called swell. After using it, Jae-hyung coughs up a mouthful of blood. He never dreamed he'd have to use it in a real fight. And he definitely didn't expect a pro adventurer to be the kind of meathead who just blindly charges in over and over again. Like a total psycho, his next hit is so powerful, it shatters Do-gyun's mask and sends him flying into a wall. Jae-hyung calls it, telling him it's game over, but Do-gyun is just built different. The freak is already getting back up, and he's swearing he'll kill Jae-hyung no matter what it takes. Meanwhile, up on the 5th floor of the department store, Sarah's breathing is getting ragged. She grinds to a halt when her eyes land on the prize. It's the exact thing she's been desperately searching for. She slaps her hand on it, letting the scanner do its thing and confirm who she is. With the item secured, she thinks all that's left is to head back, but that's when something totally unexpected happens, and she's caught completely flat-footed. Jae-hyung's voice echoes in her head, telling her to stop standing around like a dummy and just run for it. He had told her she had to survive if she ever wanted to pay him back in full. It takes her a moment for the reality to sink in. Running away isn't going to fix anything. She clutches the coin in her hand, her mind racing. She starts thinking about Do-gyun, realizing Jae-hyung would never have started a fight he wasn't sure he could walk away from. Flashing back to the old days, a younger Do-gyun was in his element, bullying some poor kid who was begging him to stop. The kid was sobbing, promising he'd never mess up again, but even back then, Do-gyun was a straight-up prodigy. Everything was a cakewalk for him. He had the skills, all the adults hyped him up, and he could dominate any kid his age. But there was just one thing he couldn't have. And not getting that one thing was driving him insane. It was his rejection letter from the prestigious Warrior High. He knew that place was all about nepotism and cash, and his raw talent meant nothing. He had no shot at getting in because they valued deep pockets way more than actual skill. But things were different at Gangneung High's opening ceremony. That school was a pure meritocracy, all about raw power and ability. And there was zero chance Do-gyun was going to be second best in a place like this. As expected, he absolutely aced the entrance exam. He was on a completely different plane of existence from the sea of average Joes who couldn't even touch his level. That's how he became known as a genius. He was part of an elite minority, and everyone knew he was a cut above the rest. He had no issue being lumped in with the others, the so-called future rankers, because even in that elite group, he was the one who truly shined. At graduation, the principal approached Do-gyun. He congratulated him on being valedictorian, saying he was certain Do-gyun would become an incredible adventurer, wishing him luck and warning him not to get arrogant, and to always keep improving. Do-gyun just smiled and shook his hand, playing the part of a respectful student. But on the inside, he was thinking this guy was just some washed-up has-been a failure who quit the game early and now teaches kids because he can't do anything else. Dog Yoon vowed he'd show this old fossil what real success looked like, reaching heights the man couldn't even fathom. And now fast forward to the present, and that same normie is a full-grown adventurer. He's shaking like a leaf in front of some massive grotesque monster totally frozen with fear and completely outmatched. That's when Dog Yoon strolls in and handles the beast like it's just another Tuesday. The other adventurer is trembling, a cold dread washing over him. He's in total disbelief that Dog Yoon just soloed a creature that had wiped out his entire team. Dog Yoon, acting bored, just says he got an alert about a dangerous monster, but honestly, it was a total pushover. He shoots the man that same look of utter contempt he's always had for everyone else, as if time hadn't changed a thing. That day, he finally got it. His old principal's speech wasn't just empty words when he said he'd be a great adventurer. It wasn't praise, it was just a way to comfort a kid with potential. It hits him hard that he was never the chosen one. He was just a little better than the rest, someone for regular people to look up to, and that was it. Back in the present, Dog Yoon finally spills the tea to Jaryong, revealing the secret behind his jacket. It's made from a living vampire. Apparently, this vampire willingly let the blood from its heart get pumped directly into Dog Yoon's system. The price for this power-up, he claims, is Jaryong's life. But Jaryong ain't buying a word of it. He calls bull, saying the whole setup sounds way too sketchy to be real. In response, Dog Yoon's psycho mode goes into overdrive and he blitzes towards him. As his aura turns darker and more sinister, Jaryong immediately clocks the insane burst of speed. They collide in a vicious exchange that leaves our boy bloody and gasping for air. Dog Yoon is surprised Jaryong actually managed to block his attack. He gives him some props for his quick reflexes and natural talent, which makes him wonder why a guy with his skills is working as a smuggler. Low-key, it's weird getting a compliment from this arrogant prick, but Jaryong just brushes it off. He says he doesn't owe him any life story, all while staying completely on guard. Model. Out of nowhere, Doggin thanks him for some reason, but then he just erupts into this wicked laugh, straight up mocking Jaryong. He's hyped about getting the chance to absolutely crush someone with actual talent, and in a heartbeat, Jaryong launches himself back into the scene. Jaryong's totally aware that this fight is chipping away at his health points, but even though his HP bar is still looking pretty solid, his body feels perfectly fine and isn't slowing down one bit. Meanwhile, that psycho Dogan is practically begging to see more of Jaryong's insane moves, but our MC couldn't care less about what this lunatic wants. He's pretty damn sure Dogan can't maintain this powered-up form forever, and that's the glimmer of hope he's clinging to. It's just a waiting game until this freak burns himself out, so Jaryong starts brainstorming a new strategy. If he can trick Dogun into using even more of his blood power, there's a solid chance the guy will just overload and crash. He thinks the needle technique is the perfect bait, but Dogan's acting like he's already read his mind. The psycho flashes a wicked grin, boasting that Jaryong is a step too slow. Then completely out of nowhere, a flaming arrow zips through the air and smacks Dogan right in the face. The explosion totally catches Jaryong by surprise, and he's shocked to see Saram, the rich girl, stepping onto the battlefield, even after he specifically told her to bounce. Jaryong can't help but crack a smile, while Dogan looks absolutely pissed. That little surprise attack from Saram just adds more fuel to the fire burning inside Jaryong's gut. It motivates him to go all out and keep fighting. Once the smoke clears, Jaryong finally takes down the A-ranked adventurer, who was nothing but trash talk and a massive ego. A battered and bloody Dogan is now laid out flat on his back. Saram glances over and asks if the big-shot adventurer is actually dead. Jaryong reassures her that a guy like him isn't going to go down that easily, so she needs to relax. He also tells her that Dogan won't be coming after her for payback anytime soon, not when it could completely nuke his career. With that, Jaryong grabs his staff and casually brings up the fact that he just saved her life, meaning she owes him big. Saram just raises an eyebrow and is like, "Does that mean my bill is doubled now? Once for the Titan ape, and a second time because I decided to follow you into this disaster." Jaryong just smirks and says he'll be a good guy and call it even since she did come all this way, even though he told her not to. Saram claps back that a simple thank you from him wouldn't hurt either. After their little back and forth, the two of them finally track down the royal jelly. It's giving off a super sweet aroma, and as they follow the scent deeper, they wander into a golden-colored mist. There, they discover a man lying on the ground, fatally wounded, guarding the item even in his last moments. Jaryong feels a pang of guilt for not getting there sooner, while Saram is just completely floored by the sight. Seeing her reaction, Jaryong cracks a joke, saying it's her own fault for tailing him, just to see something special. He then shifts his focus back to the prize he came for, the second he cracks open the box. Both Jaryong and Saram are absolutely speechless. The looks on their faces say everything. They've never seen anything this wild before. The scene unfolding before them is on a whole other level. After scooping up the lantern of royal jelly, he gets a whiff of its scent, which is so intoxicatingly sweet. It could probably make you forget your own name. No wonder all the monsters in the area were going absolutely feral over this thing. He also can't help but wonder if the sack inside the lantern is also packed with royal jelly. After securing the box, our chill smuggler decides it's time to dip out of there ASAP before more trouble finds them. My dude's got a bad feeling that something nasty is gonna pop up if they hang around this palace any longer. Because of that, Saram just trusts his gut and follows him down to the first floor of the department store. But right as they get there, Saram is stunned to see that Dogen's body is just gone. That's when they hear the madman's voice echo, promising to get his revenge because he's burned their stupid faces into his memory. He vows to use every trick in the book to hunt them down and make them regret this day. And just like that, a gleeful Dogon hops right out of the Eugene Mall, only to find the Titan ape waiting for him. The beast lunges ready to swallow the jerk whole. The sight left Jaryong and Saram completely shook with their jaws on the floor. Our smooth operator Jaryong figures it's probably a good idea to use the back exit. After they get out of there, Jaryong watches the sunset and decides this spot is probably the safest place to be. When he asks Saram, she says she still has plenty of time to pass her test. Hearing that, he shakes her hand and says it was nice working with her since they both got what they came for. Saram agrees, and they shake on it. He also reminds the girl to keep this whole thing on the down low and, more importantly, to send him his payment. He also gives her a heads up to be careful if she doesn't want to run into him again, but Saram can't help but wonder if seeing him again would be so bad. Later on, the broker sees Jaryong return and asks if he had a nice little vacation, but Jaryong is so not in the mood to chat about it. He then hands over the goods to the broker, who can't believe the sheer amount of chaos this thing would have caused if it ever got out to the public. Holding the lantern of royal jelly, he remarks that this treasure is easily worth enough to buy a couple of skyscrapers. The broker praises Jaryong's work and promises to send the money by tomorrow, but then he gets a weird vibe that something's off. He asks if Jaryong is feeling guilty about the adventurer who died protecting the item, but Jaryong clarifies the guy didn't die during their fight. So, in his mind, there's absolutely no reason to feel bad about it. Jaewon, however, keeps pushing, asking if something unusual went down. He wants to know if there's more to the story, but Jaryong just tells him to drop the subject and forget about it. He then asks if he can claim the rest of the loot, since none of it looks like the royal jelly they agreed on. Per their deal, everything besides the client's specific item was fair game for the smugglers. The broker can't help but wonder what kind of kid is going to end up consuming that item. Jaewon explains that the Lantern of Gold has the power to literally bring someone back from the dead. But wait, there's more. If eaten, it can actually shatter a person's talent ceiling, but there's a major catch. It only works on people who aren't adults yet. It's useless for those whose potential has already maxed out. Jaryong puts two and two together, figuring it must be for some prodigy from Warrior High School. He gets ready to dip, but the broker asks him to say hi to his dad. Jaryong reveals his old man isn't doing so great, but he promises to pass along the message if he sees him. This reminds him of when he asked Saram if she had a crush on him or something. That was after she mentioned wanting to meet again. She then pivoted, telling him about the winter entrance exam and saying he had a really good shot. Even though they only accept a small number of students, Saram really wants this dude to join Warrior High, and now the idea is living rent-free in his head. As a rule, no adventurer is ever allowed to run a dungeon solo, no matter how cracked they think they are. Dungeons are just filled with way too many unpredictable variables for one person to handle. Taking on the unknown by yourself is a certified death wish. That's precisely why parties are essential. A party is basically a squad of adventurers with different skills. They work as a unit to handle whatever challenges arise, covering for each other's weaknesses and watching each other's backs. That's how dungeons are conquered, and monsters are defeated. On top of that, Saram mentions another thing. It turns out Warrior High is full of political factions in every single grade. Jaryong doesn't really get the point of it all. He just assumes it's for picking fights, but Saram calls that a childish take and explains that in their year, there are two main factions calling the shots. Each one is led by one of the top 3 students. Jaryong, ever the smooth operator, then asks if people only form parties within their own faction. He also correctly guesses that Saram isn't in any faction, and she confirms it, adding that the teachers don't get involved. It's entirely on the students to get recruited into one. Judging by the look on Jaryong's face, Saram can tell he's already figured out that her lack of skill is the main reason no faction has bothered to pick her up. This girl knows she has pretty much zero chance of ever becoming a top-tier student. But that doesn't discourage her from trying to join a party, since other kids without factions have started making their own crews. To make matters even worse, one of the faction leaders completely despises Saram. This leader has been pulling strings behind the scenes to ice her out and leave her socially isolated. Jaryong jokes, asking if Saram stole her boyfriend or something. He's wondering what could possibly cause that level of teen drama. Right now she's flying solo, but she knows that won't be enough in the coming years. That strategy just won't cut it later on, which is the real reason she wants to team up with Jaryong. With his insane skills, she figures she might actually have a chance of survival. All these thoughts are just swirling around in his head as he lies on his bed wrapping his injuries in bandages. He can't help but think that Saram is a pretty interesting girl. Meanwhile, Saram is off wandering on her own. She finally arrives at the 12th dungeon barrier in Gangnam, but even now she can't shake the feeling of shock from running into Jaryong the smuggler. She's starting to have some serious second thoughts. She's worried that a big shot like him will never contact her again. Just then Kang Young-guk shows up. He's a class teacher and the melee combat instructor at Warrior High, just waiting for her in the shade of a tree. Saram knows the test is still underway, so she's a bit confused. Young-guk explains what's going on. Apparently there was a huge system error, and a ton of monsters spawned in places they had no business being. Luckily, there have been no reported casualties so far. He also adds that some students had to abandon their tests and call for rescue. That's how dicey the situation became. On top of that, Young-guk found out that all those monsters appeared in the exact same area. He lands right where Saram had snatched the coin. When he asks her about it, she just plays it cool, saying she didn't see anything weird. Young-guk seems to fall for it, but Saram's body suddenly tenses up when she feels something seriously eerie creeping up behind her. She's completely floored to see another Titan ape. And bruh, this one is way bigger than the last one, lurking deep inside the dungeon. Jungkook thinks it's super weird that a monster like this is posted up here, since this isn't even its normal turf. Saram wonders if that sweet scent from before is what lured it in, but Jungkook just repeats his orders for her to stay back and be his support. As the Titan ape stomps forward, it's pretty obvious this creature has zero chill. Young-guk's demeanor flips to dead serious. After all, the instructors in the dungeon fields are all former adventurers. A ton of them even graduated from Warrior High. Outsiders usually just figure they're has-beens who had to quit because of injuries. But Young-guk is built different. He throws a punch so unbelievably fierce it's like watching a god of destruction at work. With one single blow, he completely vaporizes the Titan ape's head. Back when they were in their early 20s, dudes like him were already rocking the title of ranker. As his arm casually regenerates, Young-guk tells Saram she got seriously lucky. She's fortunate she didn't run into that thing by herself. Still, this hardened warrior is just glad Saram made it back safe. Now it's time to bounce. Saram realizes that people really tend to sleep on the fact that Young-guk is a warrior first and foremost, and he's the one training her. Turns out young warriors have the option to become instructors over at Warrior High's practical base camp. One of the staff members knows that anyone who requested a rescue will get a retest, though they're lucky to even get a second shot. He also mentions that one of those students is rolling in right now, just as Young-guk is leading Saram back to base. Jungkook's plan is to do a head count and confirm everyone's present before he lets Saram go and get changed. Just as she's finally starting to relax, a voice calls out saying her timing is on point and that they knew she'd be just fine. It's Anisha the blonde who claims she was actually super worried about Saram. Saram finds it kind of funny. The leader of this whole faction also happens to be her older sister. She seems genuinely hurt by the thought that Saram sees her as some cold-hearted person for not showing any concern 6 years ago. ZKSK Saram, who's actually Saram's uncle, was personally tutoring her back then, telling her she needed to focus on cranking up her power output. He no-cap believed this girl could shatter her limits as she struggled to gather magic in her palm. He was drilling into her to sharpen her focus. At just 11 years old, Saram was sweating buckets, fighting like hell just to concentrate. Right? Then Zeke paused her training, pointing out that she had gotten better. Only a little bit better since last time. Meanwhile, Saram was completely gassed just from making a tiny ball of magic in her hand. On the flip side, things couldn't have been more different. Anisha's magic at the same age was just on another level, absolutely mind-blowing. And her tutor was totally blown away by her god-tier talent. Anisha Eska Saram, also 11, was putting on an incredible performance. Zeke watched her thinking that it wasn't just her looks. That didn't seem like a mixed bloods. Her control over magic was almost perfect, even cleaner than most purebloods. Even so, Zeke offered Saram a word of caution. If she kept going down this path, she would always be compared to Anisha over and over. But then something just clicked, and Zeke realizes that instead of stressing about the comparisons, Saram should actually be a lot more careful. That's when Anisha's demonic eyes lock onto her. And in that moment, Zeke is dead certain that one wrong move from Saram could send everything crashing down. Back in the present, Anisha is laying the fake concern on thick acting, like it's such a tragedy that no one picked Saram for their party. But before Anisha can spew any more of her nonsense, Saram cuts her off, saying if she's so concerned, then she should just make a party with her. That clapback hits different, and Anisha politely refuses even though they're both range damage dealers. She says there's no point having two people with the same role, especially when Saram isn't even in the same league as her. Then she just laughs, admitting it's already a huge pain for others to handle her as it is. Still, she tells Saram there will definitely be a retest, and she can try again. Saram gets right up in her personal space and tells this Miss Blondie that she doesn't give a crap about the retest, because she already passed. That statement completely blindsides Anisha, who finally gets that Saram must have pushed herself to the absolute limit. The blonde chimes in saying there's no reason for Sarah to get so worked up since she's going to inherit the company anyway. That one hits a little too close to home, while Anisha, who's a total snake, clearly just wants Sarah to roll over and give up already. A moment later, Jaryong busts the door open completely out of breath and in shock when he spots the doctor. Seeing the doctor next to his dad's bedside, he immediately panics, asking if something went wrong, especially since his father is hooked up to a ventilator. Jaryong is terrified it might be a relapse, and you can see the two medical pros give each other a worried look before one of them finally speaks up. They explain that his dad is suffering from an insanely rare condition, and he might just be the only person on Earth who has it. There are literally 0 documented cases of anyone being infected by dragon's blood and actually managing to survive this long. They're straight up with Jaryong admitting that with today's medical tech, they're completely stumped. Jaryong isn't stupid. He already knows a full recovery is just a pipe dream. At this point, he figures the best they can do is try to manage his dad's pain. And that's going to require some seriously heavy-duty. But then the doctor drops another bombshell explaining that the real problem now is getting the ingredients for the painkiller itself. He finally comes clean and tells him the only thing that could work as an antidote is the milk from a ridiculously dangerous monster. We're talking about the Sky Tiger, a 5-star ranked beast. Jaryong immediately makes it clear that money is no object. He's got more than enough to cover it even for a super rare ingredient. The conversation then takes a turn focusing on a new rumor spreading like wildfire among adventurers about a special potion that can boost your strength and resistance. Apparently, even a tiny drop gives you a massive buff that lasts for a super long time. And what's the main ingredient? You guessed it, the milk of the Sky Tiger, which if you've got the cash, you can totally buy. It used to be seen as a useless but rare item, but now the game has completely changed. The doctor says that corporations and adventurers have been buying up the entire supply. Jaryong absolutely loses it, screaming at these clowns. He can't believe they think he's some selfish prick who only wants to save his dying father for his own gain. The doctors try to calm him down, telling him that's not the real issue. The problem is the insane amount needed just to keep his father's symptoms in check. It turns out the dose his dad needs is pretty much the same amount required to mass-produce a boatload of those stat-boosting potions. If there were other patients with the same condition, the government would but since his dad is the only known case in the entire world, there's 0 chance of that happening. Still, the doctors promise they'll do everything in their power for his father. But without the key ingredient, their hands are tied no matter how much money he throws at the problem. After that heavy conversation, Jaryong heads outside for some fresh air, letting out a long, defeated sigh. He's sitting on a park bench feeling completely crushed, and on a whim he decides to call that spoiled rich girl, Sarah. She's in the middle of a hardcore workout at the gym, but the second her phone rings, she practically stops breathing. She picks up and hears Jaeyoung's voice asking if it's a bad time. This gym rat couldn't care less, and Jaryong finally admits that he's got no other option but to take her up on her offer. He immediately states his terms, and Sarah seems to think it's no big deal. She just casually says she'll check on it, leaving Jaryong totally speechless that this girl actually has the connections to pull it off. As it turns out, her company's development team is the one in charge of making that exact potion he needs. And the amount he's asking for, to them, it's practically nothing. Jaryong is just floored by how messed up the world is, but he reluctantly agrees to her deal. With that settled, Sarah asks if Jae-young is free on Sunday, so they can start prepping for the entrance exam. This girl has already switched gears, totally hyped, and ready to absolutely dominate on test day. She tells him it's always better to get a head start. And so, they meet at the Research Institute of Jinsong Group's Special Defense Industry. Jaryong gets there a little early, and then Sarah strolls in looking like a total baddie without a care in the world. She just casually asks him how he's holding up. When he asks what this place is, Sarah drops the bomb that this is the facility where they're producing his father's potion. After the world got flipped upside down, humanity unlocked the potential for limitless power. Before this whole adhesion phenomenon, regular humans were hard capped at rank D unless they used magic. And you had to be a legit genius to even dream of hitting rank C. Back in the day, reaching rank B or higher meant you were basically superhuman. Just to even get a license for a dungeon, you needed to have at least rank C across all 5 stats, not including magic. That was the absolute bare minimum to be considered for Warrior High. To be a top candidate, you needed at least a rank B in 3 out of the 5 main categories. And somewhere in that crazy power scale is Sarah, whose actual strength is still a total mystery. Jaryong casually asks her about it. So, this is what she meant by getting a physical done. Saram tells him that's the gist of it, but things get way more complicated after puberty hits, and then she starts getting him all geared up. And it suddenly clicks for him why Saram was all up in his business asking if he was feeling all right before they came in. The Gear Chrome Pro then gets right in Jaryong's face, signaling playtime is officially over. And yeah, part of that is because things are about to get real. But mostly the Pro is just genuinely curious to see what kind of talent he's dealing with, and Jaryong is absolutely ready to show him. He's determined to find out what his actual potential is, all while the Gear Chrome Pro is giving him a look that's kind of hard to read. Meanwhile, our favorite gym rat Saram is in the control room with the Observer who's supposed to be monitoring Jaryong's every move. Even the Observer admits the kid's got guts, pointing out that most people would be one step away from a panic attack and a fresh pair of pants before fighting a golem. All the while, this chick named Yeoman is just calmly sipping her tea completely. She's listening to Jaryong's steady voice over the comms and can hear the absolute conviction in his tone as he talks about prepping for his transfer to Warrior High. Yeoman, who's a golem expert and a former adventurer now working for the research unit, just gives a slight nod, looking pretty impressed. Saram can only agree with a nervous laugh, and right then, Yeoman decides it's time to kick things off and casually hits the start button, unleashing the golem in all its destructive. The talent test is a thing that usually goes down around 6th or 7th grade, where the kid being tested gets strapped into some special equipment. The goal is to get super detailed measurements by pushing their body way past its normal breaking point. But that makes it tough to get a clean read, and it gets even trickier when you're dealing with someone who's either insanely gifted or has been training for ages because they just don't hit their limits easily. Our boy Jaryong's physique is already on a professional level, and Yeoman knows that finding his edge is going to be a serious challenge. While Saram thinks he should be gassed out by now, Yeoman is sweating buckets, confirming that Jaryong came from a totally normal high school. He couldn't get into any of the elite adventurer academies, and after seeing him in action, this scientist is dying to know what kind of school was dumb enough to reject a monster like him. Apparently, this kid absolutely demolished the golem, and even though the difficulty was set to low, Yeoman just watched him trash the same golem model they used to train actual pros. On top of that, she saw how he analyzed the golem's attack patterns, dodged a few hits, and then found the perfect window to land a devastating counter. No cap, that's enough to prove this kid is on another level, way beyond your average pro. He's doing all this with just his raw senses, but the real issue is that the measurement is getting impossible. He hasn't even come close to his limit yet. Even if they crank up the difficulty, Yeoman knows that bumping it by 1 or 2 levels isn't going to make a dent, so now it's time to get a little reckless. She's seriously thinking about cranking the golem to 100% power output instead of leaving it in safe mode. She just hopes Saram gets that. It's a major crime to run a test like that on an unlicensed adventurer. Still, it's a massive headache, because she can't see any other way to find out what he's capable of. When Saram asks, Yeoman admits there's only one choice left. But just as she's about to break the rules, the lab doors slam open and the director marches in, scaring the daylights out of her. It's Zeke, the director of research, and he immediately calls her out, reminding her she doesn't get paid to run rogue experiments. He completely lays into her, asking if she's really ready to do hard time over this stunt. That's when Saram steps in to shield her friend. She walks right up to Zeke and tries to take all the blame, even calling him uncle, but he shuts that down immediately. He tells her it's not her place to take the fall, since that responsibility belongs to her father. Yeoman sees right then and there that every rumor about Zeke being ice cold to Saram since she was a kid is 100% true. Still, she knows adventurers use these facilities all the time on weekends, so technically, they aren't breaking any major rules. Zeke then turns his attention to Jaryong, who's all geared up. Yeoman jumps in to explain that he's Saram's buddy, the one who washed out of all the special school entrance exams, but is still dead set on becoming an adventurer. She adds that his measurement data got wiped, and Saram was just trying to help a friend out. But while the girls are talking, Zeke's eyes are glued to the pile of rubble that used to be a golem. Then out of the blue, he agrees to let the test continue, which sends a shockwave through the entire room. He says if safe mode isn't enough to push Jaryong, then he'll just have to step in and fight the kid himself. And with that, the entire lab descends into absolute chaos. Jaryong, meanwhile, has absolutely no clue what's happening. Turns out, in super rare situations, when a person's limits can't be measured through standard methods, they have to throw down with someone a few tiers above them. It's the only way to get an accurate read on their true potential. Without a single word of warning, Zeke drops into the testing area, saying there's no time for pleasantries. Jaryong is totally caught by surprise, but he still snaps into a fighting stance. He doesn't get the full picture of the mess he's in, but his combat instincts fire up faster than his brain can even process the situation. Zeke makes it clear there won't be any golems this time. Instead, they're going to have a proper fight, and with that, all safety protocols are off. He calls the kid out ready for a brawl. Zeke Esker Saram, the Institute's director, and Saram's uncle, isn't just some pencil pusher. He's Korea's 7th-ranked adventurer, a member of the God-tier white class. That fact alone turns this into a massive problem that Jaryong is about to face head-on. Among adventurers, the top 100 are known as rankers, and they're split into different color-coded tiers. Red is for ranks 76 to 100, blue is 51 to 75, and green covers ranks 31 to 50. Black is for ranks 11 to 30, and the top of the top, the white class, is for the strongest 10. Jaryong is all set to go against Zeke, and this is looking like a world of trouble. In a blur of motion, our limitless adventurer rockets through the air, like a bolt of lightning trying to land a clean hit. But luck isn't on his side today. He can't find a single weak spot in Zeke's defense. Looks like if he wants an opening, he's gonna have to make one himself. Jaryong's game plan is pretty straightforward. He's going all in with one massive strike, the second he dodges Zeke's initial counterattack. He figures if he can time the dodge just right, he'll create a window to slip past and deliver the final blow, but that kind of basic play doesn't work on someone built like Zeke. Using just a single hand, Zeke completely shuts down the attack and snatches Jaryong's staff like it's a piece of trash, then lets out a scoff. He calls Jaryong even more reckless than he imagined, and then with absolutely zero warning, he plants a devastating kick right into Jaryong's gut. The blow sends him flying like a ragdoll shot out of a cannon, leaving Jaryong completely dazed and wondering where it all went south. Zeke, meanwhile, is straight up mocking him, wondering how he ever thought such a textbook tactic would actually be effective. This kid is way out of his league, and to make it worse, Zeke calls him out for the amateur mistake of dropping his weapon while still conscious. Right on cue, Jaryong grabs his metal rod looking ready for another go, but Zeke's done playing games. He already let the kid get away with 2 screw-ups. Now he's taking the gloves off. This seasoned pro is dead serious, warning Jaryong that one more boneheaded move is all it'll take. And just like that, he can say goodbye to his dream of ever being an adventurer. Suddenly, Zeke's aura explodes, feeling thick and overwhelming. Jaryong gets back into his stance, and even though our boy can feel the seriously bad vibes rolling off Zeke, he doesn't let it mess with his head. He doesn't hesitate for a second, and blitzes forward, rushing towards Zeke's flank with incredible speed. For a moment, it looks like he's pulling the exact same stunt as before, but then Jaryong throws in a sudden sidestep that completely throws Zeke for a loop. It catches him totally off guard in a way he never saw coming. Then out of the blue, Jaryong unleashes 2 attacks at once. He's trying to get the jump on Zeke, and for a hot second it almost pays off. The golden-haired striker actually raises an eyebrow, noting the new ranged attack. He even admits it's a pretty solid surprise, calling it a fairly standard way for someone to try and switch up their fighting style. But at the end of the day, it's just not going to be enough. This platinum-haired knight barely even moves, having already read the entire attack pattern like a children's book. Jaryong knows this dude isn't impressed, and that the real fight is only just getting started, so he channels more power into his metal rod. He then unleashes an attack that actually makes Zeke pause for a split second to register it. For a moment, Zeke looks a little surprised, but he ends up blocking the entire combo with a flurry of clean punches. Johan is absolutely floored, watching what looks like a clash between 2 seasoned veterans. She still can't wrap her head around the fact that this guy got turned down by every single academy. Sarong can only manage a nervous laugh. To be honest, Johan can see Jaryong isn't perfect. She's already spotted a major glaring weakness in his style. She even points out that Sarang is miles better than him in that specific department. That little comment makes Sarang a bit worried. It hits her that Jaryong might be lacking something fundamental that she already has. Still, just watching them, she can't deny the facts. Jaryong is going toe-to-toe with her Uncle Zeke like he's a total pro. Her mind is racing, trying to pinpoint what's off about this seemingly flawless adventurer. Right as Jaryong sidesteps one of Zeke's punches and almost loses his footing, he suddenly pivots. He twists back around and lands a solid smack right on Zeke, who notes the kid's new move actually caught him by surprise. He's impressed that Jaryong is now able to maintain control over his weapon, but it's time to return the favor. Zeke unleashes a couple of punches that slam right into Jaryong's stomach and face, launching him into the air once again. Johan is watching every move and can see that even while holding back the chief, is flexing some seriously insane skills. This golden-haired beast then tells Jaryong not to take the L so hard, since it was obvious from the very beginning he had no chance. Still, the way Jaryong is just taking the beating is kinda sad to watch, no cap. That's when Zeke just flat out tells him that he's missing basic training. Johan chimes in explaining that his talent and fighting instincts are S tier. But his fundamentals are a complete mess. His stance, his grasp of offense and defense, it's all over the place. It looks like he's never had a single day of proper training in his life, which just makes her more frustrated to see such a rare gift go to waste. If he just had the basics down, he'd already be on a completely different level of strength before he turns to leave. Zeke admits he's seen tons of guys just like Jaryong. He might have the kind of raw talent that people would kill for, but none of that matters if he's not willing to actually put in the work to refine it. Zeke's ready to give him his score, but he straight up tells Jaryong to just quit saying a guy like him is guaranteed to get himself killed, especially if he keeps trying to coast on his natural-born talent alone. Just then, Jaryong struggles back to his feet, feeling like this blonde dude has been throwing some next-level disrespect his way. He looks Zeke in the eye and asks if he's got a problem with people who slack off. Zeke is genuinely shocked to see the kid get up again. He thought for sure that last hit was the finisher. Then our boy blurts out that he couldn't care less about winning or losing anymore. All he wants is a round 2, a chance to prove what his hard work is really capable of achieving. Over on the monitors, Johan has no clue what is even happening at this point. She radios in to Director Zeke telling him there's no reason to continue the fight. With all the data she needs, there's no reason to get hyped up now, so Saram tries calling out to Jaryong too. She tells him it's all good, and the test is over, saying he's done more than enough to get his results. But that doesn't stop Zeke from chiming in, saying none of this even matters, no matter what Jaryong is trying to prove. This pointy-eared dude lays it out plain and simple. Picking more fights won't change a single thing for him. He even taunts Jaryong, asking if this little brat is just desperate for his approval, or some kind of acknowledgement. Jaryong's had it with this guy's trash talk. He snaps back that he's officially pissed, and the only thing he wants from Zeke is the satisfaction of beating him to a pulp. The real reason Jaryong even showed up today was something completely different. See, little Jaryong never had a mentor or a teacher, so from day one, he had to figure everything out on his own. He literally started from scratch learning everything by himself, because being born a natural prodigy isn't something you see every day. But thanks to that raw talent, he did just fine training solo. The kid managed to master all the fundamentals all by himself, and on top of that, he had way more opportunities. He got tons of real-world combat experience since he was free to do whatever he wanted, from fighting monsters to straight-up wrecking them. Jaryong basically wrote his own playbook and followed it religiously, making gains that were nothing short of a miracle. He never thought he was special, but when he finally met so-called real adventurers, he was let down by the posers. Guys like Pilgu and that other psycho turned out to be way weaker than him. But while Zeke admits he misjudged him, Jaryong suddenly sees this knight in a whole new light, as Zeke's aura explodes like he just went Super Saiyan. The dude is absolutely furious now, ready to put Jaryong back in his place by hitting him so hard. He'll lose any will to fight back, or even feel an ounce of anger. With his pure talent, Jaryong can morph into a beast, way stronger than his current level, especially now that he's up against someone he actually sees as the real deal. His blood starts pumping, without him even noticing, and in that instant Jaryong becomes a spitting image of his old man. Meanwhile, Johan and Saram are totally freaking out, wondering how far these two are going to take this. They have no idea why the chief is acting this way. Johan's concern is just growing by the second, and at the same time, Saram spots something weird about Jaryong's fighting stance. It's completely different from before. His posture and balance have totally shifted, and he's not even holding his staff the same way. It's like he leveled up and changed classes right in the middle of the fight. After taking one deep breath, Jaryong launches himself forward, blitzing straight for Zeke. Johan is floored by how flawless his movement is. But Zeke's eagle eyes track every single move as he dodges. Compared to before, Saram thinks Jaryong's attacks look raw and unrefined. But the crazy part is, there isn't a single opening for Zeke to counterattack. Saram's jaw just about hits the floor as she wonders what kind of absolute monster taught this kid. Turns out little Jaryong used to secretly watch his father train when he was a kid. A total copycat, he'd practice the moves he saw every single day. Now in the heat of battle, Zeke can't find a single crack in his defense. Back then, when his dad caught him spying, he just smiled and ruffled his hair. Right now, Jaryong is unleashing everything he's got on Zeke, fighting like a cornered beast. He wants to show off every single thing he's learned. In the middle of the chaos, Zeke finally sees an opening and calls out that he's about to land a clean hit. At that same moment, Zeke is 100% sure there's no way Jaryong can dodge this next attack. But Jaryong doesn't even flinch. He stands his ground ready to take it head-on and show Zeke exactly what he's been waiting to see. As the fight hits its absolute climax, the girls can only watch with their mouths wide open. When the dust from the final impact settles, Zeke calmly notes that if Jaryong hadn't used that janky staff skill, he might have actually pulled off the win if he'd kept up the pressure. Then he asks if that was Jaryong's last-ditch effort to save face. Jaryong, panting on the ground, can't help but crack a smile. He admits he just plain ran out of moves he'd copied. He used everything he knew. He ended up getting his butt kicked even harder, but for some reason it doesn't feel all that bad. Deep down, he knows exactly who Zeke Escargot is. He's the sharp-tongued legend among the highest-ranking adventurers, the guy with absolutely zero chill. Sarum rushes in trying to stop her uncle, but Zeke just tells her to back off. No one has ever dared to talk back to this cocky jerk, because his insane skills have always been enough to back up his massive ego. With a single hand, Zeke heals Jaryong completely in a matter of seconds. He casually tells Saram the kid's gonna be just fine. Then he confirms Jaryong's name with her, looking genuinely surprised, because he never in a million years thought he had run into a certain someone's kid in a place like this. And it turns out, Zeke is one of the top 10 rankers in the entire country for the white class, and he's also known as Korea's greatest healer. As evening rolls in, Zeke Esker strolls up to the rendezvous point, looking like he doesn't have a single care in the world. But the moment he gets there, this other guy starts laying into him asking, "Bruh, ever heard of a text? A heads up would have been nice." He whines that he could have just grabbed some coffee and chilled if he knew Zeke was going to be late. But now, thanks to Mr. Tardy Pants himself, they're about to miss the briefing again. And this musclehead just knows everyone's going to blame him for it. Zeke, with absolutely zero chill, just shrugs and says something important came up that took longer than he thought. His buddy immediately calls him on it, figuring it had something to do with that little throwdown he had with some random kid. But just as he's about to dig for details, something else catches his eye. It's a sight that makes his jaw hit the floor, but it leaves Zeke completely baffled. He's pointing at a tiny scratch on Zeke's cheek, like it's a national emergency, clearly not believing what he's seeing. He's totally shocked that some 16-year-old kid trying to get into the academy actually managed to tag him. Zeke nonchalantly corrects him, clarifying the kid is actually 17 and is probably aiming for a spot at Warrior High this winter. His friend mentions he's heard about Warrior High's brutal entrance requirements, pointing out that not a single person has passed in the last 3 years. But even so, he has to admit if that kid was good enough to actually leave a mark on Zeke's face, especially without an official hunter identity, then maybe, just maybe, he actually stands a chance. He admits the new generation of hunters is built different, getting scarily powerful, and they need to stay on their toes. Zeke, who clearly can't stand being compared to elves, just cracks a joke, saying there isn't much of a skill gap between his friend and that rookie kid. Of course, his buddy is not having it, and refuses to be put in the same category. Turns out this guy is Ken Ganyanho, the 19th ranked hunter in South Korea, and a member of the elite black class. He also leads the country's #1 attack squad, NICS. One attack squad, NICS. Ganyanho boasts that he's miles ahead of some rookie in both age and raw talent, mentioning he's 21 years old. He graduated from Warrior High about a year and 7 months back, and oh yeah, he casually flexes that. He just got a new car. He says he ordered it a while ago and doesn't spend much money these days, but then drops that the car cost him a cool 3.5 billion won. Zeke is so over the flexing and shoves him, trying to get the conversation back to the kid. Meanwhile, back at the base, Jaryong's eyes flutter open and he realizes every single one of his injuries is completely gone. There's absolutely no pain. Right on cue, Sarang walks in with 2 drinks, looking super relieved to see him awake. She immediately starts teasing him, asking if he seriously thought he could win a fight against a monster like Zeke. Jae-young comes clean and admits Zeke just really got under his skin, claiming the older man started it all. This leaves Sarang totally confused. She fires back that there's no way her uncle would just pick a fight for no reason, and Jae-young is completely caught off guard. Did she just say Zeke is her uncle? After she hands him the drink, he points out that they seem to have a really good relationship, judging by the way Zeke was treating her. It was obvious he genuinely cared. Jae-young puts 2 and 2 together, guessing Zeke saw some sketchy-looking dude hanging around his niece and went into full-on protective uncle mode. And to be fair, the guy had every right to be a little suspicious. Sarang explains that her uncle just has a really stern personality. At that very moment, Yorin pops into the room to see if Jae-young is okay. With a big smile, she casually drops a bombshell. Their chief happens to be the best healer in all of Korea, so of course he took care of all of Jae-young's injuries. And that little piece of info hits Jae-young like a ton of bricks. He's absolutely floored. Zeke is a healer, but his combat power was completely off the charts. How can someone be that cracked when fighting isn't even their main class? After that shocker, Yorin says it's time to go over his evaluation results. According to the report, Yu Jae-young's stats are Strength B rank, Intelligence C, Stamina A rank, Magic a lowly D, but Agility is an A and Patience is a B. Sarang is totally hyped, seeing stats that are this incredible. Jae-young, however, doesn't seem to think it's anything special, which makes Yorin wonder if he even really wants to get into the academy. She explains that to become a first-class adventurer, you need at least a B rank across the board. A B rank means you're basically superhuman, but it's not just about hitting high numbers. Your stats need to be balanced too. It's all about making sure your body works at peak efficiency. I mean, what's the point of having insane agility if you don't have the stamina to back it up? And even with monstrous strength, you can't use your full potential if your agility is trash. She even points out that plenty of regular people can hit C rank or higher in their stats. But if your stats are all over the map, you're pretty much useless. The real game changer is when things start to get focused. When someone has solid scores in the big three strength, stamina, and agility, that's when it gets serious. Nailing all three of those at C rank already makes you a 1 in 10,000 kind of person, basically guaranteeing you'll be a solid fighter. But if you manage to hit B rank across the board, bruh, you're in the top 5,000 adventurer category, putting you among the elite of the elite. Now Sarah is low-key freaking out because this kid is rocking A ranks in those stats with his lowest being a B in strength. That means his raw potential is already off the charts, and on top of that, he's incredibly well-rounded. From what she knows about the incoming first years, in the dungeon raid department, Sarah's thinking Jae-young might just be on the same tier as that absolute monster from before. And yet this dude has the nerve to aim even higher. That's when Yeoman drops a spicy fun fact: Director Zeke doesn't have a single A rank in any of his stats. That little info bomb nearly sends Jae-young reeling. She goes on to say that stats only show your natural-born talent. They don't reflect your actual skills one bit. Even with God-tier stats, there's not much of a gap between an A ranker and a D ranker if they don't put in the hours to grind. Jae-young gets it. Some things can't be put on a stat sheet, like whether a skill truly clicks with you or your raw battle instincts, or even the kind of insane experiences you've survived. Then Yeoman, with a cheeky grin, mentions that tons of adventurers have managed to close that power gap using nothing but pure, unadulterated grit. She throws a playful wink at Sarah, who instantly turns red as a tomato. It's then that Jae-young thanks them for the insight. But he admits he doesn't really get what they're talking about yet. He opens up a little, saying there's someone he looks up to, a legend whose strength he dreams of matching one day. Compared to that guy, he knows he's still got a massive mountain to climb. Yeoman figures this idol must be some big shot if our boy is this fired up. Jae-young just says, "You could say that." With that, Sarah decides to wrap things up for the day. Out of nowhere, Yeoman asks if they're dipping already, suggesting they could swing by the production department. Sarah immediately shuts that down, reminding Yeoman she's got zero business being there and doesn't want to risk, making her uncle even more pissed off. The scientist just cackles and casually drops a bomb. The director already gave them the green light. Sarah is completely floored to hear that Zeke actually gave his blessing for Jae-young to tour the equipment production department as his personal guest. And get this, they're even planning to forge a custom weapon for him, completely free of charge. Gear like weapons and armor is basically every adventurer's holy grail, especially if it's high quality. No cap. Even if someone is built different, if their gear is trash tier, it's just going to break under the pressure of their own power. That's why having top-notch equipment is so critical. As an adventurer's skills level up, their gear needs to evolve right along with them. It's only when the quality of the gear matches the user's power level that they can truly pop off and unleash their full potential. Jae-young understands this much, so he's definitely grateful for the offer. As long as it doesn't cost him a single penny, of course. However, he asks if it's really that critical to get it right this second. Sarah gives him a sharp side eye, clearly not falling for his act, and insists that it's absolutely necessary. Our boy reminds this ditz that Warrior High is still a school, which means they'll provide usable equipment anyway. Yeoman and Sarah are left completely speechless, their jaws practically on the floor. Sarah, wiping sweat from her forehead, admits it's her fault for not explaining sooner. She then points out that this guy is seriously planning to enroll in Warrior High and adds that the standards he's thinking of are for regular adventurer guilds. To keep things from becoming a total circus, each academy plays by its own rulebook, especially when it comes to the kind of equipment that's allowed. This news hits Jaryong like a ton of bricks, and he asks if that's just a way for Warrior High to make more money. Yeoman sets him straight, explaining that the school is built on a different set of values. They're already loaded, so it's not about the cash. Yeoman, who happens to be a Warrior High graduate herself, explains that talent and ability are two totally different things. And securing powerful equipment, that's considered an ability in and of itself. That's precisely why students are expected to show up with their own gear. Jaryong's not buying all that ability talk. He cuts through the noise and points out that it sounds like the whole system is just rigged to favor the filthy rich, as if being born with a silver spoon is now part of your skill set. Yeoman agrees, but then she drops a truth bomb. It's not even that hard for students to get top-tier gear, even if they're broke. She breaks it down, explaining that simply getting into Warrior High is proof enough. It basically certifies you as a first-class adventurer, someone with the potential to be an absolute superstar. And when you're packing that kind of potential, there are always big-shot investors and companies ready to bet big on you. No cap, the second you get accepted to Warrior High, companies with deep pockets are practically lining up to sponsor you. And these companies are usually looking for more than just glory. They're after modeling gigs or a cut of an adventurer's future profits. After you graduate, you will be drowning in all sorts of offers and options in exchange for that sweet funding. As soon as you're in the school, the game changes. From there, Yeoman starts to gloat a little. She flexes about snagging a scholarship from the Jin Seong group, and even locking down a guaranteed researcher job for life. Jaeyoung gives the nerdo a slow clap. Sarang finds his reaction low-key weird, but Yeoman assures him he'll get plenty of chances to prove he's the real deal. He'll have to go up against his peers, but first he has to conquer the transfer exam, which is way tougher than the regular entrance test. To even stand a chance, he needs to get his new equipment and fast. That's exactly why Chief Zeke gave him early clearance, so he'd have enough time to get ready now that Yeoman has spilled all the tea. With a charming smile, she suggests the two of them head down to the underground refinery. She tells Jaeyoung she really hopes he makes it. After she's gone, Jaeyoung mutters that the whole plan was about to become a total train wreck. Sarang's confused expression confirms he's right. She clearly didn't expect her uncle to clutch up and help them out. He's starting to realize this transfer test is a huge deal, something that requires serious preparation. Sarang lets him know it is. That's why she was fully prepared to drop her own cash to help him succeed. Jaeyoung is completely stunned and amazed by her gesture. He's reacting like an anime girl who just got a love confession, and judging by his face, Sarang finds it super annoying. As they hop on the elevator, Sarang brings up the next critical point. The person who actually makes the equipment is a bigger deal than the money. And as luck would have it, the Jin Seong Group's production department just happens to be one of the best in the entire world. They finally arrive at the forge, which turns out to be the massive underground blacksmithing facility for the Jin Seong Group. This insane boiling hellscape used to be a real dungeon called the Boiling Abyss. While our guy is totally taken aback, Sarang adds that this isn't some retail shop where you can just place an order, pay up, and walk out with your gear. All of a sudden, a massive shadow looms over them, catching Jaeyoung completely off guard. A one-eyed giant appears, and he looks seriously pissed off that Zeke woke him up from a weekend nap. And to top it off, Zeke didn't even bother to show up himself. A monster rocking a lab coat is a weird enough sight, but Jaeyoung is already squared up and ready to throw down. Sarang sees the look in his eyes and quickly jumps in front to hold him back. She explains that he's the team leader of the production department, but the one-eyed monster just snaps back, calling her a Twinkie. He insists he's not just some leader. In the eyes of humans, he's a monster. This is Thunderhammer Argius, an elder titan who, believe it or not, is eligible for special citizenship in the Republic of Korea. He plops down in front of them and growls, asking which brat Zeke was talking about. When the monster looks confused, Sarang gets nervous and explains that all the details, including battle footage and data, were sent down from upstairs. Argius just dismisses it as human-made nonsense that he couldn't care less about. He grumbles that's a job for his lackeys, but they've all clocked out for the day. Still, since it's a special request from Zeke, he's willing to play along. The giant starts talking business, but his gaze suddenly locks onto Jaeyoung's weapon. He challenges Jaeyoung to try and hunt him. Sarang starts to panic, while Jaeyoung quietly sizes up the situation. The one-eyed being explains that his kind needs to test if someone is truly worthy of their blood, sweat, and tears before they'll forge a weapon. But Argius had also noticed Jaeyoung's lightning-fast dodge when he first sensed his presence. It makes him think this kid is built different from the others. He also notes that the brat has the sharp eyes of a hunter. He can see a repressed but highly refined warrior's hostility just waiting to be unleashed. So, the monster basically tells Jaeyoung to come at him. Jaeyoung immediately agrees, saying he never backs down from an offer like this. Without wasting a second, Jaeyoung charges at Argius at full speed, which totally throws the monster off guard. In a split second, Jaeyong has his metal rod pressed right against the tip of the giant's chin. The monster is shocked to his very core and demands to know where he got that weapon, pressing the tip of his metal staff right under the one-eyed monster's chin. Jaeyong is just standing there totally confused. He knew for a fact his sharpest needle had landed a clean hit on the Titan, and look, he gets that some monsters are just built different. He wasn't expecting a one-hit KO for sure, but this felt like trying to punch a mountain. It was like attacking something that wasn't even alive. Staring down this absolute unit from some hellish abyss, our boy can't help but wonder what in the world this creature even is. Meanwhile, Saram is internally screaming, absolutely terrified that Jaeyong is about to piss off this giant. And she's got a damn good reason to be worried. See, it turns out all monsters get a danger ranking. It's a star system. A mantis fly is a 1-star threat, meaning it can kill a person, but could be taken down by a regular guy with a weapon. No big deal. Next, you've got the 2-star cluster raptor, which trained military personnel with guns can handle. Then comes the 3-star juvenile titan ape. Armored troops can take that down pretty easily. But a 4-star Democulus, that's when you start seeing a high rate of human casualties. If one of those appears, ground troops have to immediately start evacuating civilians just to prevent total chaos. And taking out a Democulus usually requires long-range artillery and full-on bombing strikes. The military can only really handle threats up to 4 stars. Anything above that is a whole different ballgame, something modern armies just can't deal with. Taking down those kinds of monsters would require insane firepower, causing irreversible damage and pure chaos. So, to minimize the losses, they send in specialized adventurers called the Attack Squad. They're the ones needed to handle these S-tier threats. Now, this monster Argus has a danger rank of 7 stars. He's boldly asking our boy where he got that weapon, and a chill runs down Saram's spine, especially when Jaeyong starts mocking Argus, asking if he got hit so hard that he's already questioning his weapon. Argus with zero chill warns the tiny being to think very carefully before answering, because he's the one who actually made it. When Jaeyong stays silent, Argus gets annoyed and decides to make one last attempt to ask. He questions why the weapon isn't in the hands of the person it was made for. Saram's worry just skyrockets, thinking that if Argus built Jaeyong's weapon, it has to be at least A rank. That kind of information should have been immediately added to the association's database, like the second it was created. The log should have details about the owner and its location. There's no way some smuggler could just get a weapon like that. Not so easily anyway. Saram starts wondering if Jaeyong actually stole it from someone. Meanwhile, Jaeyong is quick to cut Argus off. He tells him flat out that it's none of his business, which sends a shockwave through Saram's nerves, making her think, this guy is completely out of his mind. Argus actually considers this for a moment, and then leans in to pick something up. The only thing flashing through Jaeyong's mind is instant death, because that attack looks absolutely impossible to dodge. If that's the play, there's no chance of blocking it, and trying the needle attack again is useless. It won't work because Argus is like a walking fortress. Nothing can pierce him. And if Jaeyong chooses to use his swelling ability, it won't do anything. Plus, absorbing the attack would just kill him anyway. So, this nomad has one last desperate option. It's a total Hail Mary move called the Last Technique that he straight up ripped off from his father, Yu Seong. Jaeyong knows the law of forces is cold and unforgiving, especially when he's about to throw down with something. When it comes to two forces slamming into each other against this one-eyed monster, the stronger one is always gonna win. But what's really bugging him is what happens when the impact isn't head-on. Even if he calculates the angle and position perfectly, if he can't win the initial clash, he can't redirect the force. And that's the whole secret behind Jaeyong's final weapon. And somehow this kid actually parries the attack. That alone is enough to shock Saram, who can barely believe what she's seeing. He just parried a 7-star monster's strike. On top of that, Jaeyong figures out that the only real weak spot on this giant wall is his eye, which he plans to take out with the needle. But just as he goes in for the attack, Argus snatches him tightly in his massive hand. That's when Saram jumps in, yelling at leader Argus to stop. She says she understands why he's suspicious of this guy, but even someone like him wouldn't attack a human without knowing the full story. She reminds him that special naturalized species aren't allowed to harm humans unless their own life is truly in danger. If they break that rule, they lose their naturalized status and become just another monster on the hunting list. Hearing that, Argus finally loosens his grip, letting Jaeyong fall flat on his back. The Titan now understands why our MC has that weapon, and he finally gets why Zeke went through all the trouble of waking him up. At first, the monster looks like he's actually about to apologize, but instead he's like, nah, Jaeyong totally earned the right to use that thing, and he's dead set on making things right for his earlier screw-up. Then he glances down at his thumb, which Jaeyong totally messed up, and points out that it's the first time he's been actually hurt in 30 years. Sarum is just standing there completely lost, but the one-eyed being calmly explains that this whole situation is the exact reason. He even started messing with humans in the first place. Saram, kinda hesitant, asks if it's all because of the Gabiuk attack squad that supposedly came after him 30 years back. But Argius looks genuinely shook by that, saying that story is straight up cap. The real tea is they never even managed to lay a finger on him, except for one person, and that's when he drops a massive bombshell. A single human managed to slice his arm clean off and came this close to ending him, but then spared him at the very last second. Jaryong's expression immediately flips, becoming deadly serious. He realizes the monster is talking about his father, Yu Seong. See, Elder Titans are known as the apex race among all giants. They basically live forever, and there are only 10 of them known to even be out there. This makes their presence on Earth a super rare event. Their raw physical strength is on a whole other level, way beyond anything humans can even begin to process. But what truly makes them built different is their god-tier craftsmanship. They're legendary for being the ultimate equipment creators. The whole process of forging weapons with busted special powers or making insane artifacts is just second nature to them. Aside from the Elder Titans, dwarves are the only other race blessed with the gift of creating such weapons. However, unlike the Elder Titans, the dwarves eventually chilled out and were fine coexisting with humans. The Elder Titans, on the other hand, they not only refused to live alongside humans, but also saw them as completely worthless bugs. Then 30 years ago, during the operation to take down Argius, led by the Gabiuk attack squad, things went south hard when a Colossus B, one of Argius's 4-star rated automated dolls, launched a surprise attack. Osunga, the damage dealer for Team 9 of the squad, shouted that their communications with headquarters were totally gone. Kim Young-mo, the team's support and buffer, added that every single communication line was cut, probably from some kind of signal interference. That's when Park Jong-man, the team leader and their main tank, started freaking out, yelling that something massive was coming, and they had to brace for impact immediately. The Colossus B smashes its gigantic fist into the ground, rocking the earth like a huge earthquake. Meanwhile, Sunga tries to land a sneak attack from behind, aiming directly for its neck, but her attack does absolutely nothing, barely even denting the helmet. That alone is enough to shake her to her core. The doll turns its glowing eyes toward her and just swats her away like she's nothing but a fly. Seeing that Young-mo completely freezes in terror, shaking like a total coward. None of this was supposed to be happening. The Gabiuk attack squad is famous for being one of the most elite dungeon clearing teams out there. But here in the Boiling Abyss dungeon, the home turf of the Elder Titan Argius, even these pros are struggling just to stay alive. Sunga hits the ground hard and is knocked out cold, unable to move. And that was just from one doll. There are 7 of these Colossus B units running around. Every time they somehow manage to take one down or get away from it, another one would just pop up out of thin air. Young-mo starts to realize that if even their main team is getting clapped this hard, the backup squads don't stand a ghost of a chance. Out of nowhere, a mysterious man tells Young-mo to get the hell out of there, because it's already a miracle if a single one of them makes it out of this mess alive. Just then another Colossus B charges straight for the man, but he holds his ground and blocks the blow. He activates a skill called Potential Trigger. This ability burns all of the user's remaining energy to boost their physical abilities to the absolute limit. But the moment the effect is over, the user is left completely defenseless, right after he uses a shield slam to block the incoming hit from one of Argius's dolls. Young-mo, totally freaking out, yells that if the team leader uses Potential Trigger now, they're all screwed, but the leader just tells him calmly that there's no way everyone is getting out of this place alive. He admits he doesn't have enough gas in the tank to actually finish off the enemy, but he can at least stall them for a while, long enough for the others to make a run for it. With a slight smile, he tells Young-mo that he still has a shot. Just then, a massive shadow looms over them, so heavy it feels like their hearts are about to stop. Argius himself steps forward, looking annoyed that his minions still haven't cleared out the pests infesting his domain. At that moment, both of them know that they're staring death right in the face. One last time, the leader orders the terrified Young-mo to run, while he turns to face the giant all by himself. He's secretly hoping that if he just charges in head first, he can buy them a few precious seconds. Meanwhile, Argius, the one-eyed monster, holds a blazing sword ready to wipe out the roaches in his path. With a single slash, he burns the team leader to a crisp. Calling them nothing but inferior cockroaches, he straight up mocks their gear, saying it's absolute garbage, especially when it's being used by such weaklings. To him, they're all just a bunch of clowns, every last being that has the nerve to claim this world as theirs. And with that thought, it's crystal clear to him. This whole world is completely screwed, which makes it even funnier when a so-called crybaby like Youngmo suddenly pops up right in his face, pointing a weapon at him. Argus is low-key amused and comments on the kid's loyalty. He says it's almost sweet but totally pointless as the Colossus B dolls start closing in. Youngmo is completely shook. He has no clue how to even scratch these things, when even his team leader got wrecked. Then out of nowhere, a voice cuts through the noise. It reminds them that he warned them this place wasn't safe. A ridiculously chill-built dude rolls up next to Youngmo and calmly tells him that if they can just gather enough intel, they might actually stand a chance together. There's no reason to rush, and be the first to clear the dungeon anyway. Still bawling his eyes out, Youngmo just blurts out asking who the hell this guy even is. That's when the buff dude casually explains that he caught a distress signal, so the association sent in a rescue team. He introduces himself as Yu Seong, 32 years old, and one of the volunteers. And then with the most insane timing, he mentions he's wearing a heavier chest plate for this run, just casually making small talk while a literal death machine is staring them down. Argus starts teasing Seong, saying he better not have shown up to this party all by himself. But Seong just casually shoots back that for the moment he's the only one who made it. Just then a Colossus B swings its massive sword. The blade slams down just inches away from them. Youngmo is still a crying, snotty mess, practically wetting his pants. He knows exactly how tough these things are to beat. Meanwhile, Seong is already doing the math, trying to figure out how many more of these monsters are hiding in the shadows. At this point in time, Seong was basically a nobody adventurer. He wasn't famous at all, but the OGs of the first generation knew who he was. They remembered the legend who once single-handedly sliced the arm off a Colossus B doll. Unlike everyone else chasing clout and achievements, Yu Seong was always focused on one thing: saving people. That's why he stayed under the radar. But this very battle was the one that kickstarted his entire legend. In a flash, Seong blitzes forward and slashes a Colossus B clean in two with a single absolutely cracked swing. Just like that one is down. Argus can't believe his eye watching as Jar Young's father. Yu Seong officially crashes the party. Without even flinching, Seong turns to Argus and notes that this one looks like a much bigger problem. That was the day the world began to learn the name Yu Seong. Youngmo, who saw the whole thing go down, has his jaw on the floor, stunned by what one man is capable of. He gets legit chills down his spine, as it sinks in that this dude just one-shotted the same monster his entire squad couldn't even put a dent in. And Yu Seong did it with just one hit. All of a sudden, Yu Seong turns to Youngmo and asks if the magician has any juice left in the tank. Hesitant and still sniffling, the crybaby admits he's running on fumes, but says he can still give him a buff. Yu Seong immediately tells him to forget that. Instead, he asks if Youngmo can cast levitation spells. Turns out, he needs Youngmo to go rescue Sunga and Jongman, who are still breathing, even if they're knocked out cold. Argus, the boss of this whole dungeon, thinks it's hilarious that this little scrub is sending his sidekick to save the others. It totally bruises the monster's ego to see a human acting so cocky, thinking he can just dip after taking out a few of his toys. Holding his flaming sword, Argus isn't taking Seong seriously at all, but our boy isn't backing down an inch. Seong powers up and stares the giant right in the eye, telling him straight up that there's no way in hell he's letting this freak lay a single finger on those kids, at least not without his permission. Well, that's all it took to tick off the one-eyed monster, who goes into full rage mode. Even so, Seong just levels up, looking like he just unlocked his Super Saiyan Blue form or something. With his weapon glowing, he blocks Argus's fire attack without even batting an eye. Meanwhile, Youngmo, on his way to grab his teammates, is just completely floored by the insane fight unfolding right before him. 10 years after the adhesion event, most adventurers had totally plateaued, but thanks to the new potential that was unlocked by that phenomenon, they were finally starting to touch superhuman levels of power. Technology also went through a massive growth spurt during that time, evolving like crazy to create gear that could actually handle their newly cracked stats. But even with better stats and gear, their actual skills as adventurers were still lagging behind. The real answer was in leveling up the humans themselves, with something like a new martial art that basically ignored common sense. Only a handful of people saw what was needed back then, but from that moment on, they started. Dude's pretty much innovating his strategy. Mid-fight, Seong soars into the air to deliver a finishing blow, leaving Argus totally blindsided. Turns out Yu Seong was one of the few guys who saw the final checkmate from his opening move. The strike was a critical hit, and Youngmo was absolutely hyped. Seeing this guy actually pull it off after eating a nasty body shot, Argus has to admit that this so-called small fry is turning out to be built different from everyone else. He realizes Seong knows exactly how to maximize the potential of what he has. The one-eyed monster even adds that if Xiong's weapon had been charged to even half of its full capacity, this entire fight would have gone down very differently. To put it simply, Yusong is a total unknown at this point, but he's already starting to make some serious waves. The truth is, Yusong never had the cash to get his hands on the top-tier gear that was considered the meta back then. All of a sudden, the door flies open as the cavalry rushes in, but right as they show up, another attack comes screaming toward Yusong, and he manages to parry it with everything he's got. The monster clocks that Xiong has a unique skill that doesn't just block attacks, but also sends them right back. He disses the skill, calling it low tier compared to the abilities he's seen from other humans. But even as he's talking smack, everyone else is gearing up to launch an all-out assault on the monster. One of them lands what should have been a one-shot kill, declaring it's over, but Argus has different plans, unleashing a counter at insane speeds. And somehow Xiong blocks it again, leaving Argus absolutely shook. At this point, Argus finally gets it. The attacks weren't being parried at all. They were being completely absorbed. This moment is the origin story of the very skill that Jaryong will eventually master. It's the birth of the swell, a technique that takes an enemy's power and reflects it back with perfect accuracy. Unlike most skills that are all about raw damage or flashy animations, this one is built on pure fundamentals, physical power, experience, and flawless timing. Back in the day, it was just on another level. Argus finds himself face to face with Yu Xiong, who's now radiating this insane aura. It's pouring from his ripped physique, and what he's witnessing is the martial art of a true hero. Low-key Argus is thinking, this must be like one of those classic legends humans tell, where the hero finally slays the beast. It brings back a memory from long ago, when his own father delivered a blow that destroyed a monster from the inside out. After that defeat, Argus's life was no longer his own. But his father had a change of heart and decided not to take his life. The Gabiak squad's attempt to clear the dungeon was shaping up to be a massive failure, and while the members were safely evacuated, the real plot twist is that a single dude from the rescue team ended up soloing the entire dungeon. Talk about a ridiculous end to what was meant to be an epic story. Fast forward to the important bit, Elder Titans never kneel to anyone they deem inferior, and yet Argus himself chose to request exile among the humans. Sairam remembers that day vividly. The entire world was left in total shock. Despite that, Argus got his citizenship processed fairly quickly, mainly because of his strict no-kill policy. But that doesn't just wipe the slate clean of his past crimes. To make amends, he was assigned to work in the equipment department. Still learning that one person cleared that dungeon is brand new information for Sairam. Later, to pay respect to the man who beat the beast inside him, Argus he did it purely as a tribute and expected nothing for it, but Argus saw that Jaryong was worthy of it. Jaryong had no clue about any of this. As a kid, the staff just seemed like a regular stick with no special powers. But it was super well made, which is probably the only reason the loan sharks decided not to take it. The monster even chimes in saying, it's nothing special. The staff's only real purpose is for whacking things with blunt force. Sairam is completely lost about the whole debt situation. At that moment, Argus demands to know if Jaryong's father ever fought with a staff like that one, which sparks a deep memory in Jaryong's mind. The monster admits he had once thought about forging an axe for Xiong, but he needed his father to bring back the right material for it. At a certain point, however, he just went dark on him. Since Argus is basically forbidden from ever leaving this place, he had no choice but to send the staff instead. He doesn't have all the details, but one thing is for sure. He can't complete the weapon for Xiong now. The one-eyed titan then turns to Jaryong and demands that he hand the unfinished weapon over. He says he will complete it not as a final gift for Xiong, but as a brand new masterpiece for Jaryong himself. Sairam looks at Jaryong with a million concerns running through her mind and asks if he's holding up okay. Our boy just plays it cool, assuring her that he's fine. It's just that monster making sure the job's finished, no loose ends just like last time. Argias admits he's not sure about the timeline, but he promises to forge the weapon as fast as humanly or monsterly possible. The one-eyed blacksmith just tells Jaryong to chill out and be patient. He's even got a name for it, the Master Piercer, and yeah, it's going to take some serious time and effort. After that, Saram brings up her day off on Wednesday, asking if he wants to link up again. She's thinking they could hang out, cram for the written exam, and maybe even run through a practice test together. Our boy is totally down with the plan. Then, sliding in a question that's been bugging her, Saram says his father must have been some kind of legend. She never dreamed her own dad was the one who cleared that dungeon. She asks if Jaryong's father is laid up in a hospital or just kicking back in retirement. Jaryong just gives her a blank stare for a moment, then says he's going to head on first and needs some space, telling her not to worry about him. Saram, completely shook, just lets him go. Back in her fancy elite car, she starts digging into the case summary. It's about the Gabaok attack squad's raid on the dungeon of Boiling Abyss. The official report says that despite a few hiccups, the five-man team leading the assault successfully captured the dungeon's boss, Argias. That's the story Saram's always bought into. But if what Argias just said is legit, then the whole thing is cap. The five adventurers from the Gabaok squad are still treated like gods in the industry. The thought that those clowns might have straight up stolen credit from another adventurer is wild, but she's struggling to process it. Still, she's pretty damn sure Argias has zero reason to lie. And if Jaryong really inherited a skill that cracked, it only makes sense that his old man was built different. This kind of shady stuff has happened before. Once adventurers go inside a dungeon, it's a total black box. No one really knows what goes down. She remembers the infamous case of the so-called fake dragon slayer, Yu Song. The dude was once hailed as one of Korea's top adventurers, praised for his god-tier skills, but it all came crashing down later. Turns out all his legendary feats were based on falsified reports and blackmail. The whole scam only came to light because Seong himself spilled the beans after getting critically injured. Just then something clicks for Saram. As she reads a related rumor about the fake dragon slayer, it mentioned that Seong had actually taken down Argias himself. But that rumor was supposedly shot down by the Gabaok squad. All of a sudden, she starts wondering if that man Yu Song could actually be Jaryong's father. But before she can even go down that rabbit hole, her phone buzzes. A new message just dropped. Apparently, her practical test scores are out, so she quickly pulls them up to see the damage. Meanwhile, over at Warrior High's Dungeon Raid department, a woman in the office remarks that Mr. Kang hasn't had a moment's peace all weekend, and it's all her fault. This woman is Cho Sahaya, the homeroom teacher for Warrior High's Room 1 and Room 2, who also doubles as a magic instructor. Kang doesn't go too hard on her, especially since it's her first year on the job. Plus, he takes anything involving the first-year students super seriously. Sahaya says this year just hits different. The students' performance and power levels are on a whole other planet compared to when she was a student there. She also asks Kang if he saw it coming, that a specific kid would snag the #1 spot in the practical exam. Kang just says you can never really predict how these things will shake out. Back in the car, Saram is losing her mind, looking at the midterm results. It feels like her brain is about to short-circuit. Among the first years at Warrior High, there are 3 absolute prodigies, and low-key, it's kinda ironic they're all half-bloods. First up is Diav Choi, who got his insane swordsmanship from his dad, a current white-class adventurer. Diav also has the magic of his elven mother, making him the ultimate magic swordsman package. Then you've got Anisha Saram, a half-blood with a massive mana pool and better control than most pure-blooded elves. This witch has the raw potential to become a grand magician no cap. The third is a kid born to a human and a dwarf. He's someone who breaks necks every time he walks by. He inherited the raw strength and toughness of a dwarf, but with the agility and reflexes of a human. It gave him a body that cherry-picked the best traits from both races. His name is Tyr Velkason. But at Warrior High, he goes by the Korean name Seog Cheol Kong. This guy basically has the most jacked physique in the entire school, and he actually ranked first in the second semester midterms. Still, Sahaya knows not to sleep on his skills. But compared to the other two, she heard the top spot in the practical test went to someone from one of the 2 cliques. Even with a nerfed test snagging first place solo, that's kinda sus. Kang is convinced. This absolute unit of a dude isn't just built different physically. Meanwhile, Sahiya's low-key worried about the big guy. She just wishes he'd come out of his shell, especially since he's got the chops to be a top-tier leader. But honestly, our hybrid hero couldn't care less about making buddies with anyone else at the academy. Most of the students, whether they're in the dungeon raid department or not, are basically petrified just being in the same room as him. But playing solo has a hard cap, especially once you hit the second year. You just can't do it all alone, which is exactly why Sahiya wishes. Cheol Kang had at least one person who actually got him, but she's drawing a total blank. That's when Kang chimes in, pointing out the stuff nobody else sees. He admits that teachers can only babysit so much. At the end of the day, he'd rather put his faith in his students than just stress over them. He's got no doubt that Cheol Kang will figure his stuff out eventually. Fast forward 4 days to a Wednesday morning. A couple of clowns are yucking it up until boom, Cheol Kang rounds the corner. The second they lay eyes on him, his insane presence just deletes the smiles right off their faces, sending a shiver straight down their spines. They're frozen solid, completely shook, but before they can even process what's happening, Cheol Kang suddenly bows his head. He apologizes for not seeing them, saying he was a little spaced out. These 2 goobers, already on high alert, start begging for their lives like he's about to end them. Turns out they'd accidentally splashed some juice on his shirt. What they don't get is that underneath that mountain of muscle, this dude they see as King Kong is actually a total softie. Deep down, this guy is carrying some heavy baggage from a rough past and secretly just really misses his mom. Rewind to his childhood, and our so-called King Kong was just a happy-go-lucky kid who was obsessed with his mom's tteokbokki. But his mother Sayok Yubin always claimed she was a terrible cook, which is probably why he never got to have it again. See, Sayok Yubin is a legendary Korean adventurer who made a name for herself up in Northern Europe. She'd always tell her son all these amazing stories about her homeland, and those tales lit a fire in Cheol Kong, sparking a deep admiration for his roots. Between his cracked natural talent and his upbringing, Cheol Kang managed to get into Warrior High after acing the special transfer exam. But the kid came with one major debuff: he was a massive introvert. He could barely string two words together, so most people just ignored him. Deep down, all he really wanted were some friends to hang out with. But he wasn't exactly confident in his Korean skills. He was constantly worried people would clown on him for it. And here's the thing about introverts: even if you know a foreign language, actually speaking it out loud is a whole different beast. So, while everyone else was terrified of his intimidating vibe, Cheol Kang actually hated that part of himself. Because of this fear, he ended up becoming a lone wolf completely by accident. By the end of the first semester, while he was on one of his usual solo walks, he spotted a couple of friends heading into a PC bang to snag a couple of seats. That's when it hit him. He remembered his mom's stories about chilling with her friends at karaoke joints and PC bangs. She'd talk about playing games, ordering a mountain of food, and just having a blast. Feeling a mix of anxiety and inspiration, Cheol Kang hesitantly walked inside, deciding to try and get a spot for himself. Problem was, he had zero clue how any of it worked. While he was fumbling around with the kiosk, some guys nearby started getting salty, complaining that he was taking forever. Now feeling like he was holding everyone up, Cheol Kang figured it was probably better to just bounce. But right then, a guy speaks to him in perfect English, letting him know that the machine he's on is just for paying. He points over to the actual registration kiosk on the side. Then the guy hits him with, "Bruh, do you even speak Korean?" Turns out that dude is Jaryong, and he decides to help our King Kong figure this whole thing out, telling him to just follow his lead. He's gonna show him how to get registered the right way. From there, Jaryong walks Cheol Kong through the process, explaining that you don't actually have to fill out every single little detail on the registration form. He just points out the required fields and walks him through it step by step. Once that's all done, he tells him he can pay at the machine up front. After that, Jaryong explains, the rest of the process is simple. Just pick an open seat, log in, and he's all set to start gaming. Cheol Kang thanks him, and Jaryong just lets out a sigh before plopping down in his own chair. He tells the big guy to have fun, but can't shake the feeling that it's super weird for a foreigner who can speak Korean to be acting like he's never set foot in a PC bang before. Meanwhile, Jaryong keeps glancing at the clock, wondering what in the world is keeping Saya. She's crazy late. Bruh, our boy Jaryong seriously didn't think this girl would be the type to stand him up. If he knew she was going to take this long, he would have just hit up the black market first instead of wasting his time showing up so early. On top of that, he has no idea what this black object in his hands even is. He remembers it was in the same chest as the royal jelly, but from the feel of its smooth surface, it definitely doesn't seem edible, not that he'd be brave enough to try. Jaryong actually found it when he was laid up at home covered in bandages, and he figured he'd get it checked out when he got a spare moment. For the time being, though, he's trying to avoid selling anything connected to the Imperial Wasp. On the other hand, he's low-key thinking about offloading Enkiel's blood pendant for some serious cash. Enkiel, the Tyrant of the Land, is one of the major disasters hiding out in the Igar jungles, and the danger it represents has been a problem for decades. In all that time, not a single squad has ever managed to take it down. And trust me, countless attack teams have been sent to hunt the thing. The very name of this monster makes adventurers tremble. The absolute best those teams ever managed to bring back was a couple of loose scales and a tiny bit of its blood. The government straight up banned Enkiel hunting after a while, which made any item related to the beast worth an astronomical fortune. Jaryong's whole plan was to meet Sarah, then sneak over to the black market at night, but her no-show completely wrecked his schedule. Then out of nowhere, a guy named Cheol Kang comes over and sits right next to him since it was the only open spot. An introvert might freak out over something like that, but Jaryong just figured it was the normal noon rush. So he just lets the big dude chill beside him. After logging in, Cheol Kang realizes pretty fast that there aren't any decent games to play there, and his own PC at home actually has way better specs. That's when Jaryong spots him playing Heroes of Chaos, and mentions they're about the same rank. Playing it smooth, our MC casually adds that he doesn't have a partner at the moment, and invites Cheol Kang to team up for a duo match. Elsewhere in a small district of Seoul, you'll find these abandoned plots of land people call scars. Ages ago, during an event called the adhesion phenomenon, massive cities were completely annihilated. While many of those places were rebuilt eventually, the zones right up against the dungeons were just abandoned. These deserted areas, which act as a buffer between dungeon walls and city borders, still have a use. They're like a second line of defense in case any monsters manage to bust out of the dungeons. To be fair, in the past 20 years, not a single monster has ever breached the walls on its own. The MGX-877 is a special vehicle built for transporting medium-class monsters, and today it just got clearance to enter Gate S11. The driver of this truck always regrets taking this route. He absolutely hates just sitting around doing jack squat while his friends are out there making bank hunting monsters. The woman with the eye patch is sick of his complaining and tells him to just quit and go hunt with his pals. If he's that desperate, this eye patch-wearing badass is Jo Yina, a 31-year-old former gold-class adventurer who retired because of an eye injury. These days, she works as a special operator for the Adventurer Association. Yina asks Sun Qiang-woo, a 22-year-old former bronze-class adventurer who is in perfect health, why the hell he's even here. Yina points out that the whiner doesn't have a full license and lacks the skills to form a real party. She guesses the only reason he's around is because he's stressed about his empty wallet. Chong-woo tells her to stop spitting facts and just let him vent for a second, but the one-eyed warden has had enough of his whining. As they drive on, something feels wrong, and Yina wonders if the monster in the back either got loose or started a riot. She tells Chong-woo to let HQ know they're stopping for an inspection, then hops out of the truck without hesitation. While the crybaby radios in that Yina is doing a checkup, his mind is spinning with terrifying possibilities about what could be happening out there. He tries to believe Yena will be fine, but that confidence shatters when he sees blood splatter across the window. Chong-woo knows that if it weren't for her eye injury, Yena would have definitely climbed the ranks. As the vehicle door creaks open, Chong-woo starts complimenting Yena on her quick work, but he freezes when he sees a different person standing there with blood dripping from her mouth. The strange woman just smirks at the praise, then says the girl had decent reflexes for a government worker, hinting that she knew exactly why Yina wasn't an active adventurer anymore. Wasting no time, she checks the transport manifest, sending a cold shiver down Chong-woo's spine. As he goes stiff with terror, the woman who looks like she has absolutely zero chill gives him a simple choice: either drive or die. Back on the other side of town, Jaryong wins his match against Cheol Kang, and after that the two decide to go grab lunch. Jaryong thinks the place is perfect. He's seriously impressed with the food and the owner, and he can't believe the guy is the same age as him, especially since the dude is built like a brick house. But before he can get any answers, something else completely hijacks his attention. The whole area just erupts into chaos, feeling like an earthquake just hit, immediately followed by a deafening explosion. A couple of dudes just enjoying a day drink can't believe their eyes. They're trying to figure out who in the hell just rammed a truck straight into a building. One of them even talks about calling the cops, but he pretty much assumes someone else has already made the call. Meanwhile, that unhinged, bloodthirsty woman was already cooking up a plan to pull a stunt like this right in the heart of Gangnam. She even yells to the people nearby, saying she's barely had any fun since breaking free. And yet here they are, trying to lock her back in a cage. The guards warn her that adventurers are going to swarm the place the second the alarm goes off. But this lady has absolutely zero chill. She's 100% sure that this time she's not getting caught. That's when a crack splits the truck open, and she gives her crew the green light to move out. She casually announces to anyone listening that she's the one who woke them all up. After that, the entire crowd is just stunned. They're frozen stiff in shock as pure nightmare fuel materializes right in front of them. Everyone is shaking their blood running cold as they stare at the horrifying man with a single horn. This, it turns out, is the Horned Horror, a monster whose power level gets cranked up the longer its horn grows. Close by, the blood-hungry woman grins like a psychopath, betting that this freak will wipe out at least 50 people without breaking a sweat. She's so into the chaos that she decides to up the ante. She starts laughing, saying 100 will drop dead before the rescue squad even arrives. That's when the real panic kicks in. The entire crowd just bolts running for their lives, which no cap they totally are. You can see the pure terror in their eyes. But it's no use. The Horned Horror snatches victims by the head, ending them one by one without a shred of mercy. Just as the creature closes in on more helpless civilians, Jaryong explodes onto the scene out of nowhere, moving like lightning, and landing a savage kick straight to the monster's dome. A ton of people just stand their jaws on the floor as they watch some young dude absolutely ragdoll that demonic-looking monster. Jaryong doesn't waste a single second and screams at the stunned crowd to book it and get the hell out of there. Suddenly something clicks in his memory, and Jaryong realizes he's seen some of these faces a few times before. Other than that, he knows that the one-horned horrors aren't actually that tough to deal with. Then out of the blue, he senses something barreling toward him. Turns out it's a heavy motorcycle coming straight for him. It gets dangerously close, but Jaryong manages to dodge it in the nick of time. That's when he spots a two-horned horror looking cocky as hell and charging right at him without missing a beat. He smashes it right in the face with a hardcore kick. He's aware the lifespan of a horned horror is usually about 5 to 6 years, and most of them die off long before growing a second horn. But about 8% of them do grow that second horn, and when that happens, they can reproduce. They live longer and power up to levels that are just plain broken. Just as the monster lets out a furious scream, Jaryong knows one thing for sure: these two-horned freaks are insanely fast and strong, but they're not invincible. He's totally down to throw hands with them if he gets the chance. The real issue is their insane durability. Thinking back to Old Man Pilgyu, who was always bragging about being a great tank, Jaryong figures these two-horned horrors are at least 3 to 4 times tougher than that guy. The problem is, Jaryong isn't even geared up. He's got no armor, no weapons, and without his kit, he feels totally nerfed. Still, he knows he could cook something up if he had at least one piece of equipment. As the two-horned freak throws a punch that smashes clean through a wall, Jaryong pulls off a double backflip just in time to dodge it. This thing's danger rank is a solid 3 stars. Then Jaryong spots a stop sign and gets an idea. He stomps on it and snaps off the metal pole. The freak suddenly goes wild and launches into the air. In that split second, Jaryong infuses the rod with magic, getting ready to smack the monster down. But before he can, the monster uses him as a launch pad and rushes toward a group of kids up ahead. Our boy is caught completely off guard when he realizes the monster is completely ignoring him. Further on, the kids are frozen in fear, trembling right where they stand, as the terrifying creature charges them at full speed. When you're talking about danger ranks, the gap between 2 and 3 stars is pretty damn big. But in terms of sheer destructive power, both of them are monsters that operate on a level way beyond what any normal human can handle. Against things like this, ordinary people wouldn't stand a ghost of a chance. They'd be slaughtered without even knowing what hit them. Even if a skilled adventurer knows the right way to handle these freaks, there's only so much they can do without the proper gear or support magic. But there is one exception. Out of absolutely nowhere, Kang dives in and blocks the two-horned horror's punch using nothing but his own body. This absolute unit of a guy buries a nasty punch into the monster's gut, launching it like last week's trash. Turns out the only people who can pull off stunts this wild are the ones who have pushed their bodies to superhuman levels. We're talking elite tier tankers. Come to think of it, Kang could probably yeet that thing with his bare hands, but actually finishing off a 3-star monster with no weapon is a whole different beast. The monster starts babbling some gibberish which just ticks Jaryong off. He launches himself into the air and lands a clean strike, right on the back of the freak's neck, taking it down instantly. Right after Jaryong and Kang's eyes meet, and they both look completely stunned to see each other. Before a word can be said, a massive explosion shakes the whole area. Jaryong can't wrap his head around how much destruction these monsters have caused already. Kang pipes up, saying the rescue squad needs a few more minutes to get there. And to make things even worse, the citywide emergency alarm goes off. Yeah, no one saw that coming. While all this chaos is popping off, people are still getting crushed and mangled everywhere. But our big guy knows how to use the taunting call. It's a basic skill every tanker learns, basically a high-frequency scream that acts like a monster magnet, grabbing the attention of everything nearby. Kang, who's been dreaming of being an adventurer his whole life, has already made his choice. He's gonna pull all the aggro onto himself and hold the line until the rescue team shows up. He tells Jaryong to get inside a building and stay out of the splash zone. Deep down, though, Kang doesn't have the heart to ask a guy he just met to risk it all. I mean, they've only played some video games and shared a few meals. But out of nowhere, Jaryong just tells him to go for it and use the taunting call, pretty much saying, "I see you, you're a real tanker." Jaryong already figured out the play was to kite the monsters, and he wants the big guy to follow through. Kang, being the softy he is, says it's way too risky, but Jaryong just spits facts pointing out he was gonna do it solo anyway. Then our MC adds that if he were in Kang's shoes, he'd be doing the exact same thing. "But you're not alone," he says, even hyping up Kang's gaming skills, telling him he was a cracked protector in-game. Then he drops the truth bomb. They don't have time to stand around and chat. With the adrenaline pumping and the pressure of his father's legacy weighing on him, Kang is feeling fired up about stepping up. Like a true adventurer, he's ready to go all in. Meanwhile, inside a supermarket, it's a complete disaster zone. A young kid is hiding under a sink, shaking uncontrollably as a one-horned freak chokes the life out of some poor soul. Just as the monster smashes the sink to get its next victim, Cheol Kang lets out a massive taunting call, a roar so powerful it echoes for miles. The sound wave slams into every monster nearby, stopping them mid-hunt. Even that weird, bloodthirsty woman hears it loud and clear, wondering what the hell that scream was. After that, our boy Cheol Kang braces himself for the incoming horde, as monsters charge at him like they're completely brain-dead. Think high-functioning zombies. The monsters rush the big guy like he's an all-you-can-eat buffet. Cheol Kang effortlessly dodges a pathetic swing from one monster and then smacks it back to show it who's boss. Another wave of two-horned monsters storms him, and Cheol Kang gears up to turn them into paste. But suddenly, one of the monsters feels something is off and looks up just in time to see Jae Yong diving down from above, ready to strike. Turns out our guy did a quick scan of the field and spotted two of these beefier freaks hiding among the cannon fodder. While he's at it, his eyes catch a sketchy-looking truck off to the side. Something feels low-key wrong about it. It looks like they've been piling dead bodies inside, which explains why there isn't a single corpse on the streets. Without warning, the monsters suddenly switch targets and dash toward Jae Yong. But our guy is already shifting his strategy, knowing the usual tactics won't work on these creeps. Cheol Kang knows they're both close-range fighters, but this time they've got no range support and no real equipment. Right now, these two aren't exactly a balanced party. They have no gear or magic to back them up. This is turning into the worst possible matchup, and they need to find a way to get the upper hand like yesterday. As the tanker Cheol Kang decides to charge into the weaker mobs and hold them off, while Jae Yong, being the DPS, goes straight for the two-horned threats. As Jae Yong drills a hole through one, he realizes this thing is way weaker than the monsters he's used to fighting with his needle technique. Honestly, he's positive that if he had the Staff of Argus, he would have already stacked these monsters up like firewood. But right now, all he has is this beat-up model, wielding an old rod that's about to snap in half with monsters closing in fast. Jaryong knows damn well this thing isn't his real staff. But honestly, he's kinda getting the feel for it. At the same time, his mind flashes back to watching Zeke fight with nothing but his bare fists. That dude completely schooled him in every way imaginable, even though Jaryong managed to land a few cheap shots. Zeke's punches weren't the fastest or the strongest, no cap. But even so, every single hit seemed to weigh Jaryong down bit by bit. It felt like his entire body was turning to lead with every single impact. He boots another monster right in the jaw and barely sidesteps a lethal swipe, knowing full well and that even one tiny mistake could get him unalived right here, right now, just like before Jaryong is pushing his limits. He's grinding to level up and get stronger one fight at a time. He smacks a two-horned freak so hard its horn snaps clean off, and he just tosses it away like trash. But there's zero chill, because another one is already bull-rushing him. He's been studying Zeke's fight style, and now he's trying to copy that same exact rhythm. After his own dad, Zeke was the first guy he'd ever seen with that kind of insane power. And because of that crazy beatdown, he actually unlocked a fourth skill, Harpoon Rain, a lightning-fast flurry of strikes designed to completely overwhelm whatever's in front of him. But just when the tide starts to turn, a monster sneaks up from his blind spot, grabs him, and slams him into the pavement so hard, it completely knocks the air out of his lungs and makes him spit up blood. Now he's stuck fighting two of these things at the same time. And it's not looking good. Jaryong knows this isn't fair, but fairness goes out the window in a brawl like this. This isn't some clean boxing match. It's an all-out war against monsters that just want to tear him apart. Suddenly, like a freight train, Cheol Kang flies in from the side and just decks the monster, sending it flying. He made it look like it was nothing. And that's when it hits Jaryong having a cracked teammate is a skill in and of itself. Back at the restaurant, some dude is recording Cheol Kang and Jaryong absolutely bodying these monsters like it's just another Tuesday for them. It's honestly insane news that two dudes managed to wipe out a dozen monsters without any special gear. This pig-faced dude can't believe he filmed the whole thing without a single technical issue. He's low-key, thrilled he decided to hang back, just to see this epic moment unfold. Turns out this guy is Cho Dong-yoon, a 23-year-old college kid and the president of the Dungeon Research Club. But his friend immediately hits him with a reality check, saying he only stuck around because he was literally too terrified to make a run for it. Kim Chang-yoon, another student, just stares in total disbelief. He's trying to figure out where these young guys with so much raw power even came from. Based on how many high-level monsters they just demolished, he thinks they've got to be at least gold rank. Chang-yoon guesses, and they're probably from the legendary Warrior High, Or maybe they're just some super rookies who haven't been discovered yet. When he sees Dong Yoon messing with a thumbnail, he's totally shocked to see the guy is already uploading the footage. That's when the clout chaser drops the obvious line, this story's gonna blow up anyway, so he might as well be the first one to post it. He's dead set on this being his one shot at a viral hit with 1 million views or more. Meanwhile, back on the ground, Cheol Kang totally expected the rescue squad to have shown up by now, but there's still no sign of them. The remains of those horned freaks are scattered everywhere. You can tell these two really did manage to take out every single one. Suddenly, Jae-yong shuffles over looking kinda guilty for messing up his cool hero moment by needing a hand. Without even hesitating, Cheol Kang turns, grabs his hand, and helps him to his feet, asking if he's all right. Jae-yong leans on him a little, admitting he's pretty sure he's got a few fractures here and there. But he says it's nothing major. With a smile, the big guy praises him for taking down 2 of the double-horned monsters, all on his own. But Jae-yong just shakes his head, saying that taking on 9 of the single-horned ones is honestly way more impressive. He gives Cheol Kang full props for handling every last one of them, and even jumping in to help with the tougher ones. Still, Cheol Kang gets kinda shy from all the praise and tries to change the subject by asking what school Jae-yong attends. He admits he never actually believed the rumors, thinking Korea didn't have schools that could churn out kids who are this ridiculously strong. But before Jae-yong can even reply, Cheol Kang gets all awkward thinking, and maybe he just insulted the guy's school, and he starts tripping over his words trying to come up with an excuse. Deep down though, he's totally convinced Jae-yong has to be a student at Warrior High. I mean, the kid's skills are undeniable, but instead of answering, Jae-yong just flips the question right back at him. He asks Cheol Kang what his rank is, and how many other people their age are actually stronger than he is. Jae-yong feels a bit embarrassed, admitting that he hasn't even gotten close to being ranked yet. Model. He admits he took a few tests, but they didn't really capture what he can do, so he just assumes he's pretty mid-tier. Jae-young is actually shook by this news, and his curiosity starts going into overdrive, because that ranking feels way off. Great, now he's starting to stress that he'll get booted from the team before he even has a chance to flex his skills. As he's thinking, he glances over and sees the one-horned monster is still just standing there, frozen like a statue. Bruh, is it gonna stand there all day? They're pretty sure it's the exact same monster. The one that gave Cheol Kang's taunt skill 0 reaction. When Cheol Kang asks, our MC says he doesn't think the monster species itself is anything special. He adds that whatever's hiding inside that truck though, that's probably a whole different beast. Cheol Kang figures they should just keep an eye on it for now, saying that taking down a single-horned horror shouldn't be a problem, even if the thing goes absolutely ballistic. But then out of nowhere, something from inside the truck snatches the monster and drags it in like it's being straight up eaten. Well, that immediately sets off all their alarm bells. Cheol Kang starts getting a bad feeling, explaining that these horned horrors usually live together in tribes. In these tribes, there's always a 2-horned one that acts as the big boss, leading a squad of about 10 others. When different tribes team up, their numbers swell, but there's a cap to how big they can get. Cause in the dog-eat-dog world of dungeons, the horned horror is pretty much at the bottom of the food chain. Apex predators usually keep their numbers on a tight leash, but every once in a while, under just the right freaky circumstances, a mutant claws its way to the surface, one that has the potential to sprout 3 horns. This ain't your regular 2-horned beastie leading a small crew. Nah, this thing doesn't just get a few followers, it becomes a straight-up king. It's capable of commanding a whole army of hundreds, and this rare monstrosity is known as the Horned Horror Rex, rocking a 5-star danger rating. All of a sudden, Rex explodes out of the truck, and the second its gaze locks onto the 2 men, the whole vibe shifts. Jae-yong and Cheol Kang are completely frozen. Both of them are absolutely shook as they realize a 3-horned nightmare is beelining straight for them. With 0 warning, Rex charges in with insane speed, and they barely manage to dive out of the way. It immediately switches its target to Jae-yong, who is caught totally off guard and desperately tries to block the incoming attack. In a flash, Rex's vicious punch completely shatters his weapon and smashes right into his stomach, sending him flying like he's a rag doll. Without even pausing, Cheol Kang dives in, throwing himself right between Jae-yong and Rex, trying to stop the monster from landing a final fatal blow with every ounce of strength he has. He's giving it his all, trying to push Rex back, but out of nowhere, Rex just snatches Cheol Kang up like he's nothing more than a toy and yeets him into the wall, leaving a massive crack spiderwebbing across the surface. It's painfully obvious they're running on fumes. These 2 guys, often called prodigies and thought to be destined for the big leagues, just don't have the stats for this fight yet. No matter how much grit, power, courage, or instinct they bring to the table, there's a massive chasm of experience and growth that they just can't cross. Right now, Jaryong forces himself back to his feet, screaming at this ugly freak to back off. Rex moves like it's lighter than air, gliding forward and slamming its entire body right into Jaryong. Just then, Rex senses something is off. On this very day, long before everything went sideways for the man known as Yusong, way back when he was still a total mystery, something was left behind, something nobody ever talks about. And now that very same power is starting to bubble up again as Jaryong suddenly begins to radiate a purple aura that just screams pure danger. 11 years ago, Yusung stood at a press conference laying it all out on the table. He admitted to all his mistakes and apologized for everything, praying that the public could find it in their hearts to forgive him. His public confession sent shockwaves around the globe. 12 hours earlier, while Chilkong and Jaryong were getting wrecked by a horde of horned horrors and putting their lives on the line, Sarum was left all alone with her thoughts. She was completely lost in a fog of confusion, absolutely certain there had to be a deeper reason for that bizarre and obviously fake confession. Her mind was racing, trying to make sense of everything she'd learned since last Sunday about how Yusong was the prime suspect in a bunch of major incidents. Because of that, she'd spent the last 2 solid days digging through archives, poring over old records and trying to get to the bottom of it. She was dead set on the idea that Jaryong's father, Yusong, had been set up for crimes he had nothing to do with. The why was still a mystery, but she understood one thing perfectly. A ton of people got greedy, all wanting to claim the #1 spot after the strongest adventurer suddenly lost all his powers. Now the only piece of the puzzle left was figuring out how it all really went down back then. According to the records, it claimed that Yusong had faked 43 of his achievements, and Saram is completely baffled by how such a blatant forgery could even show up in the official data. The entire case is beyond insane, and even the public at the time wasn't totally buying it. People were divided because even with all those supposedly phony documents, Yusong's reputation was still rock solid. She tries to imagine herself in his position and figures she would have fought back, until the very end too. But the one thing she just can't wrap her head around is why Yusong didn't even try to defend himself. Instead, he just accepted every single accusation they threw at him right after that press conference. Any supporters he had were immediately silenced and eventually turned on him, feeling completely betrayed, which pretty much made Yusong look like a massive fraud overnight. Still, Saram can't figure out why he'd go through with a fake confession like that, even if he was being blackmailed, because admitting to everything would just dig his grave even deeper. And yet, when she rewatches the video, the expression on his face isn't one of injustice or rage. He just looks like a man who has accepted his fate. Then all of a sudden, the answer clicks. As she digs deeper into his basic profile, she discovers that Yusong never officially had a family. That detail completely throws her for a loop, making her wonder if Yusong is even Jaryong's biological father. But then it hits her, it actually makes perfect sense not to list his family on paper, especially since Jaryong and Yusong are practically clones of each other. That brings her to one major conclusion. There's a very high chance that Jaryong's very existence is the reason Yusong took the fall for all those allegations. Meanwhile, our boy Jae-young is completely in the dark, with absolutely zero clue about what's happening to his own body. It just starts glowing with this sick purple aura, and at that exact moment, Rex comes charging at him, looking like a total psycho. But if there's one thing Jae-young knows, it's that he can finally move again, and just as Rex gets all up in his personal space, Jae-young's power-up mode kicks into high gear, and he smashes a jaw-breaking punch right into Rex's face. Being able to fight back was all the motivation he needed. Now that he's in the game, he isn't planning on stopping, and Rex's shocked expression says it all. This new version of Jae-young is built different. Right then, our guy activates his 4th skill, Harpoon Rain. He unleashes a savage barrage of attacks like an absolute madman, stepping back into his stance just as Rex is about to explode with pure rage. Seething from the humiliation, Rex throws a brutal kick, but Jae-young dodges it effortlessly, watching as Rex dives down from above. In that split second, Rex sees Jae-young's demonic form, and bruh, it's enough to give anyone nightmares. Just like that, Jae-young counters with a vicious kick that sends the 3-horned freak flying like a cannonball, slamming him into the wall. The impact leaves a crater even bigger than before. Still, our boy knows this isn't over yet, but his last 2 hits were no joke. He actually found a weak spot. It turns out Rex's chin is his Achilles heel, and Jae-young pinpointed it using his needle technique. Rex is completely livid now, while Jae-young's confidence is soaring, thinking he's about to absolutely demolish this guy. But his luck runs out fast. His purple aura just vanishes, probably because he got too cocky. He's totally out of gas and panting hard. Jae-young just watches as Rex pulls himself from the rubble, looking even more murderous than before, while Jae-young curses his terrible timing. Running out of steam at the worst possible moment is low-key his specialty. Just as Rex charges straight at him, a whole-ass truck comes flying and smashes right into the monster from the side. Hey, there's a reason adventurers have different classes. This absolute unit of a tanker just proved it by yeeting an entire truck to stop the beast. Everyone's got a role they're built for. But even that doesn't stop Rex. He shakes it off a second later, his rage now completely off the charts. He makes a beeline straight for Cho Kang. The tanker throws everything he's got into blocking the hit, even though his body is at its absolute limit. Tankers are programmed to hold the line until the very end. That's just how they're wired. As Rex closes in to finish Cho Kang off, Jae-young seizes the opportunity, landing a devastating punch square on Rex's chin. That's the damage dealer's whole job. They exist to strike hard the second even the tiniest opening appears. In that instant, the veins on Rex's face burst, and his head just explodes, finally putting the monster down for good. It turns out a vehicle transporting a bunch of monsters had been hijacked, leading to dozens of innocent people getting hurt. Chil Kang has to prop Jae-young up since the kid can barely stand. Seeing this, Chil Kang lets out a laugh, especially when the rescue squad shows up with perfect timing. It takes less than an hour for the whole world to hear about the insane fight. The thing that really spreads like wildfire, though, is the story of the two boys. Or rather, the two heroes who made it all happen. The news even reaches Bracken, who's still trying to figure out why his favorite smuggler, Alm, suddenly decided to switch careers. This flashes back to a time when little Jae-young hurt his elbow, and his dad was bandaging it up. Jae-young kept insisting it would heal on its own, but his father told him to relax and let him treat it properly. He explained that even a tiny wound can get way worse later on and cause a lot more pain. This made the little guy wonder if it hurts when his dad fights monsters and gets all bloody. His father gently admitted that, yeah, he gets scared just like Jae-young whenever he's injured or bleeding. He said he just tries harder to hide it, so he can do his job, because if he can't take the pain, someone else might get hurt in his place. From that day forward, Jae-young had always dreamed of being just like his dad. He always wanted to tell him that, but something held him back. Deep down, he had a feeling that his father didn't want him on the same dangerous path, and hoped he'd choose a different kind of life. Whenever his dad talked like that, his face was always filled with this deep sorrow and regret. Because of that look on his father's face, Jae-young once promised himself he'd never become an adventurer. He always figured that one day when he was older, he could ask his father what was really going on. But now, that day was never going to come. Soon after, Jae-young wakes up in a hospital bed feeling a weird sense of déjà vu. Out of the blue, a familiar voice teases him, asking if he's trying to sound all dramatic or something. Jae-young is totally thrown when he sees Zeke just chilling there, peeling an apple. Zeke explains that our boy passed out from sheer exhaustion, was that he'd made his choice. But just as he opens his mouth, Haryong is hit with a wave of agony that shoots through his entire body. Zeke immediately tells the kid to take it easy and warns him not to move a muscle for now, then says in a much softer voice that the injuries Jaryong had were bad enough to land anyone else in a coma, but thankfully the treatment was a success. He also reassures him he'll be back to 100% by the end of the month, and then flat out orders him to focus on resting up. Jaryong's gonna need every ounce of strength for what's coming, but right then he just smirks. He says a simple thank you is way too boring for a moment like this, and instead asks if he can shoot Zeke a question. Zeke can already see where this is going, and just flatly says yes, confirming that he did in fact know Jaryong's father. Zeke calmly explains that he and Jaryong's dad used to be colleagues, but in a flash, Jaryong makes a lightning-fast move, snatching a peeled apple slice right out of Zeke's hand, and surprisingly, Zeke doesn't even flinch. Even though he's playing it cool on the outside, he low-key did not expect such a sudden move from the kid. As Jaryong chows down on the apple, he admits he's curious to hear more about his old man. He also points out how Zeke's acting totally different now compared to their first meeting, which makes him suspect they were a lot more than just work buddies. Before Zeke can even get a word in, Jaryong does exactly what Blondie was probably bracing for and shoots a death glare right into his eyes. Jaryong says he could just tell him to get lost and die, or maybe even slice his arm with the knife in his hand just to get his point across. Zeke is clearly thrown off guard. Jaryong just mocks him, calling him out for trying so hard to act all serious and dramatic. With a heavy sigh, the sun-kissed half-blood admits he thought Jaryong would have a way more explosive reaction after finding out the truth. On that note, Jaryong says if that's the kind of meltdown he was hoping for, he should have come knocking 3 years earlier, back when his mind was just a storm of rage against the people who just watched his father suffer. He says he was already dead set on the path of revenge back then. When Zeke asks what changed, Jaryong says he's grown up and is focused on more important things now. Plus he jokes that he must have been off his rocker back then because no cap. He's nowhere near strong enough to take Blondie on right now, so chasing revenge with his current skill set would be pointless. He also mentions he's been laser-focused on covering his dad's hospital bills and is desperately trying to find a cure. In his mind, that's what truly matters more than anything else. Just like that, his resolve is solid as a rock, and if anyone dares to get in his way, he swears he'll tear through anything and anyone to keep moving forward. Hearing that, Zeke clarifies that he has zero intention of blocking his path. He's only here to figure out why Jaryong isn't legally registered as Yu Seong's son. On top of that, with how messed up his father's situation became, he just needs to know who was there looking out for him when it all went down. That's when Jaryong explains that Yu Seong raised him all by himself, a single father, doing everything on his own. His dad knew there were vultures out there who'd cause trouble if they discovered he had a son, so he kept it on the down low and raised Jaryong in total secrecy. Out of nowhere, Zeke asks if Jaryong knows anyone by the name of Daguna Wig. When Jaryong says he's never heard of them, Zeke drops an absolute bombshell. It's not just a name. It's the official title of a world-ending dragon, and it's the very source of the poison that's slowly killing his father. Not only that, this thing is the planet's most dangerous elder dragon, a monster that is still very much alive and kicking. Over the last few decades, that name alone has become a boogeyman that people fear all across the globe. A few years after the adhesion phenomenon started, the Otherworlders helped build the wall, and the number of adventurers exploded. Dungeons and monsters stopped being a code-red threat to humanity's existence, but there were always outliers. We're talking about beings so cracked they could tear through the walls like they were wet paper dragons, a species that was stronger, smarter, and sneakier than anything else out there. To make matters worse, this superior race had a seriously twisted mindset, openly showing hostility and looking down on humans. That's the scariest kind of enemy you can have. Not the ones who just hate you or ignore you, but the ones who actively hunt you down with the goal of wiping you off the map entirely. But these beings seriously lowballed what humans were capable of. The dragons just assumed the dungeons would be enough to bring humanity to its knees, but things didn't exactly play out how they'd planned. Zeke says that once the dragons started playing God, all law and order in their world just went up in smoke. They offered protection in exchange for absolute obedience. Jaryong jokes that maybe people should be thanking them, but Zeke sets him straight. He points out that it was the rise of adventurers that actually started clearing out the dungeons. When things didn't go according to the dragon's master plan, they completely lost their chill and went berserk. They decided to handle things themselves, using brute force to intimidate humanity. And that's exactly when Jaryong's father stepped into the chaos. This one guy had the perfect game plan, and the guts to see it through, proving that even dragons weren't invincible. That bombshell news went viral across the globe, completely changing the game. Jaryong pipes up saying he's heard those stories, and how dragons supposedly tucked tail and went into hiding, but Zeke immediately corrects him, saying dragons didn't hide, they just switched up their tactics. Those sneaky creatures can even shapeshift to blend in all because they realized raw power wasn't enough to wipe humanity off the map. So, the dragons started going undercover, melting into human society. That revelation absolutely shattered Jaryong's entire worldview. Blondie is only spilling this top-secret tea because Jaryong is Yusong's son and is dead set on becoming an adventurer himself. On top of that, he names Duganawig, one of the dragon's top dogs, as the primary target, the very same one Yusong was hunting before everything went south. If Jaryong can somehow clap this monster, there's a legit shot at creating an antidote for his father. To make that happen, Zeke tells him he has to level up and get way stronger as an adventurer. As for Zeke himself, his goal is to create the perfect opportunity for Jaryong to finish Duganawig once and for all. Later, Jaryong is posted up by his hospital room window, holding Zeke's card, while Zeke's final words echo in his head. He'd said Jaryong had every right not to trust him, and could just live his life however he wanted. But our boy is fired up, and 100% on board with this mission. He jumped at the chance without a second thought. Zeke reminds him it's not his call to make yet, because he already laid out the condition: climb to the top if you want in. He describes the dragons as cunning creatures hiding in plain sight, with human faces just biding their time. There's zero point in trying to find evidence to out them. That won't help catch them. Once they're exposed, they'll just cook up a new scheme and ghost everyone again. From there, things will only spiral, creating more fear and paranoia. To fix this whole mess, you have to be surgical, clean, quick, and precise, cutting out the problem at its root. Zeke tells Jaryong to move fast and figure out how to eliminate them before they get a chance to bounce and come back even stronger. Not only that, he whips out a card while revealing a secret team he's been building. For the last 2 years, he's been assembling a crew to take down Duganawig, a squad of trustworthy, skilled adventurers who are cracked enough to defeat a dragon. But he's crystal clear that if Jaryong isn't strong enough to stand with them, there's no spot for him on the team. Blondie isn't about to recruit some liability who could tank the whole mission and get everyone killed. Hearing this, Joryong figures they aren't the type to sit around and wait, so he asks what the time frame is. Turns out they've got about 2 years to track down Duganawig's current hideout, but there's a chance they might find it sooner, and Zeke confirms that they're not going to wait for him regardless of his choice. Join up or pretend this chat never happened. Zeke just wanted to make it known that he's hunting Duganawig either way. Later, Joryong can't stop shaking now that he knows there's an actual path to healing his father. He splashes his face with water trying to process it all and starts to wonder if deep down, he's terrified he won't be able to climb the ranks and get the green light to join this elite squad. He has a shot at revenge. But a part of him is scared he's going to blow it. He shoves that fear aside, his resolve hardening, as he promises himself he's going to do it. No matter what it takes, he's absolutely committed to reaching the top. To be honest, he finds the challenge kind of exhilarating. He finally has a real shot at the payback he's worked so hard for. Plus, he's been waiting his whole life for a team like this to even be possible without ever having a sliver of hope. And now, he finally has the power to do something about his situation. For the first time, he feels that fire building inside him. It fills Joryong with a rush of excitement and adrenaline. Out of nowhere, a woman barges in to check up on him, asking if he's feeling any pain. In his arm or whatever. Joryong tells her his muscles are aching, but she reassures him. She says the doctor will be by soon to explain everything. She reveals the soreness is going to linger for a bit, since they had to literally rebuild his arm from the ground up. That news totally floors him, especially when she mentions his arm was in a seriously critical state. When he got there, one wrong move could have meant losing the arm completely, but thanks to a high-ranking healer Zeke brought in, they were able to reconstruct it perfectly. After taking all that in, Joryong asks what happened to the friend who came in with him. She remembers that guy saying he actually checked out the very same day he arrived because his healing rate was completely off the charts. He's just trying to process how much time has passed when out of nowhere, the nurse gets all flustered and awkwardly asks if she can snag a picture with Joryong. Asks if she can take a photo with Joryong. He's low-key weirded out by it, but decides to just roll with it like a clueless doofus. After the photo op, Joryong asks if he's cleared to leave. The nurse gives him the green light, but warns him to steer clear of the main entrance to avoid any drama. When he asks her why, she drops a bombshell on him. The entire hospital is swarming with journalists and reporters who are desperate to get an interview with him. Joryong is completely clueless as to why he's suddenly hot stuff, so the nurse shows him a video that has totally blown up online. Turns out his epic showdown with Rex against the army of horned horrors got posted and went viral. The whole thing could have easily been a catastrophic disaster. But those two were just built different, managing to prevent what could have been hundreds of casualties. Since that video dropped, everyone has been dying to find out who he is, and people have been flooding the hospital for the past few days. After that, the nurse gives him a package his friends left, which has Sairam's handiwork written all over it. She'd left him a disguise, so he could ghost out the back of the hospital without causing a scene. Joryong figures Sairam probably juiced it up with some kind of identity-scrambling magic, and even included a rope for climbing, even though his muscles are still screaming in protest. The guy actually manages to rappel out of the building. As he leaves, the nurse promises to post their picture once he becomes a world-famous adventurer. Joryong just shoots her a warm smile before taking off. He finds Sairam's car and immediately starts complaining about her brilliant idea to use a rope. But Sairam, with zero chill, just says it was the best way to keep his identity on the down low. When he asks what's up, she admits she went on a little shopping spree for him. She also mentioned she had no clue what his size was, so she had to eyeball it, and yeah, she snagged him a new phone too. As she looks over, Joryong is giving her this full-on puppy dog smile, looking like he's about to burst into happy tears. On the other hand, Sairam can't believe he got tangled up in such an insane mess. But she's also impressed that he managed to take down that monster. Joryong just shrugs it off like it's another Tuesday for him, which makes sense considering his life is just a series of random chaotic events. Sairam says they should probably call it a day so he can rest, but there's no time for that. They need to get his measurements for new clothes today. When he argues that he has enough clothes already, Sairam calls him a buffoon and tells him she's talking about actual adventurer gear. This dude has no idea how lucky he is to be getting custom armor from the best tailor on the planet, who personally agreed to craft a set just for him. There are 3 main types of armor categorized by their materials. The first kind is fabric, which is basically just fancy clothes. When it comes to protection, it's definitely the weakest link, but it's super easy to modify in a bunch of different ways, and it syncs up perfectly with support magic. It's lightweight, flexible, and can be layered or enchanted, based on whatever the user needs. That's why it's the go-to for healers and mages who hang back in the rear lines. The second type is metal, and it goes without saying that it's the tankiest material for defense. But the problem is it weighs a ton, especially metal sourced from dungeons, which is way stronger and a whole lot heavier. You can't just wear this kind of armor, unless you have some serious strength and stamina to back it up. Some adventurers even go through insane training regimens, or chug mana-infused supplements just to get used to the weight. It offers a solid balance between tanking hits and staying mobiles, making it perfect for fast-paced brawls and intense skirmishes. Then Sairam moves on to leather, which sits right in that sweet middle tier of armor types. The material is durable and has just the right amount of weight, making it the perfect choice for a close-range DPS like him. Jaryong admits that fighting with zero armor is a total nightmare, a lesson he learned the hard way, all while he's booting up his new phone. Sairam then asks him how in the world he managed to pull off what he did during the Horned Horrors invasion, especially how the two of them wiped out so many of those monsters. Jaryong tells her that the video that went viral explains it better than he ever could, but Sairam points out that the recording starts in the middle of the action, and she only saw the parts where they were fighting one or two of the horned beasts at a time. He adds that his clash with the 5-star Horned Horror wasn't recorded at all. Jaryong thinks back to that 5-star Absolute unit and how insanely powerful it was. No cap, even if he and Chiel Gang had been perfectly prepared, they still would have gotten totally smoked. He still doesn't have a clue where that sudden burst of power came from. The moment just doesn't compute, like something else had completely taken over his body. Sairam presses him to explain how he did it, but he just says he's not sure. It just happened. That's really the only explanation he's got. Sairam just glares at him, thinking there's no way she can just buy that explanation, especially when, bruh, even top-tier adventurers need a whole raid party to take on a beast that cracked. But when she looks at him, he doesn't seem like he's hiding jack squat. She just watches him goofing around with his new phone. And low-key, she's wondering if he actually soloed a 5-star monster. She tells him to watch his back, warning him that things are about to pop off and he needs to get. How serious this is. Ain't nothing funny about what's coming his way. She points out that the media already swarmed Chiel Gang and the poor guy's been completely stuck, doing non-stop interviews for the last 4 days straight. But even with all that pressure, he never once dropped Jaryong's name. Jaryong remembers asking Chiel Gang for a solid to just play dumb and say he wasn't sure what went down that day, because he didn't want the whole world knowing his business. Sairam just huffs, saying the two of them are acting like best buds already. She stresses that this has to stay on the down low until he officially transfers schools, but as she keeps going on and on about how deep she dived into his stats and how messy everything is, Jaryong just slides into his DMs and messages the boss, setting up a meet for later that night. She's still hammering on about how tough it's gonna be, but he claps back, arguing that the only reason it's hard is because a bunch of unqualified wannabes applied and gummed up the works. He tells her he'll be totally fine, especially since she managed to get in. As they walk, she admits he's clearly top of the food chain out of all the groups, but she says he should try to see where the others are coming from. He asks if she's talking about people teaming up for the exam, and Sairam starts breaking it down. She explains how over the last few years, their school's been flooded with second-gen adventurers. Most of them have at least one parent in the business. And since all the parents are already buddies, the whole system is basically one giant clique. There are all these under-the-table deals between families that give their kids a massive leg up, helping them lock in parties way ahead of time. Sairam tells him that over half the student body is already part of these pre-made crews. He needs to wrap his head around what's going to happen when the secret gets out. Once he becomes the main character, he's going to have a huge target on his back. But Jaryong isn't about to let that get to him. He says he'll climb to the top on his own, no matter what. He's ready to do anything to smoke the competition and secure his spot. He glances around and asks where the bathroom is, and Sairam just points him in the right direction, telling him to meet her back in the hall. She then heads over to the reception desk, where the person in charge hits her with some bad news. Apparently, the president can't make their meeting because of some last-minute emergency. She's not buying it. She points out that his schedule is packed on every other day. The receptionist just says the president will pay the contract cancellation fee. Totally frustrated, Sairam argues they can't just ghost her appointment without so much as a heads up. But right then, a new voice cuts in. It's Han Gayun, the current student body president of Yongsan High. She strolls up and tells Sairam that she should just give up her meeting with the president, her uncle, for her, and that's the best deal she's gonna get. Sairam tries to argue, but her mind starts racing, thinking about how Han Gayun is basically seen as the queen bee of their generation. She's this idealized figure that nobody can touch. That's when Jaryong walks back in and says, there's nothing they can do. Sairam has an emergency. As a senior from their school, she has every right to fight for her spot. He looks straight at Gayun and tells her to quit with the power trip and just bounce. The receptionist glances nervously from Jaryong over to Gayun, not knowing what to do. Gayun lets out a little smirk. She says, Jaryong seems like a real hotshot, and then asks if he can actually back it up. Saram tries to jump in, but just as Gayun's expression flickers for a split second, Saram suddenly feels a razor-sharp pain. It felt like a paper cut, but dialed up to 100, slicing right across her skin. She flinches and yelps, totally blindsided by the sudden attack. Gayun just cocks her head to the side and says, It's weird asking why was she even hearing Saram's voice. Saram looks down, her eyes wide with shock. She's questioning if that pain was even real, or if it was just some freaky mind game from Gayun's intimidation skill. Gayun's face stays ice cold as she says she hadn't asked anything from her. Shambir, and calls her Miss Dead last. She tells her to stop stepping out of line and shut her mouth if she knows what's good for her. Her voice was pure poison, and each word was like a perfectly aimed dagger. That's when Jaryong steps up casually, listing off his age, his blood type, and his address. Then he tops it off by saying his favorite food is stir-fried sausages with veggies. He asks if that much info is enough, or if he missed anything important. His tone is super chill, almost like he's joking, but you can feel the cold steel right under the surface. He then says he's getting ready to take the transfer exam for Yangsa High School, but adds that it's kinda cringe to see seniors trying so hard to act like a bunch of thugs, trying to enforce some bootleg hierarchy like they're in some old-school gangster flick where delinquents own the halls. Gayun just bursts into this crazy, unhinged laughter. And with another tiny twitch, Jaryong suddenly feels the same sharp sting of an invisible blade. A jolt of agony rips through his body, making him stagger as he clutches his ribs where the pain just exploded. Meanwhile, Gojoyan just smiles and says she doesn't mind people who are blunt, but he's already disqualified himself right out of the gate. She asks if he's actually serious about transferring to Yangsa, and if he has any clue how arrogant he sounds for someone who's basically an unqualified defective product. No cap, her words hit like a spray of shrapnel, sharp and impossible to just shrug off. But Jaryong just straightens up, firing that same piercing energy right back in her face. This totally catches Guyun off guard. She stands there frozen solid as he asks if that's her little trick, casually mentioning he's only had one lesson himself. But he's not so sure she'd enjoy his version of it. His eyes are gleaming with a raw challenge, his body tensed up like a tiger ready to pounce. Just then a sharp voice cuts through the tension, calling Guyun's name. It's Sung Woo, the president, stepping out of his office with a look that could kill. He immediately demands to know what the hell she thinks she's doing, reminding her she can't just barge in whenever she wants while he's working. She can't just treat the place like it's her personal playground. The hallway, which was thick with hostility a second ago, is now crackling with authority. He brings up how she just stormed into his office and even told the receptionist to lie to Saram that he was busy. He reminds her she was in hot water just last week and warns her to stop causing so much drama, asking if she's actively trying to drive her father crazy. Then he turns to the others and gives a polite bow, apologizing on behalf of his niece, and admitting that she's basically impossible to control. Saram quickly steps in, telling him it's totally fine, and that he doesn't need to apologize. But in the back of her mind, she's wondering if Guyun was just being reckless, or if this is just how she operates. It's a huge relief that things didn't escalate any further, but the whole confrontation still left her completely rattled. Guyun is even more of a menace than she imagined, and the thought just keeps replaying in her head as her heart pounds against her ribs. Her uncle scolds her again, telling her to finally grow up, while she just nods with an expression that screams, whatever. Saram just watches, thinking about how Guyun only ever deals with the absolute elites. If you aren't on the student council's level, you don't exist to her. That's when Jaryong signals for her to come closer, and quietly asks who Guyun is, noting that she definitely doesn't seem like just a regular senior. His voice is low, like a rumble before an earthquake. Saram leans in and whispers back that Guyun is the student body president. And what's more, she holds all the power among the students at Yangsa High. At adventurer training schools like theirs, every student is given a temporary license. This pass lets them team up with professional adventurers for low-difficulty explorations and quests. They usually do this stuff during holidays or school breaks. It's basically their way of preparing for the real world, giving them a small taste of what it's like to be a full-time professional. These field assignments aren't just for practice, they're a full-blown rite of passage. But there's one massive exception to this rule. The student council at Yangsa. They're made up of the most crack students in the entire school, and they're unofficially recognized as being on the same level as professional raiders. They even have the authority to give their opinions straight to the board of directors and can join actual pro-raid parties. Everybody calls them the rankers. Jaryong asks if that means Guyun is 2 years older than them, since she's the president and a senior. Saram whispers back that's how it's supposed to work, but Guyun is actually a junior. She straight up took the position from the previous president. Jaryong looks totally baffled and asks what she means by that. Saram reminds him that their school only cares about one thing: pure skill. Students can join the school council as early as the first semester of their junior year. That's exactly what Guyun did the second she became a junior. And on top of that, she immediately drew her sword, kicking off the biggest incident in the school's entire history. Guyun challenged every single senior council member, and before her first semester was even over, she had defeated every last one of them, including 10 former presidents, becoming the youngest student council president in the school's history. Just as Guyun turns to walk away, Jaryong stops her dead in her tracks and tells her to make a bet, adding that he heard she's in a hurry. Saram is completely stunned. Jaryong goes on saying that from what he's heard, she sounds like a pretty big deal at their school. And he's sure she had her reasons for throwing a tantrum in front of her juniors, so one little bet shouldn't be a problem for her. His voice has this insane boldness to it, like a man who's already halfway across a burning rope bridge and has zero plans of turning back. Saram tries to stop him, but Guyun just looks at Jaryong and asks if this means she'll have to give up her objective if she loses. Jaryong smirks and says she's a quick learner. He tells her there's a certain technique known as snatching steps. It's a basic player versus player training drill for adventurers with its roots in core martial arts. The rules are brutally simple. If you make contact with your opponent first, or you trap them in a spot where they can't dodge, you win. It's all about timing movement and above all else, pressure. Then he tells her that if he loses, he'll give up his appointment slot. But if she loses, he's taking over as the new student body president. Saram is watching this go down, thinking he's completely lost his mind. But at the same time, she knows Guyun has zero chill and would never back down from a challenge like this. And right on cue, Guyun smirks and says it sounds like fun. And just like that, she takes the bet. We cut to the durability testing room, where Jaryong is facing off against a calm and totally prepared Guyun. The two of them are locked in a death stare, the tension so thick you could slice it with a knife. On the sidelines, Saram just watches with her arms crossed, feeling like she's watching two absolute psychos about to go completely feral. She flashes back to just a few minutes ago, when she was desperately trying to talk him out of it. She told him it wasn't too late to quit, that Mr. Han seemed like a reasonable guy who'd probably let them off the hook if they just apologized and dipped. She even gestured to his busted arm, reminding him he was in no condition to be fighting anyone. And even if he somehow pulled off a miracle, Guyun wasn't the kind of person to just hand over her title, but he just cut her off, straight up admitting he already knew he couldn't beat her. That stopped her cold. He said even at 100%, the odds would still be stacked against him. There's just no denying how cracked Guyun is. So, Saram asked him, if you know you're going to lose, then what's the freaking point? Why not just walk away? But he just grinned, saying he totally gets why she's freaking out. He told her that her panic was valid, but she just needed to trust him on this. He promised that even though this whole thing looks reckless, it was going to be worth it in the end. Now watching Jaryong in the ring, his words are just echoing in her head. She can't figure out what he could possibly gain from a fight he's guaranteed to lose. For a hot second, she thinks maybe he's trying to get on Guyun's good side by letting her absolutely destroy him, but she immediately throws that idea out the window. He definitely doesn't seem like the type to suck up to anyone. He's no brown-noser, and that's not the vibe she gets from him at all. Her train of thought gets completely derailed when Mr. Han speaks up next to her, letting out a tired sigh. He says he's beyond embarrassed by this whole situation, explaining that Guyun is supposed to be the freaking leader of the student council, yet she's always acting like she's one bad day away from jumping off the deep end. He gives Saram a slight bow, apologizing again, but she quickly waves her hands, telling him it's not his fault. She insists that Jaryong brought this all on himself. She says he's just as ridiculously stubborn, and none of this makes any sense. Mr. Han glances at the ring and quietly says that, even so, he doesn't think Jaryong's doing this for nothing. He admits he doesn't know the boy well, but from what he's seen, Jaryong looks like a guy who knows exactly what he wants. Back in the fighting pit, Guyun announces she won't be using her hands either, claiming it's only fair. Jaryong just smirks and brushes it off, saying he doesn't care what she does. He adds that she's probably just trying to line up an excuse for when she inevitably loses. Then in the blink of an eye, she's right in front of him. He barely dodges by a hair's breadth. The entire room is frozen in shock. Mr. Han and Saram are just staring completely stunned, but for very different reasons. Saram's mind is racing. Guyun isn't even using that much power, but her speed is absolutely terrifying. She was so fast, Saram's eyes couldn't even track the movement. Guyun's raw aggression and speed are seriously rattling her. The snatching steps technique is meant to be a careful defensive martial art. To make contact, you have to take a calculated risk. That's the core of the move. But Guyun doesn't seem to give a damn about risk. She just charges in with nothing but pure precision and speed, letting her insane skills back up her arrogance. Sarum feels a chill run down her spine as she watches Guyun's body move, like water flowing downhill, effortless fast and impossible to pin down. Her heart skips a beat. Then Mr. Han's voice cuts through her spiraling thoughts. He says he might not be the first one to ask, but he's wondering if she's really sure Jaryong is just a normal student, trying to transfer into Yongsa High. He thinks back to the data he'd seen. Sure, Jaryong looked impressive on paper, but seeing him in person, he's realizing this kid might be way more than anyone ever expected. He thinks Jaryong isn't acting like this out of pride, or because he's underestimating Guyun. No, he just wants to understand her. He knows Guyun is already on a completely different level than other teenagers, and could easily wipe the floor with a low-ranked adventurer, but he wants to see it for himself, to see just how far she's willing to go, and how he can close that gap. Not to beat her, just to catch up. Jaryong studies her movements carefully, then he straight up copies them and launches his own attack. She just smirks, saying it's a refreshing change, to finally have someone who can actually put up a real fight. She makes sure to say loud enough for everyone to hear that it hasn't taken her this long to beat someone since she started high school. She's low-key, shocked he's lasted this long, especially considering his current condition. Model. He's gasping for air, dead silent, when Guyun asks him if his arm is the only thing that's jacked up. She points out that his movements and stamina have got to be less than half of his usual, but he just cracks a smile and says she wouldn't know. According to him, she's never seen him go all out at full power. Guyun just smirks, firing back that she knows he was a whole lot faster, especially when he was throwing down with those horned horrors. She even admits she's probably rewatched the tapes of him 100 times in the last 3 days. He suggests they just call it a draw for now. They can have their real showdown after he gets into the academy and is fully healed. Because, let's be real, it'd be a massive waste of talent to end things like this. But just then Jaryong stands up and says, "Damn, she's really something else." He admits she's got a sharp eye, but is also weirdly overconfident, and maybe she doesn't really get what's happening here. Then he drops the bomb. He doesn't do draws, and he has zero intention of giving up, so they need to quit dragging this out. It's time to fight for real, now that he's gotten a read on her. Everyone's thinking he's just bluffing. The dude has nothing to gain from this fight, and already passed up the best shot he was ever gonna get. Guyun gets into her stance, teasing him about what a bad move that was. She says he just showed everyone how dumb he is. As he takes his stance, Sarah thinks he might finally be making the first move. Moving like the wind, Jaryong blitzes towards her with a full power kick. Guyun actually manages to dodge, which leaves even her looking shocked. Mr. Han realizes that Jaryong wasn't just conserving his energy. His goal wasn't just to get a feel for Guyun's power level. No, he understood in that moment that Jaryong had already downloaded all of Guyun's attack patterns. It became crystal clear that Jaryong's goal wasn't to win at all. The only thing on his mind was to completely rip off Guyun's entire skill set. He glided past her with no problem and announced that he had figured out the secret to her insane dodging technique. Jaryong started working as a smuggler when he was just a kid, but there are certain lines he just won't cross. He got back into position and called Guyun out, telling her not to zone out on him. He said they needed to keep this going because he still had way more to show her. The one and only rule he lives by is that he never makes a deal that doesn't pay off for him. Technique isn't just about a single, mega powerful attack that can one-shot an opponent. It's about your posture and your movement, all perfectly tuned to bring out your absolute best. It's based on what you're trying to do and covers everything from how you manage your breathing to the tiniest little step you take. Nailing these details takes ages. Some people spend their entire lives grinding for that experience. They learn through trial and error, and what they figure out gets passed down to the next generation, and the cycle just keeps going. It doesn't matter how much of a natural-born genius you are. You can't beat generations of experience in just a few years without some kind of cheat code. It's not just about how you throw a punch or swing a sword, it's how you live. Every single movement tells a story of endless practice, patience, and sheer grit. And even though Jaryong was an absolute beast who kept leveling up all on his own when he hit 17 and stopped growing, he slammed into a hard wall. To get any better, he had to figure out a way to smash through his limits. He gets into a fighting stance and asks what Guyun's waiting for, reminding her she was the one who said they could have a rematch. You know, once he gets into her school or whatever. He adds that if he were in her shoes, he'd be thrilled to get a chance to school a future freshman. But hey, if she's got nothing left to prove, he can totally understand that too. Guyun is speechless for a hot second, then a smirk creeps onto her face as she reminds her uncle about that favor he asked for. The one from the last time she caused a scene. The one about the raiders wanting to sign a contract and how he told her to go meet them. That way she wouldn't start off on the wrong foot with people in the industry. She looks at him and says she'll take that offer, but in return, he can't try to stop her from doing whatever the hell she wants from now on. Her uncle tries to protest, asking what she's planning, but she's already turned her full attention back to Jaryong, asking if he still wants to see how she dodges. Her breathing is steady, completely controlled. It's not rushed or heavy. Every breath is carefully measured to save energy while keeping her perfectly calm. In a blink, she's right up in his grill, throwing a high kick aimed straight for his face, basically daring him to try and dodge it. Jaryong's gut tells him to move right, but he forces himself to go left instead. There's a natural flow to how a person moves, you see. Every action connects to the one before and the one after, so people tend to subconsciously predict the next move without even thinking. Hong Ae-yoon's big secret is that she completely shatters that flow. She straight up skips certain movements in the sequence, which totally messes with the eyes of anyone watching. This makes it nearly impossible to predict her next move. It also makes her seem way faster than she actually is. Even something as simple as how she shifts her weight is part of the illusion. It's a technique that's been honed to a razor's edge, the result of years of silent, relentless grinding, and it's the signature move Ga-eun's own father created. He perfected it 2 decades ago, becoming a legend in the process, but just as she's about to flex, Jae-young counters. He busts out a move he calls strobe motion, and as Ga-eun holds her ground, a spark ignites in her eyes. It's not just determination, it's a playful, come at me bro, a challenge for him to push past his own ceiling. Mr. Han is floored thinking about how Jae-young didn't just use the same technique twice. He even put his own spin on it, completely different from Ga-eun's version. Being able to copy a move on the fly like that is basically impossible. Especially this fast because it requires insane flexibility, god-tier reflexes, and most importantly, perfect timing. If you're missing even one of those ingredients, the whole thing just falls apart. This is a rare moment, both brutal and strangely respectful, like 2 apex predators sizing each other up. Mr. Han flashes back to his early 20s when he first learned strobe motion. He was in his prime at the top of his game in every way. Even then, it took him 3 solid months just to get the feel for it. Meanwhile, Jae-young just pulled it off mid-battle. And he's doing this while fighting a monster like Ga-eun, not even at his best. No cap, Jae-young is in terrible shape right now. This fight has left him completely gassed, but despite running on fumes, he keeps pushing forward, lunging at Ga-eun with her own damn technique. He has one single goal in mind: get stronger. This isn't exactly your typical training arc. He's finally found his motivation, a purpose to chase, and a path to walk, even though his entire body is screaming in protest. But his determination is burning hotter than ever, as if the pain itself is just fuel proving he's alive, leveling up and evolving. There's a weird kind of high that comes from that self-improvement, so he just blocks out the pain and exhaustion stalking towards Ga-eun with careful, clever moves. The tiny moments between their attacks feel like they're stretching out in his mind, slowing everything down into a surreal bubble of pure focus. Then a loud thump echoes through the room, and Mr. Han shoots up from his seat. Ga-eun immediately reminds him of his promise not to interfere, adding that, luckily it looks like things are already settled. She glances over at Jae-young, who's now sprawled on the ground. At the exact same time, they both declare that the other one is the winner, leaving everyone absolutely speechless. She tells him she broke her rule about not using her hands, which means he won. But he shoots back that those were her own rules, so technically he's the one who lost. He then adds that he gets why she's embarrassed for not sticking to her word. But you don't have to force it, he says. You're that strong. This catches Ga-eun completely off guard, and Mr. Han steps in saying it isn't really about winning or losing. He admits he probably should have stopped the fight from the get-go, and suggests they call it a tie, or maybe just a scouting match. They can have a real fight once Jae-young is back in proper fighting condition, and Jae-young immediately agrees. Ga-eun then shouts at him to listen up, telling him he had better show his face at the school. If you don't get accepted, she warns, or if some other scrub beats you before I do, there's nowhere you can run from me. This whole thing leaves Jae-young feeling incredibly satisfied. He's finally met someone his own age whose talent is on a completely different planet. That clash was more than just fists and feet colliding. It was a storm of conviction experience and raw ambition. After it's all over, Ga-eun asks Saram for her name. She then asks if she's Jae-young's sponsor, and apologizes for assuming Saram was just some weak adventurer. But she admits, I guess you're not completely incompetent. Jae-young had finally met his match, and he wasn't the only one feeling this new thrill. For the first time, Ga-eun walked out of that room with a bright, genuine smile on her face. As soon as she's gone, Jae-young collapses onto the sofa, panting hard. "Bruh, I think I'm actually dying from exhaustion," he groans. Saram looks at him totally bewildered. "You're not on your way to the hospital yet," she deadpans. "No one forced you to do something so ridiculous." Jae-young just begs her not to bring it up, complaining that he's completely wiped out and feels like he's about to puke. Saram admits she didn't expect the fight to end like that, especially with him accepting defeat so easily. Honestly, she says, "I think you're the real winner." She's the one who set that no hands rule, but Jae-young disagrees. He points out that he broke the rules first when he ditched his arm sling. From that moment on, their little spar became something much more serious. For both of them, he was the one who crossed the line first. Saram thinks back and realizes she definitely felt the mood shift right then. Jae-young adds that he went 100% with that last attack, and if it had landed, it would have been a whole lot more than just painful. "Though I knew she'd dodge," he says, "and if I were in her shoes, I would have used my hands too. She had no other choice." He thinks it was only fair. This gets Saram wondering what it would be like if they fought, when both of them were at their absolute best. Jae-young just laughs, reminding her that she was the one who asked why he did it in the first place. He suddenly shoots up from his chair, and when Saram asks what's going on, he just says, "They're here." Right on cue, the office door swings open, and in walks Mr. Han with a delivery guy saying sorry for the wait, he brought them some grub. As Saram and Jae-young start digging in, Mr. Han explains that after all the chaos his niece dragged him into, he figured he should treat her to a proper meal. Jae-young tells Mr. Han he's not picky at all, and is all about quantity over quality, to which Saram points out that this dude just inhaled a large pizza in under 2 minutes. She explains that your average adventurer, especially a melee fighter, needs to pack in at least 5 times the calories of a normal person. Plus she remembers Jae-young hadn't eaten a single thing before this because he'd been knocked out cold. Mr. Han leans in towards Saram and explains that what they work with at Atelier isn't just regular leather, it's on a whole other level. He says it's not the basic cellulose fiber that most other shops use. Instead, their materials come from fibers they harvest themselves. And these aren't just any fibers, they're harvested from specific high-danger monsters like the bandit spider. He tells her they process these fibers with their own patented technology, so no one else can replicate it. They create custom blends of ingredients depending on who's going to wear the armor, and once the final coating is applied, the textiles they make are way stronger and lighter than any leather out there. He turns to Jae-young saying that for a guy like him, they already know the perfect kind of armor to build and the exact ratios to use, all based on data from the Jin Song Group's research facility and what he saw today. But there's one tiny problem. As he said before, the final step is the coating process. This is where they treat the armor with oil to seriously boost its durability and other resistances. Saram chimes in that this is exactly why she specifically requested grade A material for the coating, no matter what it cost. Mr. Han has to break the bad news getting grade A oil right now is pretty much impossible. He explains they normally get their oil from raven whales in the deep sea, and their supply, while limited, has always been stable because of an exclusive deal. That is until a freak anomaly popped up recently that's completely stopped them from catching any raven whales. But he says he has an alternative. He guarantees the performance difference won't even be noticeable, but he's straight up that it's a clear breach of their contract. He admits it's his mistake for overlooking the supply issue, and says he'll totally understand if this means he loses the job. He even apologizes for the whole situation. Saram tries to tell him it's too late to back out now, but he offers again, as saying he can pull a few strings and introduce her to a craftsman who's way more skilled than he is. And he promises to take full responsibility for the screw-up. But Saram just says that if Jae-young is cool with it, then she is too. At this, Mr. Han stands up and declares that since they're putting their trust in him, he's just gonna have to make the most badass armor he's ever created. Looking back, he admits he's kicking himself for not going on that big hunt last week. He was really hyped for it and thinks he might have found his dream material there. He asks if she's ever heard of a monster known as the Sky Hornet. Saram says she knows about their royal jelly. Mr. Han explains that's what they're famous for, but among armor designers, there's another material they consider priceless. It's called black wax, a unique substance the hornets produce to help their queen grow and to protect her once she's mature. He says if he could use that for the coating, the result would be something absolutely legendary. Jae-young, who's been scrolling on his phone, looks up and asks if this is what it looks like showing his screen to Mr. Han. He explains that he used to have pictures of it, but his phone got smashed, so this is just a sketch he drew from memory. Mr. Han, totally floored, asks if he's actually seen it in real life. Jae-young just points at Saram and says he saw it at her house. He conveniently leaves out the more complicated details, which leaves Saram completely speechless. Meanwhile, Jaewon takes a call from Jaryong. He's getting the full rundown on all the important info. Jaewon asks if he's eaten enough, and Jaryong says he ate a lot but is somehow still hungry. Jaewon tells him to eat more before they meet up, and says he needs to visit someone at the hospital as he looks over at a patient in a coma. Just then, Zeke walks into the room, and the two former co-workers come face to face. Jaewon greets Zeke with zero warmth. He warns him not to make a lot of noise near the patient, but Zeke just scoffs, saying he doesn't care. That sets Jaewon off, and he snaps back that he doesn't give a damn what Zeke cares about. He better do as he's told, then calls him a snake. Back at the workshop, Saram is still shook about the whole black wax thing. Jaryong asks if she really didn't find it in that box from when they first met, which immediately triggers a lecture from her. She starts going off on him, saying he should have told her he was hiding something that valuable, instead of just dropping it on her out of the blue. Jaryong just adds that he figured she didn't know what it was for, and then thanks her for playing along with his little act. Saram jokes about how their plans always go sideways, then asks if he's free, but nope. Jaryong says he's got somewhere he needs to be. Right on cue, a call comes in from her uncle Zeke, and she dips out to take it, while Jaryong shoots a text to someone named Han. Just then, Seung-woo walks in and asks if Saram already bounced. Jaryong says she's just on a call, but Seung-woo shrugs, saying he's only there for a smoke break anyway. Seung-woo then decides to school Jaryong on the name of that move he copied. It's called strobe motion. He explains it was actually invented by Gayun's now retired father, with Seung-woo's own help to perfect it. Feeling kinda dumb for not knowing the history behind the move, Jaryong quickly bows his head, apologizing for being clueless, and promises he'll never use the technique again without Seung-woo's permission. But Seung-woo's like, nah, chill, that's not what I meant. He clarifies that the move doesn't belong to just one person, and even though they rarely teach their skills, anyone who manages to figure it out on their own is more than welcome to use it. They both agree that the skill itself is absolutely cracked. Seung-woo admits that he used to think Jaryong was just some punk who lacked the basics because he'd never had any formal training. But after what he witnessed yesterday, no cap, his mind is blown. He can't believe Jaryong is self-taught, and tells him he needs to put in the time and effort to sharpen his skills. That alone would make getting into Yangsa High School a walk in the park, or even turn him into one of the best adventurers ever. However, Seung-woo gives him a serious warning. This world has zero chill for people like Jaryong. A lot of folks will recognize his talent, but a whole lot more will get jealous and try to tear him down. When Jaryong asks if he's being told to just lay low, Seung-woo tells him to do the exact opposite. He wants Jaryong to flex his skills. He tells him to show the world in his true self, so they have no choice but to put some respect on his name. His advice: keep on stealing as many skills as he possibly can. Never apologize for it, and make everyone else feel like an idiot, forever underestimating him. Because at the end of the day, only the strongest get to decide what's right and wrong. Seung-woo tells Jaryong that the only way to truly make a stolen technique his own is by upgrading it and evolving it into something new. He laughs, adding, he probably shouldn't be giving this kind of advice as an adult, but that's just how the game is played for adventurers. He even mentions his niece Han Gayun, admitting that while he can guide and teach her, he can never fully control her because she's just built different. Suddenly, Saram rushes back over, telling Jaryong her uncle is calling for him as she hands him the phone. She explains that her uncle somehow knew Jaryong was with her and now insists on speaking to him directly. On the phone, Uncle Zeke says he hadn't planned to chat with Jaryong this soon, but he desperately needs him to come over, like right now. Jaryong is totally caught off guard that Saram's uncle wants to meet, but he agrees to go. When they arrive, they're standing in front of a completely wrecked, abandoned building. It's hiding a secret passage that leads straight into the dungeons. Saram is in total disbelief, but Jaryong explains that this isn't the only secret entrance. There are tons of these unofficial tunnels. Most of them are hidden away in old closed-down subway stations. He tells her each one is controlled by a different group, and this one happens to belong to his boss. As they walk further in, they see Zeke standing with a shirtless, totally jacked guy next to him. Zeke tells Jaryong that he never wanted to call him, but his boss refused to accept Zeke's help. Jaryong can feel the tension between Zeke and this boss guy. He wonders if they got into a fight right before he showed up. The dude next to Zeke jokes that he should have told Jaryong to bring an extra shirt. He sizes him up and asks if he's the kid who managed to beat Zeke. He then tells Jaryong he's become a legend among the raiders. They're calling him the teenager scarier than a high-rank monster, and adds that even the captain wants to meet him. Zeke cuts in saying their business is done. He's not staying a second longer than he has to, so he grabs Saram and leaves, leaving Jaryong all alone to meet with Jaewon. After they're gone, Jaryong steps inside and sees Jaewon sitting on a ledge. He breathes a sigh of relief, just glad to see that his boss is okay. He says he was worried Jae-won might be in some serious trouble. Without even turning around, Jae-won complains about how his body and pride have been absolutely crushed. He calls Zeke a coward and says he regrets not figuring out sooner that Zeke didn't come alone. That's how he was so easily lured here. Then he asks Jae-ryong to grab a light from the fire down below. He wants to light a cigarette. Jae-ryong is completely shook when he looks down and sees the whole town is on fire, asking what the hell happened during their fight. Jae-won tells him he tried to barbecue Zeke alive, but the guy with him had insane balance and defensive skills. He points out that the guy isn't even a tanker, but says he could never be as good as Jae-ryong's father, not even if he trained for another 10 years. Jae-ryong tries to start a conversation about something important, but Jae-won cuts him off. He says he already knows Jae-ryong wants to quit the smuggling business and that he has his permission to leave. However, if Jae-ryong wants to become an adventurer after he quits, there's one condition. When Jae-ryong asks what it is, Jae-won tells him he wants him to master everything he's about to be taught over the next month, but warns him that if he fails, his dream of becoming an adventurer is dead in the water. He makes it clear this won't be like anything Jae-hyung's natural talent can handle, revealing that he's going to teach him actual magic. Lim Ji-won lurches to his feet, and a cigarette tumbles from his slack jaw. Jae-hyung says that he can't even begin to process what's happening, but then Ji-won suddenly stumbles, and Jae-hyung has to dive forward to catch him. Johan starts gasping for air and shaking uncontrollably. And when Jae-hyung tells him he should have stayed seated, he's shocked by how ice-cold the man's body is. So he decides to just carry him, which triggers a flashback to when Lim Johan was 26 having a serious chat with his father. Yu-sung at their home. Yu-sung is talking about how he would have loved to just grind coffee beans and brew coffee as a hobby, back when he was an active-duty hunter, but Jae-hwan hates the way his dad says it, making it sound like he's already checked out. Yu-sung insists that he has retired, and that his only job now is to get better, but Jae-hwan cuts him off, reminding him they still have to catch Do Gwon-ju. He argues that all they need to do is launch a raid, but Yu-sung points out they still can't touch him, because Do Gwon-ju knows all about his poor health and is definitely laying low. Jae-hwan flies into a rage asking if his father is really telling him to let that monster get away with everything he's done, especially since it's not just about Do Gwon-ju himself, but also about the disgusting rumors he spread about Yu-sung. Jae-hwan declares that the moment Yu-sung is back on his feet, they're launching a raid to finally nail Do Gwon-ju. Just then, a little kid version of Jae-hyung wanders into the room, having just woken up, which completely startles Jae-hwan. Following Yu-sung's lead, Jae-hyung greets his uncle. When Jae-hwan realizes this kid is Yu-sung's actual son, the guy is completely floored. After Jae-hyung goes outside to play, Yu-sung tells Jae-hwan that his clock is ticking. He talks about the painkillers Zeke gave him, explaining that he's building up a tolerance to them. On top of that, his general health and all his senses are just going to keep getting worse. He grimly states that within 3 or 4 years, he probably won't even be able to recognize people's faces. Jae-hwan insists he won't let it get that bad, but Yu-sung interrupts him to ask for a huge favor. He wants Jae-hwan to look after Jae-hyung. He begs him, saying that if anything happens, Jae-hyung shouldn't have to live a life like his. Instead, he wants Jae-hwan to help Jae-hyung find real, genuine happiness. This is the first time Yu-sung has ever shown such weakness, openly asking for help like this, so Jae-hwan has no choice but to agree. Back in the present, Jae-hwan wakes up in Jae-hyung's bed and asks what time it is. Realizing he's been out cold for 3 hours, he asks if Jae-hyung let Zeke treat his injuries. Jae-hyung flatly refuses, explaining that instead of taking him to a hospital, he just jabbed him with a first aid potion syringe. It's the exact same kind Jae-hwan gave him on his very first day as a 14-year-old. Jae-hyung mentions the syringe is designed to detox the body and restore a person's health for an hour or two. Johan casually tells him he can just buy more later since it's a high-end item made for adventurers. As Jae-hyung begins to walk away, Johan calls out to him, teasing that once he gets a taste of stuff like that, he won't be able to stop. He then adds that he's low-key, relieved he doesn't have to foot Yu-sung's medical bills anymore, but still, it doesn't sit right with him that Jae-hyung is working as a smuggler when he was supposed to be the one taking care of him. Jae-hyung just shrugs it off. He points out that his dad never actually paid Jae-hwan to be his guardian, and besides, he needs to build his own skills to look after his father himself. Jae-hwan can't help but laugh, surprised that Jae-hyung held on to that potion for so long. He jokes about it, adding he would have kept paying for Yu-sung's bills, even if Jae-hyung hadn't taken the smuggling gig. Jae-hyung replies that he already knew that, which is exactly why he took the job, without a second thought. Jae-hwan feels like he's failed his friend by letting his son become a criminal, but Jae-hyung insists it was his call, and his alone. He says he would have just found some other shady way to get by if Jae Hwan hadn't stepped in. When Jae Hyung asks why he was so quick to help him with the job, Jae Hwan explains that his goal wasn't just to stop him from becoming an adventurer like his dad wanted. It was also because he couldn't stand the thought of Jae Hyung's insane talent going to waste while he lived some boring, normal life. Then Jae Hwan drops a bomb admitting he despises the world. He tells Jae Hyung about the people who torpedoed Yoo Sung's reputation, who convinced everyone to turn their backs on him, and the spineless ones like Zeke, who did absolutely nothing, even though they knew the truth. Jae Hwan says, with pure venom, that he hates every single one of them, and wishes they would all just drop dead. Jae Hyung tries to say something about Zeke, but Jae Hwan cuts him off, saying Zeke will never catch the Gwonju because his plans are a joke. He explains that it's not just about sacrificing adventurers to catch a hidden dragon. The dragon itself would have a million contingency plans to avoid capture. And if dragons who are way more powerful than humans suddenly vanish, the entire world order would collapse. Only a handful of Zeke's raiders are actually prepared for that reality, because most people aren't willing to risk it all for a cause they don't even believe in. Jae Hwan adds that the higher-ups will keep hamstringing Zeke as long as he's chained to the law. And if he fails, they'll face the same kind of chaos Yoo Sung put a stop to 20 years ago, a world crawling with fake heroes and their delusional followers. They'll drag the entire world down into the mud with them, which is exactly why Jae Hwan never wanted his brother to become an adventurer. To prove his point, Jae Hwan gives Jae Ryong a bank book, showing all the money he's earned, which he's been saving in Jae Ryong's name from the very beginning. When Jae Ryong looks confused, Jae Hwan lays out his real plan for him. The endgame was for Jae Ryong to learn all the skills and knowledge Jae Hwan could teach him, so he could start his own business. He tells his brother that he's got to build some actual practical skills to make it in the real world, and tells him to hit him up once that cast comes off. That's when they're going to get started on some serious magic training. Right as Jae Hwan is about to dip, Jae Ryong asks him why he's going through all this trouble, if he's so against him being an adventurer. Jae Hwan admits he could have put a stop to it, but says that his own wishes don't mean a thing compared to what Jae Ryong wants, just like it was 3 years ago. Meanwhile, Haran strolls into some ruins and finds Odd Rock, telling him that every time she sees him, she can't help but think they seriously need their own hideout. Odd Rock finds that hilarious, considering she barely ever shows up for their meetings anyway. Noticing he's by himself, she teases him, asking why he's acting like they're some kind of inseparable duo. Odd Rock just brushes it off, saying he picked up another gig. He tries to go back to his book, but Haran cuts in saying she was actually trying to compliment him. She figured he'd probably be moping all alone without her around. And bruh, that really sets him off. He warns her he'll seriously end her if she keeps running her mouth, but Haran just laughs it off, calling him cute for getting so triggered. Totally fed up, Odd Rock jumps to his feet, ready to throw hands saying they're members so they won't get punished, and it'll be her fault for pushing him. Haran gets into a fighting stance too, mocking him for calling it a suicide mission, but right as they're about to go at it, their masked boss shows up. He reminds them they were summoned for a mission, and between their constant bickering and the other messes they've recently caused, he's way beyond angry. Odd Rock throws up a hand like he's surrendering, but he's still itching for a fight with Haran, calling her a crazy psycho. She just ignores him and asks the boss why he's been ghosting her texts. The boss replies that after she went and wiped out an entire rescue team 3 days ago, he low-key didn't feel like chatting. Haran gets pissed, but he explains she had zero reason to go that far since their objective was already complete. Odd Rock questions if you could even call it a success, pointing out that only 12 people died and some other kid ended up stealing all the spotlight. He complains that the news won't stop showing those kids' faces without a single mention of the dead civilians, or the vehicle their team hijacked. The boss explains that the Adventurers Association actually got bailed out. See, because of those 2 kids, nobody's talking about how the security team guarding vehicles with 5-star monsters was completely underqualified. That screw-up is what got all those civilians killed. He's sure the association will just manipulate the media and get the public on their side. They'll keep everyone distracted with hero stories instead of letting them focus on the association's massive F-up. Haran is furious and says she'll go kill those 2 kids right now, but the boss shuts that down immediately. He warns her that if their identities leak, this whole thing gets labeled as terrorism, and then everyone will be hunting them down, instead of going after the association. Still, if these little mistakes keep piling up, the association is bound to crumble eventually. Odd Rock asks if the plan is to just keep causing more accidents, and the boss confirms it. That's when their 4th member, Young Gyul, shows up dragging a dude wrapped in chains. The guy is covered in blood, but Young Gyul is just laughing his head off. He casually says they should have let him know everyone was meeting up. The boss replies that he didn't want to get in the way of Young Gyul's hobby. But Young Gyul says it's not a hobby, he just genuinely loves his work. Odd Rock glances at the tied-up man, whose face is also hidden, and notes that he looks pretty tough. The boss explains their new captive is a real go-getter, a low-ranking dude who got greedy and tried smuggling assets behind his team's back. To catch him, the boss had to go undercover as a smuggler himself. The man Gang Yak is a main tanker with a reputation for being a beast, but he betrayed his own crew. He was caught smuggling goods into the Shadow. So, the Shadow is basically a secret hangout for adventurers usually set up like a base camp near dungeons. They hit up often. It provides shelter, keeping them safe from monster attacks, and it's stocked with medical supplies and other useful stuff. But of course, some shady raiders use this safe zone to pull off all kinds of illegal activities. Young Gyul tells Gang Yak to spill the tea. Gang Yak cracks and says there's a big party tonight at the Shadow hosted by his teammates and some civilians. Apparently their commander invited them. Odd Rock wonders if this is just about top-tier raiders chilling with smugglers. But Young Gyul just laughs, calls that boring, and tells Gang Yak to keep talking. The prisoner then reveals that his commander has deep connections with rich business tycoons and celebrities. They all party together using special potions or plants that give them an intense pain-numbing high. The boss speculates the stuff might be addictive, the kind of junk they'd use in their secret lair, especially since adventurers are covering for them. Gang Hyuk tries to explain that this is just how the game is played, insisting that every other group does the exact same thing, but Young Gyul just pats him on the head. He tells him not to worry that he won't get hurt again. Gang Hyuk shaking asks if he's for real, but Young Gyul just says it's time for him to go. And just like that, without even blinking, their boss offs Gang Hyuk. He then announces that nobody is getting out of this place in one piece. He plans to kill all the drug-addled adventurers and civilians and just pin the whole thing on a monster attack. Odd Rock and Heron are totally hyped for the plan, ready to go hunt some raiders, while Young Gyul points out that their main boss is still MIA. The boss doesn't care, declaring that they're about to wipe the floor with this generation's top-tier raiders. We're talking 2 gold-class adventurers and 6 rankers on the hit list. With their plans set, the 4 of them dip from the hideout. They're heading straight for their target, fully prepared to slaughter the raiders and kick off the era of the cicatrices. Fast forward 1 month, Jae Young is on the phone with Saram, letting her know he's almost there, but his grip strength still isn't 100%. Apparently, the doctors told him he needs to do neurological rehab for another week or 2. Saram is just relieved, saying it gives them more time to get his gear ready. But when he finally shows up, his jaw hits the floor. He finally gets why Saram was so insistent he come down. Riding in a bougie-looking cab, he asks if it's just going to be the 2 of them for the next couple of days, and she confirms it. She explains they have only got the weekend before his big transfer exam kicks off. He's about to say something else when Cheol Kong hops out of the same cab, and Jae Young introduces him to Saram. He explains he bumped into Cheol Kang at the hospital and figured he should tag along since they're in the same department. Saram looks completely shook to see him, and Cheol Kong can't stop nervously glancing her way as she shows Jae Young around the insane athletic center. She tells him the place is so stacked, it even has its own swimming pool on top of all the other training facilities. Next up, she points to the elevated lounge. Saram assures him he can get food and drinks there anytime, joking that the menu is all about nutrition, not flavor. Then she leads him to the weight room. She explains that it's ad spec, which basically means it's custom built for adventurers who are built different. Later in the elevator, she tells him the guy's dorm is on the 5th floor, and every room has a private shower. She adds that he can also hit up the spa on the 4th floor if he feels like a proper bath. Jae Young cautiously asks if this whole place belongs to her uncle. She just shrugs, saying it's not that big a deal, since some high rankers literally turn entire mountains into their personal gyms. She mentions her uncle usually brings his colleagues here, but he's letting them use it for training. Then her eyes drift over to Cheol Kong, who's R80 checking out the weights, and she weakly asks, "So, what's the deal with that?" Jae Young reminds her that Cheol Kang is her classmate, so she can just, talk to him normally. But Saram says she totally didn't see him tagging along. She admits that she knows for a fact Cheol Kong doesn't see her as just a classmate. In fact, nobody in their entire department even talks to the guy. Apparently he's super snobby and is a total lone wolf. The dude doesn't even kick it with the top students in their class. So there's no way in hell he'd ever want to hang out with her. Just then Jae Young casually calls out to Cheol Kong, who walks over with a smile. Cheol Kang says they came to train so they can sightsee later, which catches Saram completely off guard. Jae Young flashes back to when he found out Saram is Cheol Kang's sponsor and asks him straight up if they're not on good terms. Cheol Kang actually admits he's pretty much friendless and that he finds Saram both super intimidating and low-key impressive. Jae Young is like, "Wait, are we talking about the same person?" Cheol Kang says that even though he's not great at reading people, he can tell a lot of folks don't really vibe with her. But he's never once seen her let it get to her. She's always got her chin up full of confidence. He also confesses he has no clue how she aces all her classes. That's when Jae-young drops his master plan, a group study session this weekend. Saram immediately shoots it down, suggesting they should be focusing on exam prep. But Jae-young argues that the two go hand in hand. He points out that even though it's a field test, it still involves a ton of analysis and memorization. He says they need to grind out past case studies. That's the only way to figure out the where and how of the upcoming test. Saram fires back that they have this entire top-tier facility to themselves, so they might as well actually use it. Jae-young then starts talking about his massive glow-up over the past month. He says he even got to throw down with some absolute beasts who taught him a ton, and he wants to keep that training momentum going with them. Then he fires an arrow. He's like, "Look, we're all a bunch of loners anyway, so this is how we make friends." He tells them once he gets into Yangsa High, he's going to share all the high-level secrets with his trusted crew. He also gives Saram a reality check reminding her how crucial it is for her to be on her A-game. Because what's the point of him getting into the school if she ends up having to repeat a year? Saram looks down, admitting she doesn't think she has much she could possibly teach them, but Jae-young cuts her off right there. Model, claiming she can use magic but her aim is complete trash. Kaol Gang quietly slides up to her, saying this is a perfect opportunity for him to learn a thing or two. About 15 minutes later, Jae-hyun finds Saram in the performance room and lets her know that Cheol Gang is tied up on a call with his parents. He points out that the place is stacked with everything they could possibly need, including 20 sets of clothes in every size, and asks if he can borrow a set. Saram is cool with it and then quietly admits she gets it now. Jae-hyun was just looking out for her by suggesting the study group. She thanks him for giving her a chance to hang out with kids from school, especially Cheol Gang. Jae-hyun reassures Saram that Cheol Gang isn't the monster everyone makes him out to be. But just as he's about to say more, someone else walks in. It's Anisha, and she's got this smug look on her face saying she knew something felt off and that she could have given Saram a heads up. Then she starts ragging on Saram, telling her she's way clumsier than she looks. Saram is totally stunned, staring at her and asking what the hell she's doing there when her own uncle isn't even around. Anisha just smirks, saying her uncle gave them the green light to use the facility for training. It clicks in Jae-hyun's head that they've got to be cousins or something. Anisha just laughs, asking if Saram really thought she was getting some kind of special treatment. Saram quietly confirms to Jae-hyun that Anisha is her cousin, and they're around the same age. Anisha gives a lazy wave to Jae-hyun, saying she's relieved Saram finally has some friends. She then introduces her crew, pointing out a guy behind her named Song Yong, a junior from Yongsa High. She explains that she set up a joint training session, and these are the only people who showed up. Suddenly, her vibe gets nasty as she says she's just trying to be a good cousin by preventing Saram from making a fool of herself in front of everybody. Jae-hyun jumps in, suggesting they should all just train together, and tells them about their own group practice plans. Sang-yong gives Jae-hyun the side-eye, asking if he even goes to their school, since he's never seen him before. Jae-hyun explains that he's from a normal high school and is just a first year. Anisha can't believe it, but Jae-hyun quickly adds that he's gearing up to transfer to Yongsan, and Saram was nice enough to help him. He plays it humble, admitting he's got a long way to go and needs to grind hard. Sang-yong steps up and scoffs, telling him to run home before it gets dark. Anisha piles on, mocking Saram and calling her desperate. She spits that some regular kid like Jae-hyun can't hang with them and is just going to end up embarrassing himself. Then out of absolutely nowhere, Sang-yong just clocks Jae-hyun right in the face, shocking the hell out of everyone, including himself. Jae-hyun lets out a whimper, acting like he's in agony. See, Sang-yong didn't actually mean to hit him that hard, because throwing hands with a civilian outside a dungeon is a serious crime. His own friends start yelling at him for slugging Jae-hyun. Sang-yong's whole plan was to pull his punch right before it hit Jae-hyun's face just to humiliate him. He even had the distance calculated perfectly. He's baffled why Jae-hyun didn't flinch back like any normal person would. Then it hits him. Jae-hyun actually stepped into the punch. He predicted the move down to the millimeter. Jae-hyun weakly says he just wanted to train with them, but Sang-yong forced his hand. Now the performance room is rigged with tons of security cameras covering every single inch for the adventurers' benefit. They record everything from all angles, so adventurers can break down their own movements later. Saram knows this, and she starts wondering if Jae-hyun planned this, because he's laying it on real thick right now. Jae-hyun keeps whimpering, claiming that what he's about to do is pure self-defense. Saram realizes this could totally get them off the hook, since the whole thing was caught on camera and was clearly an unprovoked attack. This could even hold up as legal proof if things get messy. As she's thinking, Jae-hyun lowers his hand from his face, saying he's a timid and shy person who gets all depressed when things go south, which totally ruins his sleep. Sang-yong actually apologizes for punching him, but says he barely even tapped him, so he shouldn't be such a crybaby about it. Jae-hyun slowly gets to his feet and asks if Sang-yong just called him a crybaby. He then turns to Saram, saying this guy is stirring up drama for no reason and is now insulting him. Jae-hyun then threatens to call the cops or even the dean of their school, which shuts Sang-yong up real quick. He asks Sang-yong if he wants a piece of him and tells him to just let him get one hit in. That way they'll be even. Sang-yong calls him a psycho, but agrees, figuring it's way better than getting the authorities involved. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? It's just one punch from a regular high school kid, right? But then he sees the insane aura gathering around Jae-hyun's fist. As he winds up and realizes he's about to get seriously wrecked, he immediately jumps back, trying to play it off like he's just clowning on Jae-hyun. The students are whispering that he should have just taken the L, but Jae-young is staring daggers, asking Sang-yong if he really meant all that trash talk. He says his feelings are low-key crushed, then does this super slow, intimidating blink. His eyes are practically burning a hole through Sang-yong's face, and the silence in the room is so thick it's suffocating. Just as things are about to boil over, Anisha steps in. He tells them this isn't the way, and that going for payback is just doing way too much. He straight up says Sang-yong needs to apologize and cover the medical costs for Jae-young's injuries. Sang-yong is quick to agree, saying he'll get it sorted out, because he clearly doesn't want things to escalate into a real fight. He mumbles under his breath about how ridiculous this is, but still nods. Jae-young gets into his stance and says that Sang-yong can pick, they can either spar or throw down for real. In the next second, they're both rushing each other. Sang-yong throws the first punch, but Jae-young is on another level, easily ducking under the blow and countering with a brutal shot from below. The look in his eyes is pure mockery. He keeps pressing the Yonsei High student, who's just flailing wildly, while Jae-young moves with sharp, imprecise counters, waiting for his moment. Then Jae-young lands a perfect kick to Sang-yong's leg, dropping him instantly and leaving everyone speechless. Some of the other students are like, no way, Jae-young has got to